Well, good afternoon and good evening, everyone. Welcome back to RENNSPORT. Welcome back to the R1 Championship and the road to the EWC, that is the Esports World Cup. My name is, of course, George Morgan, once again bringing you all the action here this evening. And once again, alongside me, also the one and the only Lewis McGlade. Lewis, we're looking ahead to what I'm sure will be a fascinating evening of action around a track that has offered so much in the history of R1 in the past.
Yeah, indeed. Of course, Temple Speed. We've always had a lot of excitement, a lot of joy around here, and I'm expecting very much the same thing in what is going to be a very frantic round of racing. Of course, we're building up to the Esports World Cup, which means time's ticking for quite a few of the teams out there, especially those in Group D.
Time is certainly ticking with only a small matter of a handful of races still to go. Let's give you guys a quick reminder on how the format works.
The RENNSPORT R1 season is about to start with a new format, and here's everything you need to know. The championship is split up into two parts. The regular season, containing seeding stage and dynamic group stage, followed by the major at the Esports World Cup. The regular season starts off with 3 seeding rounds. Those are your typical R1 style tournaments in which drivers will be collecting points based on their finishing position, whilst the top 6 in each race will progress into the next round. The points scored by each of the drivers will accumulate towards the points tally of their team. The dynamic group stage separates teams into 4 groups, initially based on the points accumulated during the seeding stage. In rounds 4 through 7, 2 groups will play each week. At the end of the races for that round, the team with the least points scored in its group gets demoted to the one below, whilst the highest scorer per group moves one up. Their position at the end of that week determines the number of championship points they accumulate. As an example, number 1 in the top group, Group A, will receive 12 points, while number 2 in Group C will receive 5. Round 8 is the final round of the dynamic group stage before the major, and the first chance for teams to qualify for the finale at the Esports World Cup. To qualify, you either have to be the best scoring team in Group A or be among the 2 highest scoring teams from Group A or B across the dynamic group stage. If you are the worst scoring team in Group D or one of the 2 teams with the lowest amount of points across the dynamic group stage, your championship ends here. The remaining 6 teams will go to EWC and enter a last chance qualifier round to determine who will join the fight for the RENNSPORT R1 Spring Season Championship at the Esports World Cup.
So there we have it, a little explainer there just to take you through, and a little reminder for those of you who are obviously joining us and are seasoned veterans of this series now. But we're looking ahead obviously to tonight with only a small handful, as I said, of races still remaining, and obviously Monza here looking to tip the scale in terms of the championship. I would just remind you of the calendar here this far of 2025 season. We've succumbed to Spa, we've done Monza already once before, Hockenheimring, Fuji, Jeddah again, and 2 trips to Daytona. We've got 1 of 2 nights here. We're starting tonight, 2 nights at Monza, of course, starting today on May 29th. Then we arrive back tomorrow on May 30th before we then take the last dance for round 8 on June 6th. Plenty up for grabs, many questions to be asked, but the one thing we do know about the Temple of Speed is that it is fast and furious. This circuit in particular, of course, opened back 102 years ago, Lewis McGlade, 3rd of September 1922. Always packs huge crowds here, a mass tifosi fan base, and obviously plenty of teams looking to maximise their points here around this illustrious circuit.
And we've had iconic moments, of course, in R1. Everyone remembers back to the spring season finale and the slight moment that Moritz Lerner had down into T1. He absolutely detonated most of the field, giving Marcel Chinjic the perfect run to win the spring season championship. We've seen great moves going into the Ascari chicane there at 8, 9 and 10. I remember Thibaut Casbon. I think it might have been Kuba Brzezinski having a great bit of side-by-side going through there as well. And, of course, that final corner, we'll be arguing at what the corner name is all evening long. It's the
We always do. We always do. Obviously, Alboreto, as it is so known as well. And Lewis, obviously, we had a little bit of drama at the end of our last broadcast as well, at the end of Daytona, because, you know, we thought the day was done in many ways as to who was going to go through to the next group as such, who was going to move to Group A, who was going to drop down to Group B, who was going to drop down to Group C, and obviously Group D as well. There was some slight change-ups, a few stewards' decisions late in the day that really caused a stir.
Yeah, certainly. We could have seen them live on broadcast, but someone clearly was desperate to get out of here and go for his team, but that's fine. No, obviously, yes, there were some late change-ups and some late changes. We'll take a look at the overall points, though, first, to see how things are currently standing heading into this round. Of course, Porsche grounded with 2 victories on the season. Redline with 1 victory on the season. That was at Jeddah, and then 2 second places mean that they're at the top, 35 and 34. Those 2 being at the top of the points, they're almost... it's not 100%, but they're basically almost certainly guaranteed their places in the Esports World Cup finals. Virtus Pro, very close as well, 3 points clear of Mouse as well. BS Competition there in 5th, though. They could have a decent run. Unlikely they're going to get into that top 3. But they have moved their way up into Group A, importantly. Focusing on the bottom, though, Guild, they need 2 very, very, very special evenings, and even that might not be enough.
It was a special night at Daytona, though, for BS Plus competition, wasn't it, Lewis? I think if you're going to enter into the Group A fold, now's probably actually a pretty good time if you are BS Plus competition. We can just see now how the dynamic groups worked coming into tonight. And as you can see, the major changes, BS Plus competition moving into Group A, along with Porsche Coanda and BMW M Team Redline Racing Bulls. Virtus Pro dropping down from A into B, also being joined by Team MSI, who had an illustrious run in Group C as well. Really pulled it out of the bag. Phenomenal results for all teams concerned. And Lassie and Williams Sim Racing, who probably feel a little bit disappointed after what was certainly a grand display on their part. Just stewards' decisions late in the day turning the screw a little bit in BS Plus competition's favour. Looking down at Group C, Mao's dropping down into that C spot, expecting them to bounce back up, but it's going to be less than easy because, of course, Team Vitality are going to be there to battle hard, I'm sure, as well, in a bid to try and move their way back up into Group B after coming very close. Had a very disappointing night at Daytona, it has to be said. ERA Esports also on a buzz right now after a flourishing period in Group D. They've been replaced down in Group D by TC Racing, who have shown sparks of brilliance with young Nicholas Mateo as well. Team Falcons, who arguably have been letting themselves down lately as well. They'll be looking for a sheer bounce back right up into Group C as well in the not too distant future. And Guild Esports, who haven't really got going, Lewis McGlade, in terms of this championship.
No, they've really not. They're the only team that are really failing to fire at the moment. ERA with their promotion up into Group C. We'll see them out in action tomorrow, of course. But focusing here, I mean, who'd have predicted this right at the start of the season? Obviously, we got Falcons here in qualifying for Group D. Thomas Tatler behind the wheel, still in Group D. Not only were we surprised they were demoted down into Group D, they've remained here for the second consecutive round. They started out really strong at Daytona in the first race and then really faltered as the evening went on. And a perfect 1, 2, 3 and 4 for ERA in the final race gave them promotion safety. We'll see Tatler roll his way around the circuit. I've got a question for you, though, George Morgan.
Fire away.
How many track maps have you got today? I saw your picture, your social posters of Spa. You had 2. Well, honestly, I've never been more baffled. There was 2 pictures of Spa on top of each other on the same bit of A4. Boring.
I'm sorry to disappoint you today, McGlade. I've only got the 1 this time around.
So
but yeah,
weird.
It depends how I feel, to be honest with you. I don't know why it is, but sometimes I like to take both, 2 different perspectives. But yeah, it just kind of helps in a way to cover more detail. Sorry?
To the limit? Ever thinking of sticking a 3rd one on there just for banter?
Well, maybe. I mean, it depends. We'll see how many Microsoft Word can allow me to keep on that's readable. I think it has to be said. But no, we've only got the 1 this time around. And, I'm sorry to disappoint you all at home if you're a fan of the double track map on 1 sheet of A4. So as we now watch as Thomas Tatler makes his way down through towards Kerber Alboreto here to kick off qualifying. And yes, indeed, at the moment, Falcons, who haven't really been on one of their best runs. He's sacrificed the purple first sector, has Tatler, as he now storms his way up towards the line. 6 minutes and 45 to go. Tatler, the first across the stripe, and that's a 1:46.385 to beat.
Yeah, it's Jakub Maszewski who's been able to go faster in that first sector. There's been a slowdown penalty for Henry Moorhip. You can see it in that second sector. It does happen quite a bit, particularly on the exit of the Ascari chicane, that final bit. We do see quite a lot of slowdowns, even from the very best. So unfortunately for Henry Moore, starting out this evening, when Guild need a good result, it's not going to be good enough. It will be down towards the rear of the field. Jakub Maszewski, though, going very fast in the first and the second sector, going much quicker than his teammate, might go ahead by a 10th or so of a second.
I don't think Tyler's going to be too disappointed to see his own teammate actually taking the purple sectors away from him. And Jakub Bandaszewski certainly proven in the past to be a feisty contender. Really intrigued to see how Falcons and TC exchange here in Group D. It's going to be a fascinating contest between these two. Obviously, TC showing elements of brilliance in their own right. Jakub Bandaszewski looking to reclaim some of that former stardom that he's been able to accrue over his time in R1, and indeed goes fastest. A trio of purple and goes faster than his teammate Thomas Tatler.
Augustin Torlashi getting a slowdown penalty there, and he's not the only Augustin now as a part of the Thibaut Courtois Esports team announced today. They'll have Augustin Canapino, ex-Williams Esports driver, will be joining the team as well. That'd be great to see. Obviously not in action here today, but very excited to see what the IndyCar driver, of course, in times past, but I've always known him as a sim racer. See what he can get up to in the team. Augustin Torlashi across the line, though, only good enough for fourth, and quite a bit behind Henry Moore as well.
Remember commentating on Agustin Canapino back in the 24-hour of Barcelona-Catalunya in that official race as well, that virtual one, the very first one, in fact, and did a remarkable job for Williams back then too. Marco Pejic coming up towards the line, 35.3, 35.6, a little bit off the pace, so coming out of that middle sector, and Guild have had a really tough time as of late, and it pops into third fastest, Marco Pejic, ahead of Henry Moore, but next up comes Zemislav Lamenek.
Yeah, indeed. See what Lamenek can do as he works into the final sector. It's looking good for Falcons at the moment. The sectors here, it's not looking great for a run at pole position. What it is looking for is great for a run to be around the teammates, getting ahead of Marco Pejic. That's the important bit for the Falcons team. Pawlowski will not join him though. A slowdown in the middle sector for Pawlowski sees him. Well, he'll be dropping down to the rear of the field, but very important lap time there from Lamenek to get just ahead of Tatler. So we should have three Falcons at least up there somewhat.
Yeah, at least they can hedge their bets in terms of the major points. Of course, we're still yet to see the rest of the TC Esports camp as well. But Pawlowski very much suffering the same affliction that took Henry Moore as he made his way out of the Ascari chicane, but it looks like he's going to be joining the camp of Henry Moore and Augustin Torlashi as he now makes his way up towards the line. You can just see the frustration there as well in the reaction of Kamil Pawlowski straight away, and indeed will actually be the slowest of all with that 152.888. Matt Emery up next, and has also, I think, suffered a slowdown, Lewis, coming out of Ascari.
Yeah, indeed. We're seeing a few slowdowns being picked up around this circuit. And yes, indeed, another one to add to the mix, unfortunately. Sometimes I say it's just how it goes. It can be an absolutely brutal circuit when it comes to those qualifying. Emery then across the line, and I say down there in a sea of slowdowns, 5th through 8th.
Next up comes action man Jack Keithley, who had a few concerns of his own. Had to start from the back in a couple of the races we saw him in before, but showed a great deal of promise in fighting his way up through the field. We'll certainly not be hoping to be burdened with the same afflictions yet again, this time at the Temple of Speed, but 58 thousandths off in the middle sector is really promising, and the TC Esports man pops highest of those outside of the top three Falcons, 4th place, and just outside by approximately 0.06 of a second.
Here's Matteo as well, working his way up into the final corner at the Parabolica. You were calling it the bus stop chicane last round. You should have updated yourself to the Le Mans chicane, which is what it's actually called at Daytona. But no, apparently we only change things in Italian circuits when it's sacred ground. That's fine. Matteo then up towards the line. I'll be sorry about it all night. Let's see what he can do. It's going to be a slowdown as well. I did wonder if he was going a little bit slow there on the exit of Ascari, and certainly was. We're getting a lot of slowdowns in here. You might have done all right in this qualify. Well, actually.
I think perhaps both of us as a unit probably would have done quite well in this Group D thus far, Lewis McGlade. But Daniel Moreno up next, of course, former F1 sim racing driver for Mercedes back in the day, still driving a Mercedes machine this time around, but this time for Thibaut Courtois' TC Esports as Bono House goes purple in the middle sector. But first and foremost, Moreno up towards the line, goes into 6th fastest, just behind Marco Pejic. So two major players, TC operating around the mid-pack.
This could be a good lap, though, for Bonhouse. He was saying about, he kind of looked pretty happy coming out of Ascari. The first sector's not great. as we'll come through the final quarter of the Parabolica after setting the fastest middle sector of the session. Let's see where he can head. Hopefully, he's going to head, for his sakes, ahead of Jack Keithley. Will he get amongst the Falcons, though, as he heads up towards the line, just ahead of Keithley, but still unable to beat the 1, 2, and 3 for that Falcons team at the moment in this qualifying session. There's your pole sitter, Jakub Matuszewski.
Yeah, Matuszewski back on top. A trio of Falcons sit at the very top of the tree. They lock out the front row, and with one man on the second row, it certainly gives them a grand chance heading into the first race of the evening. But credit to Bono House as well to at least lift and provide a beacon of light to a Guild team that have really suffered through the course of this championship thus far. You never know. They could yet find a bit, perhaps a turn of foot coming into the final races in this dynamic group phase. Of course, it all leads through to the road to the World Cup, folks. We all know that this is the road they're on. They all want to be there. They all want to win. Such a grand prize here for this Rennsport, obviously trophy. It's all about the World Cup at the end of the day, and that is where the top sim races come to play. I've got to give Bono House credit, because effectively he's almost been the governor of the team. He is the governor of the team at the end of the day, Lewis. He's got such a long heritage in sim racing. Things haven't gone his way. Neither have they gone the way of the team. They really need a big performance here tonight.
Yeah, certainly so. Like I say, he's someone that's been in sim racing for a hefty amount of time. It's been a house. I remember him being the young gun in 2009 Formula Sim Racing World Championship, and then 2010 he started winning and absolutely ran away with things. And here we are, 15 years after that first big win for him in the world of sim racing. He is the leader of a struggling Guild team, and that's fine. There are always going to be ups and downs for certain teams. Unfortunately, Guild are having a real struggle so far in 2025.
Yeah, they certainly are. I think also a few teams are struggling with the adjustments as well with a new car. Obviously, Guild, one of the many teams that moved away from Mercedes and into Aston Martin machinery. We saw also the likes of Vitality moving away from Audi into Aston Martin machinery as well, and haven't quite captured the same, should we say, prowess as we have seen prior. Obviously, Vitality in the past, also a championship-winning team with the likes of Marcel Chinchik winning the Spring Season Championship back in 2023. But Bono House looking to lift and offer an olive branch to the Guild team, and maybe they can do that. We'll have to wait and see. But Falcons, this is what we have tended to expect from a Falcons team, Lewis, that really, as a new team last year, performed above expectation.
Yeah, but do you remember last round they did qualify? I think they qualified 1, 2, and 3, and it was Jakub Matuszewski on pole position in the first race as well. They ran around. They finished first, second, and fourth. It was Matuszewski ahead of Lamanek, and then it was Robbie Stableford, the final one on the podium, before we got to Thomas Tatler, who dropped down to fourth position. Right. So the point was that they ran 1, 2, and 3 in qualifying back in Daytona, and they still were unable to progress, because after that it kind of went a little bit downhill. Despite a victory for Thomas Tatler, a disastrous final race in Group D just a week ago, a couple of weeks ago, really kind of put an end to their chances to move through. They cannot afford it. And to be fair, I would say, looking at things, this should be easier than Daytona. There's no other Porsches out there, which obviously the other team that went through was ERA. They also run a Porsche. And then, Porsche Commander obviously dominated Group A. So Porsche was clearly quite a good car back at Daytona. But they seriously underperformed in races 2 and 3. They'll be very aware of that. Start strong and keep going. No room for complacency.
No, you can't afford to be complacent. You get punished as well for complacency at Monza, has to be said. But, one wrong foot. We saw a couple of cars get it wrong as well. Lewis coming through the Ascari chicane, a few laps going awry. And this is going to be a concern, not just for the groups or just the teams in Group D, but also in Group A. If you are a Team Redline, if you are a BS Plus competition, if you are a Porsche Commander, it doesn't matter how good you are. You're looking at two ends of the spectrum between BS Plus, for example, when we move on to that group later on. And obviously, Porsche Commander, who have been so good as of late. But even the best teams can have frail moments, and this is the track that will punish you for those rare misgivings.
Yeah, indeed. It can be a tricky circuit, but we'll see how things unfold. We'll see if pole position translates its way to victory.
Certainly will. Starting grid time here in Group D from back to front. Starting off from P12, Kamil Pawlowski for Team Falcons lines up on the 6th row alongside Matt Emery, with Augustin Torlashi on the 5th row in 10th, alongside teammate Nicholas Matteo, who has been a shining beacon for the team as well. Back at Daytona, we'll be hoping for more this time. 8th for Henry Moore, and then comes Danny Moreno in 7th as well. Marco Pejic in 6th on the 3rd row. Jack Keithley, action man, in 5th place. Bono House in 4th. Thomas Tatler in 3rd. And then more Falcons sit on the very top step with Zemislav Lamenek in 2nd place. It's a lockout with Jakub Mataszewski starting from pole position as we now look ahead to the very first race of this evening at the Temple of Speed. Rolling start. Any predictions, Lewis McGlade?
I reckon Jack Keithley from 5th place. Watch out for him in that TC Racing Mercedes to get on the attack early. He's not someone that's afraid to get his elbows out. I'm not saying he's going to win the race, but he is not going to be patient at T1. Keep your eye on him.
I don't think many are going to be patient at TC, it has to be said. You can just see a train of them actually on the left-hand side as they're looking at it down through towards turn 1. But it's a trio of Falcons. Mataszewski, Zemislav Lamenek, they are your front runners. Thomas Tatler waiting in the wings, as is Bono House. As for the first time tonight, we put pedal to the metal, and it's go, 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 go. Great start for Mataszewski and Lamenek, both of them just trying to control what's going on in behind. But very soon they're going to fan out, heading down through towards turn 1. A very bold line taken by Bono House, looking to the inside, coming through towards the Retivillo chicane, a sandwich 3 wide. Coming through is Jack Keithley, sticks his oar in the TC Esports car, and indeed as they make their way out of turns 1 and turns 2, fantastic exit for Bono House, who makes his way out of Curva Grande and moves into 3rd place. Tatler 2 down from the very start of the races. Keithley goes hunting as well. Now stripping down through towards the Roger chicane is Zemislav Lamenek leading the way. Mataszewski into 2nd, wheel to wheel here between Bono House and Jack Keithley, but Keithley fights his way through, coming out of the Roger chicane, and here comes Tatler, Lewis.
That's why I'm all right, mate. Yeah, Jack Keithley making that progress as predicted, straight up in the 3rd position. Smart stuff from Lamenek and from Mataszewski as they were working their way through Curva Grande. They were both trying to give the slipstream to Thomas Tatler, who was getting dropped back behind Bono House and Jack Keithley. Keithley, those works way up in the 3rd position. He's about 7/10 off of the top 2, should be comfortably in the slipstream, but Thomas Tatler's going to get on the attack and try and basically slow Jack Keithley down. Kind of what he did last week back at Daytona as well. It's not quite as slipstream heavy around here as it is on the high banks of the World Centre Racing. However, it is still a pretty big slipstream heavy circuit. What about those guilds though down into T1? I think it was Bono House who was onto the grass.
Yeah, it got very tight. I have to say there wasn't really much room for Bono House to play with, but you can just see how keen he was to make those early places, and that is the gamble when you come out through towards the Retivillo chicane. Try and go daring, go late on the brakes, but obviously you can go too far in some instances. Unfortunately, Bono House paid the price coming out through Curva Grande, and is now seeing his teammate Marco Pejic under convincing pressure, with Danny Moreno, who was actually threatening a move coming into Ascari. Also threatening the big moves is Bono House as well for Guild. They're going to pounce into the top 4 places, but Thomas Tatler is going to try and stop that from happening. Once again, these two go side by side. Moreno has moved up into 6th as well as managed to dislodge Marco Pejic over that P6. So TC have made a gain, and he had a lovely run as well coming out of the Retivillo through towards Curva Grande, because now he's on the tail of Bono House.
I wonder if Thomas Tatler maybe didn't get a good exit out of the Parabolica there. If not, the straight line speed in his Porsche is not so great, because he was in the slipstream with Jack Keithley, but still wasn't. It was Keithley that was pulling out a gap. I know Keithley's getting the slipstream from the top 2. There's double slipstream, I get that, but you should expect that Thomas Tatler would go with him. So I wonder if he maybe had a poor exit there off of the Parabolica, or maybe the Porsche is not quite as strong in the straight line as it has been. Normally kicks quite well off of the corner and has that early acceleration that's quite nice, and it gets up to speed quite early. So we'll have to wait and see. Alas for Kamil Pawlowski here, he's going a little bit wide there, going through the 2nd Lesmos, and obviously he's just got Torlashi behind him, a big gap back to Henry Moore, but the rest of the 11 cars are nice and tight as a pack.
Yeah, it looks like the problems have persisted for Henry Moore, unfortunately. 14.5 seconds away from Augustin Torlashi, and Kamil Pawlowski taking an uncomfortable run over the curbs coming through the Lesmo, but No harm, no foul, at least for now. Still on the back of Matt Emery at the moment. Remember, of course, we're no longer in that phase earlier in the championship where knockout and seeding took place. This is a very different system. We're moving into the dynamic group phase where we've seen the championship standings change wind constantly, week on week. As you can see in the top right of your screen, those are the live standings in the positions as we're currently seeing them, as Nicholas Matteo now pops himself ahead of teammate Danny Moreno. But Matt Emery immediately looking to come in on this as well. So now go side by side, coming down through towards turn one, wheel to wheel between the Aston Martins and the Mercedes on both counts, because here comes Matteo on Pajic as they come through out of turn one through towards turn two, running over the sausage curve on the inside, and both getting an equally solid exit, has to be said, coming in towards Curva Grande. Outside line for Matteo. That will, of course, be useful. Heading down into the Roger if he can maintain that line, and getting a tow is Kamil Pawlowski, who is now looking to go side by side here with Matt Emery as they now stream down through towards the Roger chicane. Still wheel to wheel. We've almost got a three-car fight. Further back, it has to be said. Danny Moreno through, along past Matt Emery. Looks like someone had got it wrong onto the gravel. It's Matt Emery, who I think made a mistake coming through the Roger and has paid the ultimate price.
I think so. Emery's still on the rear end of the train, but he's certainly dropped back to 11th position. Nicholas Matteo here, who we're looking at, who was the lead driver for TC a week ago, had two podiums in race 1 and race 2 of Group C. It was third place in the first race, then second place in the second race. A bit of a struggle in the final race as he scored no points for the team, but basically what I'm saying there is he scored quite a healthy amount across the evening. His teammates were almost nowhere to be seen, and that was what cost TC position up there in Group C and dropped them back into the clutches of Group D. But Matteo's got the speed, and he's got his teammate Jack Keithley right the way up there. Maybe not battling for a race victory, but still, Keithley's just about outside of the slipstream majorly from the top two. Nicholas Matteo making the move. He's run deep, though. He could be passed.
Yep, certainly can. Keithley still nursing a gap of around 3/10 to Thomas Tatler. Further back, moves being made though elsewhere as Nicholas Matteo gets past Marco Pajic, and in behind you can see Danny Moreno looking every which way to try and get past the Guild Esports Aston Martin as they now fly through turn one again, and yet another TC Esports driver, Augustin Torlashi, looking to make some aggressive movements as well over the curbs. Now that was Marco Pajic, I believe, who made a bit of an interesting, well, it took a very interesting line coming through turn one and turn two. Kamil Pawlowski has moved up into 8th ahead of Torlashi, holding firm ahead of Torlashi. Danny Moreno, I think, having a slight upset and dropping down to 10th.
Yeah, it was a bit of contact there between Pawlowski and Moreno. This is a little bit earlier on in the race, so that was where the hip check came, and I think that was Matt Emery dropping back to the rear. Oh, that was Henry Moore, right? That would have been Henry Moore and what's happened to him and why he's dropped the rate right the way back down. So kind of got squeezed off and then was in the middle of it. He didn't really do anything wrong, but he was trying to get back on the road whilst they were too wide. Just very, very awkward, and Henry Moore dropped off the rear end of the train.
Keen to see how the points translate at the moment as they stand. Team Vulcan's in a very good position with two cars still on the front two places, and they're continuing to drift off. But Keithley has done very well to fight back the delta and is now just outside the scope of 8.5 tenths to near 9 tenths behind Laminek at the moment. But it's going to be very tricky to put a stinger into that double Falcons combination at the moment. Keithley's got a little bit of work to do, but he is not far away. Thomas Tatler still in 4th as well, just nursing a gap to Bono House. We've got some movements as well further back with still on the tail of this fight Matt Emery after taking that trip into the gravel trap, seemingly recovering, and on the tail of Danny Moreno as they fan out now this time. Nicholas Matteo on the escape out of Alboreto, now storming down through towards turn one. He's going to give off a nice slipstream here for Marco Pajic, who are currently seeing from the rear view of Nicholas Matteo's Mercedes AMG GT3. Here comes the Aston as it now looks to the inside. Also coming through very aggressively is Kamil Pawlowski, who had that unfortunate moment in qualifying. Through goes Pajic, but Pajic makes a mistake. Big mistake there from Pajic to go off track.
Pawlowski.
And look, a massive crash, and Pawlowski is round, Lewis.
I was about to say that Pawlowski was in position so that Falcons are going to be scoring better than they were a week ago in the opening race. Now then, with 58 points, it's 1 point worse than they were 1 week ago. And actually, let's turn that one down even slightly more. And 58 points of 8. Yes, 1st, 2nd and 4th. It looks like a really comfortable gap, but do remember that last round they scored 1 more point than what they're currently scoring, or 2 more points rather than what they're currently scoring, and it still wasn't enough.
And if we've learnt anything as well, Lewis, from our last broadcast from last week, is that simple moments like these, for example, can change races, can change evenings as well. But it looks like it's going to be so much in line for one team. Let's have a look at the moments again. Coming down through turn 1, Pajic kind of got distracted from his moment, but then, oh dear, it looked like he was collected elsewhere. Kamil Pawlowski, I think, was, to be honest with you, Lewis, a bystander in that exchange.
Oh yeah, he got spun round by the TC directly behind him. I suspect there'll be a penalty coming in from race control to deal with that one. And TC's position in second at the moment in the live standings might be a little bit more under pressure. Guild have finished last in all 3 of the dynamic group phases thus far. Maybe tonight's the one where they don't finish bottom of the group, but we'll have to wait and see. At the moment, they are currently sat in bottom of the group. Here comes a move then for third position. Thomas Tatler trying to make a move to the outside in the Falcons car and making a 1-2-3 for the team. The move is complete. He's got past Keithley. Bonnerhouse is knocking at the door, but Keithley going backwards rather than the direction he needs to go, which is forwards. As they're off the road, there was the Pajic.
Pajic has taken another trip over the curbs, a very uncomfortable trip as well, and it's now rooted him down in 9th. Danny Moreno has moved up along with Augustin Torlashi. We've got more battling now with Jack Keithley back up the inside of Thomas Tatler as these two continue to hustle. Remember, Tatler getting Keithley not too long ago, but all shapes Keithley coming on the escape out of Rogier, and through on by goes Bono House. The Sol Guild car inside the top 6 at the moment with Matt Emery now down in 7th. House now up into 4th, and also now on the tail of Thomas Tatler.
Yeah, that was a bit of a squirrely moment there for Jack Keithley. Good car control. He's able to keep on it though, and he'll sit behind Bonnerhouse for now, having dropped back. Of course, Keithley, I remember how pumped he was when he qualified in the front row here. Was that in the quarter-final? I think it was. It was obviously the last time he came to Monza in round 2 this season. He was absolutely fired up. Certainly won't be fired up after that attempted move / dropping backwards behind Bonnerhouse now, but could there be more points to be scored here for Guild? Could someone steal that final podium step away from Thomas Tatler?
It's very possible. I mean, Bono House has got every chance to deliver it for Guild, and they could really use a result like this. It has to be said. If we look back at previous results that Guild have indeed had, Pajic actually has been their most successful driver, really. His last victory coming back at Jeddah in our final races. Now we see them tie up once again. Bono House now moving into 3rd place, but he's not alone, because here comes Thomas Tatler again, looking to reply straight away. And Bono House with a very uncomfortable run coming out of turn 2, and back through comes Tatler, looking to re-gamble and regather that P3, and will indeed Falcons retaining this 1, 2 and 3 scenario. And let's not forget, action man Jack Keithley will have no qualms of trying to stick his Mercedes AMG nose into these two and their business right now, heading down through towards Rogier. Back comes Bono House to the inside. Oh, bit late on the brakes. That's going to be uncomfortable now this time around, and Jack Keithley, action man Jack Keithley, up the inside, looking to take 2 for the price of 1, entering Lesmo 1 this time around, and Keithley moves up into 3rd. Opportunistic as they come, and that's what you need to do to succeed here at Monza.
Yeah, Bonnerhouse would absolutely have known that was on its way. He's been teammates with Jack Keithley before, and he's raced with him plenty of times before. Has Bonnerhouse, he knew that Keithley was going to leave his nose in there and was going to try and fire it down the inside of the first Lesmo, and certainly did. It was a brilliant move and a great bit of 3-wide as well, and great anticipation coming in from Keithley. But look at the gap that's opened up between them and the top 2. Jakub Maciejewski and Laminek will most likely come across the line in that order, 1st and 2nd. Obviously, it doesn't matter which driver's in 1st and which driver's in 2nd. They're all effectively scoring for the team to an equal degree, and so it really doesn't matter. And so Maciejewski will most likely remain in that 1st position unless they go, right, let's have a little bit of a race, but nothing too major. But 4 seconds behind this group. We're not catching.
There's going to be a high sense of urgency, urgency now on Falcon's part to see whether Thomas Tatler can, at least now in the final 2 laps of action we have here at Monza, to try and scoop up this P3. It would give them so much, at least give them a huge foundation for the rest of the evening. But Jack Keithley, I mean, that was a fantastic bit of driving just to position the car where he needed it to be. He knew very well that Bono House had made a crucial mistake there, and Thomas Tatler, of course, getting collected in that brief moment. Of course, Tatler was flirting with that gravel trap on the left-hand side, as now once again we see them tackle Rogier this time around, and no late break in this time from Bono House, who was not as committed on this occasion, obviously for the right reasons. No overtake on just yet, but we are on the penultimate lap of the race. One more to go next time around before we then bring the checkered flag out on race 1 of this Thursday evening. Remember, we're bringing you 2 sequential rounds. We're bringing you back-to-back rounds here in back-to-back nights. Of course, we're here tonight with night 1. Here at Monza, we've got night 2 coming up tomorrow, so don't miss out. Every group will be in action by the end of this week, and we'll decide as to how the championship is going to fare heading into the final round that's coming up and will be announced very soon. The RENNSPORT app, if you want to get involved, get it on Google Play and the Apple Store as well. Just scan the QR code in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen and get involved. You can utilise it to get involved in RENNSPORT, or at least follow all the live timing for this very championship here tonight.
Yeah, you can go through all of the historic results, then you can make weird spreadsheets about them, and then just
like us, Lewis. Just like us normal human beings.
Oh yeah, we are perfectly normal. Don't worry, you don't have to put up with me and George tomorrow evening. You got George Morgan and Cam Roger, who will be in action servicing the R1 Championship tomorrow. So that's fine. Look, I've got to abandon you at some point. I'm just sick of commentating with George, to be honest. It's the only real reason. That was the official reason stated for absence as well.
Was it really? Oh my goodness, I hadn't yet read it yet, to be honest. Here we go again. Danny Moreno and Marco Page going side by side coming out of turn 2. Augustin Torlaschi watching it all unfold once again too. They've got Curva Grande coming up. We've got a sequence of TC Esports cars in full motion, all of them looking to actually make moves, and you never know, we could yet see 2 of them moving on up ahead of Marco Page. Moreno's already made the move. This time it's the turn of Augustin Torlaschi. Nicholas Matteo now sat in 6th, and now the 2 TC Esports cars are going to go side by side, but I think more in a defence against Page more than anything else, and they've managed to successfully do that as now they sprint down through towards Lesmo 1. So further points in the favour of TC Esports here in this opening race tonight.
Yeah, look at those live standings, but getting very separated, all 3 of the teams thus far. Certainly not how things are going to unfold completely throughout the evening. With this, we know it's going to be a tight battle. We know it's going to get tougher. I'm sure Guild have got another gear to step up. We've got Henry Moore and Matt Emery right down the rear of the field, just scoring a point between the pair of them. Here comes a look to the inside then, as the move might come in. Marco Page, he knows he needs to score some decent points for the team side by side through the Ascari chicane. We don't see that too often.
Very bold indeed from Marco Page, but it did pay off. But kicking us off here tonight, the final lap about to conclude, and it's Jakub Matuszewski who will go on to take victory here at Monza. It's a double act at the very top here for Team Falcons. They swoop to victory with Laminek down in 2nd. Jack Keithley in 3rd place for TC Esports, crossing the line. Augustin Torlaschi not able to get back past Marco Page just yet, I don't think, in order to get that place back. But it is Falcons 1 and 2 with Jack Keithley after a momentous run in the closing laps to take a stellar P3. But Matuszewski fastest in qualifying. He's fastest in race trim as well. What a way to kick things off with 2 more races to come up here in Group D here tonight, Lewis.
Yeah, but again, very curiously, what is the mindset in the Falcons team, who have been in this scenario before, winning the first race, scoring decently, and it's still slipping through their fingers. The disappointment of last week, though, I feel will only be put to one side when the team as a whole get a good result in race 2. Thomas Tatler won it last week, race 2, but the team as a whole had some big struggles, and that was what opened up the opportunity for ERA to come through. Whether they're feeling the same kind of pressure, though, coming in from TC and from Guild, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, you get the vibe that for Falcons, it's all business here tonight, Lewis. I don't think they're going to be celebrating too much. They know where they really should be, and they're not really there at the moment. We're going to move across and have a quick chat as well to Jakub Matuszewski, our race winner here this evening. Welcome back, Jakub. A good start here this evening. It's been a tricky time for Falcons as of late, but you've got a great chance to turn it around. That was the perfect result, really, to get Monza off to a good start.
Hello, yeah, that's basically what we have had to do. Like, we just have to do it for 2 more races, because it's it's too bad that we are in Group D. We just have to get out of here as soon as possible. So yeah, that's an optimistic start to the day.
How have you potentially changed mentality from last round back at Daytona? Because, of course, you started out in dominant fashion, of course, in race 1 at Group D last round. Started out dominant fashion once again, realistically, on the points. But what's the mentality going into the second race, into the third race as well, knowing that it can still slip through your fingers like it did last round?
To be honest, I don't know how the points look, but just do a okay quali lap. I was basically on a Sunday drive on my quali lap, just to not get off track, and I knew it will be enough to start at the front. So the mentality is just to get the quali lap done and get some points, to not force any unnecessary battles on track.
Well, Jakob, we'll let you prepare for your next 2 races. Obviously, a good start for Falcons with a victory, but we'll wish you the very best heading into race 2.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jakub Matuszewski obviously fully focused on what is coming up next. That's exactly the way Falcons will need to be if they're going to be successful here tonight. Let's take a look back at the highlights from the race. In the initial, obviously we had 3 Falcons cars right at the very top. You can just see Thomas Tatler actually just sat in behind the front 2. Big bold start for Bono House. Looking up the inside, just to see there 3/4 of the car was on the grass coming in towards turn 1. A very auspicious lunge from Jack Keithley as well, right through the middle, making it 3 wide. Heading out of turn 1 and turn 2 before entering through towards Curva Grande, coming off slightly worse off in that one, but didn't really lose any places. Bono House was certainly gambling in many ways. Guild had a really difficult race yet again. They were being challenged at every turn by TC Esports that were making their lives very difficult. The combination of Danny Moreno, Nicholas Matteo once again in full swing, and then we saw the big contact as well. This was where we lost Henry Moore earlier on in the race, hence why he became disconnected from the rest of the field. Marco Pejic with another uncomfortable run off track, and then Kamil Pawlowski took a spin after contact with cars further back as Falcons continued to search for yet greater points. And then we had more of the battles starting to unfold. Once again, Falcons mixing it up with TC Esports. That's going to be a certainly compelling battle in the future races to come here this evening, with Guild scrapping for some much needed points in order to lift themselves off the very bottom. It's been a difficult trend for them so far this campaign, but can they turn it around? Lewis, they've got the driver talent there as we take a look at this great move here from Jack Keithley, getting the up and under, coming out of the Roger. They just need to execute when required.
Yeah, there is no doubt about the potential. There is no doubt about the possibility. But sometimes things just don't go your way.
They certainly don't. Let's run through the race results. Jakub Matuszewski, your winner of race 1 here tonight, with Zemislav Lamanek in second place, a 1-2 for Falcons. Jack Keithley in third, Bono House in fourth, Thomas Tatler in fifth, Nicholas Matteo, Danny Moreno, Augustin Torlashi make up a 3-part TC Esports gathering in 6th, 7th and 8th. Then comes Marco Pejic, Kamil Pawlowski in 10th, and then 2 Guild cars to round everyone off. Henry Moore and Matt Emery, who came to blows earlier in the race and later on in the race as well. So a difficult moment for them. Obviously some penalties were distributed. Matt Emery coming off the back of a 30-second time penalty to end off that last race as well. But very quickly we move into Group A contention. Lewis McGlade and 2 familiar teams, should we say, now taking to the circuit in Group A once again. It's Porsche Goanda and Team Redline, but they're now joined, but now BS Plus competition after their very successful visit to Daytona. A progression into Group A that we didn't necessarily foresee until the very end of the broadcast.
No, well, I mean, again, should someone have not ended the broadcast too early, we would have found it out, because it was looking like it was going to be Williams for quite a long time, and yet still somehow at the end, penalty points, some penalties late on really went the way of BS competition, and the shock promotion straight up into Group A. Fantastic. Nikodem Wisniewski, Kaki Oliveira starting out the evening with a victory. Nikodem Wisniewski ending the evening with a victory. I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but we would be surprised if they would hold their place up here in Group A. But it's definitely not impossible. They have a good team. They have a fast team. All 4 of their drivers are fast enough. It's just whether they can nail the session and actually get after it and actually challenge. Of course, one of the major things around here is those pesky track limits. In the previous qualifying session, 5 of the 12 drivers all got slowdown penalties. And that's why when you get a slowdown around here, you kind of have to keep your foot in, because Henry Moore got a slowdown penalty and still started the race from was it 8th or 9th?
Yeah. I mean, that is the battle of risk and reward. And bear in mind, there are track limits being scrutinised extra hard here this evening. Turn 6 and Turn 7, always a bone of contention, really, at this circuit here at Monza. But yeah, when we look at this group, obviously, like you so rightly said, it's going to be a real, tough test for BS Plus Competition to stay in this group here tonight. Stranger things, though, have happened, Lewis, and like you so rightly say, track limits could be the make or break here this evening. And God forbid we could yet see a Porsche Commander or a Redline making their way down into Group B. But I don't think they're going to have any concerns, at the very least, of being knocked out of this championship. But obviously they're going to be chasing automatic promotion, or should we say automatic qualification into the EWC. But we've got to look back at the progress that BS Competition have made, really, through the course of the championship too, Lewis. I'd say they've made great strides with Florian Haspar at the helm. Very closely fought with Williams Esports last time out. There wasn't really a lot between them, but you could argue that BS Plus were potentially the better team.
Yeah, look, they are a fantastic team. They're a well-oiled machine, and yeah, we'll keep our fingers crossed for them. I think the important bit for them is this is what we need to talk about, what we're aiming for here, because realistically on the points, Porsche Commander and Redline are secured into the Esports World Cup finals. Even if Redline or Porsche Commander get dropped down into Group B, in all likelihood for next week's event, they'll still be fine. BS Competition, should they stay in Group A and miraculously win next week's round, the victor of the final round, regardless of where they are in the points, will move into the Esports World Cup finals, and then it's the top 2 teams on the points. So say, for example, BS Competition were to stay in Group A this week and then win next week, they would move through into the Esports World Cup finals, despite being a fair amount of points behind Redline and Porsche Commander, and then it would probably fall to Porsche Commander and Redline anyway, that they would be the 2 teams that progress. Felix van Delft has just messaged me saying, easy. He is the race engineer of the BS Competition team. So they have confidence, I guess.
And you could argue the architect of last week's massive victory. I'm sure he's going to love that bit of boasting on my part. I don't blow smoke for everybody. I can tell you that now. But let's just say this: we got Dane Moran out on track now, 35.2, 35.5. Lewis McGlade coming up towards the line to see what he produces.
Yeah, first lap time of this qualifying session. Up to the beam, he's going to go. It's a 46.2. Decent lap time, but not incredible. It is the fastest lap time we've seen so far today by 0.003 of a second, though. So at least there's that.
Yeah, strong start for Porsche Commander, as we've come to expect after seeing them dominate through the halls of R1 in the past. But very much the same has been Team Redline. But we welcome BS Plus Competition into Group A, and it's the turn of Ferris Stanley, and he's purple in that middle sector with a 35.5 as well. That's immediately being ripped away by Sebastian Job. We welcome him back to the series once again, as now we see Ferris Stanley go second fastest. That's not bad from young Stanley. A 1:46.315. Just over a tenth of a second away.
Sebastian Job then back into the car then for the second consecutive week, replacing Enzo Benito in the Team Redline Racing Bulls. Into the final corner he's going to go. And of course, a circuit where he's had a fair share of victories. In fact, I'm pretty sure, didn't he win all 3 races around here back a couple of seasons ago? We'll have to wait and see what he can do though. Across the line. Is he going to the top of the session? Yes. No, not quite. 46.275. Only good enough for second place.
Yeah, just mere hundreds away from Dane Warren at the top of the shop. Kike Oliveira's gone purple in the first sector as well, so hold your horses. We've got plenty more to come from BS Plus Competition. Nikodem Wisniewski coming up next. The race winner back at Daytona as well. Brought his very best to the forefront. In fact, I think coming through the 2 races he actually took victory in the last 3 that we had at Daytona. So let's see where Wisniewski can go. 44,000's coming out of the middle sector away from the top time, as now he makes his way up towards the line and definitely looked like he was a little bit frustrated there. 4th place, but the time gaps are minute, Lewis.
Yeah, indeed, it is extremely close in this session. I'm expecting that all the way through this session. Kike Oliveira then, one of their, one of the strongest drivers for BS Competition. Between him and Nikodem Wisniewski, Ferris Stanley, they're all absolutely rapid. Gregor Shields, maybe I don't want to be that guy, is the weaker of the 4, but still can really represent here on RENNSPORT. He's the one with the least experience on RENNSPORT in that BS Competition group. So Kike Oliveira, only 5th position. Let's see what Gregor Schill can do.
Yeah, 1.5 tenths of a second between Ps1 and Ps5 approximately at the moment. Kike Oliveira, despite managing to land a purple first sector, unfortunately did not correspond into the remaining ones. But here comes Gregor Schill, who's off the pace just by over 3.5 tenths coming out of sector 2. Let's see where he stands, making his way down through towards the line. I'd imagine this will put him firmly behind Oliveira, at least to take us through the initial phase of this evening, and that is a 1:46.608, I should say. Next up comes Joshua Rogers, full season champion back in 2023, returns to the track this time.
Was on the front row in all 3 of the races back at the previous round at Daytona. Won 2 of them, of course, and both of those coming from pole position in both race 1 and race 3. Of course, we'll have to wait and see if he's able to grab a pole position here. At the moment, tracking a little bit behind his teammate Dane Warren, and drops just ahead of all of the BS competition cars, but still behind Sebastian Job, the driver who trails him in second place in the all-time winners list.
Jeffrey Rietveld purple in that middle sector, as well as we now look to follow on from Sebastian Job's last red line driver to visit here at this circuit here in this very qualifying session. We've got a trio of them coming up now here in this phase, with Jeffrey Rietveld leading them all. Last podium, of course, was the second race at Daytona. Has taken 2 podiums so far through the dynamic group phase. Goes second fastest ahead of teammate Sebastian Job. But here comes Luke Bennett.
Yeah, see if Luke Bennett is able to grab a solid result here. Of course, has qualified quite well around here in the past. He has run quite well this season around here. He did have a podium in both the quarterfinals and the semi-finals when we raced here earlier on in the season, the standard format. Unfortunately, the final didn't go quite its way, ended up finishing in 7th position. Across the line he's going to go, and it is up to the pole. There we go, 46.200 across the line.
And that was, nothing really stood out in the first 2 sectors, so it all happened in that vital 3rd sector for Luke Bennett. But here comes the Crusader, Jordan Caruso, who's currently sat in that P10 position, yet to register a time. He's got 2 more drivers after this, though, to nestle in their own lap times. But the first sector, despite it being okay, that middle sector, due to a slowdown, is certainly not going to go his way. So we'll see where Caruso goes. Surely it's going to be routed to the bottom of the running car so far. 1:49.361. 2 more to go. The Sixters next.
Yeah, Kevin Siggy then out towards the line. He's the driver that he was one that was missing last week. Last round, wasn't he? I think he was out watching some racing. Of course, was Kevin Siggy. I'm pretty sure it was a Zandvoort, wasn't he? Which is where you're heading in the near future. You'll have to deal with Felix Van Delft in person. Goodness me, poor you. See what Kevin Siggy is able to do as he heads his way through the middle sector. I don't believe we're seeing Charlie Collins out in this qualifying session based on what we're seeing here from Siggy, seeing the entirety of this final sector from him. Sector times are looking decent, though. Losing a little bit of time in the first sector, around 10th in the half 10th in the second as well. See if he can maybe muster up a solid final sector like his teammate Luke Bennett did, or whether he'll just head the BS competitions and the lone Porsche of Jordan Caruso out towards the line. Kevin Siggy is going to go. It is the fastest final sector in the session, and it is good enough for 3rd place.
Yeah, that means that we've got 4 red line drivers inside the top 5. No time to be set from Dane Warren. It's Luke Bennett once again on top, something we're certainly used to from previous echelons of R1 competition, but Redline kicking things off very strongly indeed after what I will say was not necessarily one of their strongest rounds at Daytona. It was more just about staying in contention. Porsche Commander definitely had their number last time out, so Redline definitely looking to come back fiercer than ever before. We'll take a look at the pole lap that was brought to the table here by Team Redline's very own Luke Bennett. Of course, we've come to expect this from Bennett, haven't we, Lewis? Generally a driver that has progressed through the last couple of years under the Redline banner, and now has since moved on, since becoming a sequential race winner. He's done it time in, time out. He's got fierce 1-lap pace and fierce race trim as well. Yeah,
he's a driver that has... Yeah, he's always relatively fast, right? Like, you know, compared to the field, and then just has flashes of unreal, unbeatable speed, and he has had that before in R1. And then every now and then just kind of drops back, and we've seen that quite a lot. He'll go into the finals. I distinctly remember him going into the finals in Munich back in 2023, and was obviously aiming for. He was ready to win, and then it just did not really click for him at all. And it's kind of happened quite a bit at LAN. He's someone that struggles a little bit with LAN. I'm sure he's been focused quite a lot on that this season. So as long as he can fire up towards the end of this online season and then focus his way in LAN when we get to Riyadh, the Esports World Cup in just over a month's time, I'm sure he'll be a healthy competitor for the Drivers' Championship and hopefully drag some decent results out of the team. He's certainly firing on all cylinders at the moment.
Yeah, important to note as well that Redline actually did not take a single victory the last time we came to Monza for round 2 of the knockout seeding phase. Bennett in particular was actually the only driver to secure a single podium, taking a P2 and a P3 in race 1 and race 2 at Monza during our second round in the knockout seeding phase coming into the dynamic group. So very positive start from Redline, a total contrast to what we saw from them previously at this very circuit, but naturally now things are a little different when you're in a dynamic group stage where you've got more of your drivers around you, different level of competition, and obviously the competitiveness steps up, but a very smooth and strong run for Luke Bennett to provide himself with a very hefty lap time. And now it all rolls into practice, heading into the pre-race, shall we say, theatre that we're about to see. Obviously now 3 minutes of practice for the drivers to get some extra time under their belt, and then full focus on what's about to happen on the run down through towards the Rettifilio. Good start for Redline, though, it has to be said.
Yeah, it really is. But the important thing, as much as they've got first, third, fourth, and fifth, which is pretty near perfection, there is Dane Warren in the middle of that. They do have Joshua Rogers there, starting on the same row as Sebastian Joe. Porsche Coanda will come out fighting here, and of course, looking at last round, like you said, this championship was kind of flip-flopped a little bit in the dynamic group phase. The first round was won by Porsche Coanda. The second round was won by Team Redline. The third round of the dynamic group phase was won by Porsche Coanda. Is it Team Redline's time again? It seems as though pace-wise, it might well be.
Yeah, I mean, Porsche Coanda weren't exactly electrifying at Monza last time either when we came here for round 2 in the knockout seeding phase. It was Joshua Rogers and Charlie Collins that did take victories, though, however, in their opening races. But the story really was Virtus Pro coming in out of that one. And, of course, we'll be seeing them when they compete in Group B, of course, in tomorrow night's action when we head there, of course, back to Monza for that show. But, yeah, I mean, in this contest, we've got two teams that have equally not necessarily been as sensational around this track, so we'll have to wait and see. As opposed then to BS Plus Competition, who came here as well, very similar form to Team Redline in many ways as well, not managing to get only managing actually, I think in this case, to get 2 of their drivers through to the semi-final phase, which was Greg Wilshill and Kaiki Oliveira. But they have since grown now with the likes of Nikodem Wisniewski and Ferry Stanley, who I would say have come into their best form since we've entered the dynamic group stage. So that just goes to show the different type, the different scale of competition when you suddenly take drivers out of mixed groups and stick them into groups that you would genuinely associate with them being level with on pace. And I think that must sort of enhance the driver's performance levels, you know, that inner racer as such, that mentality that you need to win. And I think that's the big difference maker between that knockout seeding phase into the dynamic groups.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like I say, this format, it's kind of one of those ones that's really interesting. Is that it works better for some teams than it does others, and we've discussed that quite a lot throughout this. There are, you would think it's 12 cars on the circuit. How difficult can it be? Why would it kind of benefit some teams more than it would others? But take for example like Redline and Porsche Coanda. This dynamic group phase has been perfect for those two teams because they've got 4 strong drivers that can all deliver the goods. Some teams where they've only got a couple of drivers that can deliver the goods come into this group, as we've seen from Virtus Pro a couple of times, we've seen from Mouse, maybe we'll see it from BS Competition, we'll have to wait and see. But they come into this group despite these being teams that can beat a Redline or a Porsche Coanda in another type of format. In this format, it is a little bit too tough for them. Let's take a look then at the starting grid, though, for the first Group A race of the evening. The rear row of the grid is all Porsche Coanda. It's Charlie Collins after a qualifying ban, Jordan Caruso in 11th. Then, of course, it's Gregor Schill for BS Competition. It's Kaiki Oliveira for BS Competition. It's Nikodem Wisniewski for BS Competition. It's Ferris Stanley for BS Competition. Then we get into the sea of Redlines with a little bit of Dane seen a little bit of rather a Porsche Commander assault in there as well. Joshua Rogers in 6th position alongside Sebastian Job. The top 2 in the all-time winners list, starting from 6th and from 5th. Jeff Rietveld will start from 4th. Kevin Siggy on his return will start from 3rd position, with Dane Warren on the outside of Luke Bennett as they'll race their way down into the first corner. Bennett, though, on pole position. A driver we expect to go out strong, a driver that we expect to win races. Is he going to be able to beat Dane Warren's Porsche Commander, or is there going to be more drama down into turn 1? Who knows, George? What do you think?
It's in contrast here, Lewis. I've got to say, we're seeing very similar. Falcons had 3 drivers in the top 4 in our previous race. This time it's the turn of Team Redline here in Group A. Dane Warren is going to be slightly exposed. His 1-lap pace is brilliant. He will need it on this opening lap, and he has the inside line coming into turn 1, Lewis.
Yeah, the difference with that was that Falcons obviously had the front row, and I'd almost say that might have even been slightly more of a disadvantage, because it means that everyone behind is going on the attack. Here it's Redline going on the attack of Dane Warren. It could be a 1-2-3 for the team by the time we exit the opening section of the racetrack. Let's race our way, though, down to the Respilion. Look at that, straight into the middle of the circuit, because going one way and then going the other is the Team Redline army. They split Dane Warren and drop him right the way down. It could be a BMW 1, 2 and 3 for Team Redline. You've got Nikodem Wisniewski on the right-hand side there as well, and the all-black. There we go, skipping over. That was Sebastian Job, I believe, skipping over at the opening chicane. He's going to have to give a whole load of those positions back, and you can see Sebastian Job there closest to the shot in the 22, always driving around with his lights off, so he's quite easy to pick out of the Team Redline, getting the assistance of the slipstream from Kevin Siggy. But a little bit awkward turn 1 then from Sebastian Job. Jeff Rietveld dropped back to 6th.
Yeah, Dane Warren managing to hold on at least to a second place spot. An untidy exit once again this time for a Team Redline car, as Sebastian Job once again has a very difficult exit out of the second chicane this time around. And Ferris Stanley is looking to try and fish his way through up the inside, but unable to do so. Now he's got second Lesmo about to come up, and they've got a long run down the Serralio straight before they then enter in towards the Ascari chicane for the first time. Luke Bennett already almost clocking out, Lewis, a second ahead of Dane Warren.
Yeah, he's gone. He's basically got this one signed, sealed and sorted at the moment. Has Luke Bennett, as long as he doesn't make a mistake. Here comes Kevin Siggy then down the inside of Dane Warren for second position. If it wasn't basically confirmed that Bennett was winning this race, it almost certainly is now. 1.5 seconds he's cleared off to the distance, courtesy of Kevin Siggy looking down the inside. He's effectively gifted it to Bennett. This could be the move, though, coming in from Rogers. He's not going to back out of this one. There comes the slipstream being gifted from Warren as they work their way down to the Parabolica. Rogers is going to go full send here, hooks it up to the apex, pushes Kevin Siggy out wide, and there we go. It's Porsche Commander running in 2nd and 3rd. They need to score decent points here if they're going to be able to win the round, because they've got their 2 teammates, Jordan Caruso and Charlie Collins, in 11th and in 12th.
Yeah, like the beacons, Dane Warren calls for aid, and that opened up the door for Joshua Rogers to come through out of Alboreto to move into 3rd place. But for how much longer will he hold it? Because here comes Kevin Siggy, a look to the outside, which will become the inside should he get the run coming out of turn 1 and towards turn 2. But Joshua Rogers candidly holds on to it. And once again, Ferris Stanley taking a very uncomfortable run over the top of the curbs as well. He's got Nikodem Wisniewski for company in behind. Further back, Heike Oliveira. We've got a quartet of BS Plus competition cars, keeping Jordan Caruso and Charlie Collins in behind, who haven't moved a muscle really since starting on the back row right at the beginning of this race. A little reminder as to how the standings look. Look in the top right hand corner, it's Redline. As it stands, will sit on a very strong 56 points ahead of Porsche Commander, who are on 37. Then comes BS Plus competition on 15. They need to get to work now in order to levy some points in their favour. Remember, 3 races to bring you tonight. This is our first one. Get hold of the RENNSPORT app, scan the QR code, and head across to Google Play or the Apple App Store, whoever provides you with your applications on your mobile device, and interact with your account with the live timing and much more. As we ride on board with Nikodem Wisniewski heading down the Serralio Straight, Ascari to come next, and he's on the tail of his teammates. Still BS Plus in tandem, 4 cars from 7th down to 10th.
Felt like ChatGPT gave you a script for that one there, George. That was fair enough. Nikodem Wisniewski low zone, right on the back end of his teammate Ferris Stanley. Very interesting that Jordan Caruso and Charlie Collins have been unable to work their way past Gregor Schill, and they remain in 11th and 12th, just scoring the single point between the two of them. Can Dane Warren close his way down on Luke Bennett? It feels unlikely, but it isn't impossible. We just don't tend to see, because a lot of these drivers, they basically run round within like a 10th or 2 of each other. They all basically run the same kind of speed. And so a 1.5 second gap, we very rarely see that being caught down at this level.
Yeah, it's very tricky to do so. As soon as you're outside of that aero, you're not getting that drag heading down a long straight, especially here at Monza, where, you know, slipstream is so prevalent, so important, so integral. So Dane Warren is slightly exposed now. He's going to need the help of his teammates, Joshua Rogers, who we're currently seeing on screen, trying to marshal the charge here of Kevin Siggy, of course, winner of the EWC Drivers' Championship last year. And Team Redline went on to win the team's crown as a consequence as well of their equal brilliance as a unit, and now once again looking like they're going to be entering the EWC in great spirits, and also with all 4 cars now starting to move their way into the top 6s of at least this opening race. Of course, 2 more to come, and it could easily go topsy-turvy from that point onwards, but they'll take some confidence knowing that Porsche Coanda now sit with 2 cars rooted to the bottom, with BS Plus competition making life so difficult for them. It's a BMW hench order at the moment, with only 2 Porsches currently sat in those second and third places. Dane Warren, now that gap still being maintained. He's now gone out to 1.5 seconds now this time around, and Joshua Rogers stuck behind his teammate, at least for now. They need to do something, Lewis, to stop this from happening. But Luke Bennett, once out on his own, we've seen his qualifying pace. We know how great it is. He's now escalating it into race trim, and Dane Warren can't catch him.
I mean, this lap time will be a 10th faster for Dane Warren. It started out at 1.5 10. Actually, to be fair, it's come through the final corner. It's then going out in favour of Bennett a little bit there. I think it's closed down just a touch, right? It was 1.5 seconds, and then slightly deeper in the 1.5. It's come down now to basically a clean 1.5 seconds. It's just not enough, though. There's not enough time left in the race. It's not enough, and especially when you've got Kevin Siggy looming large in the background, meaning that, you know, obviously Josh Rogers got to get after it a little bit. Rogers is trying to sit there and basically, you know, almost telling Dane Warren, get on after it, do what you got to do. With Ferris Stanley now battles it out with Sebastian Job. Job's struggles this season. I know he wasn't obviously present through the opening few rounds of this championship, but he has not looked like the same driver since returning last round in replace of Kevin Siggy. He doesn't look quite as comfortable as the multiple race winner.
No, I got to say, I think he's certainly not looking as, should we say, present in this race as he has been in prior ventures here in the R1 Championship. So this is, you know, I don't want to say somewhat of a surprise, because we have, of course, seen this before, because he did join us fairly recently again back at Daytona. And the results weren't much better there either. His best result being 6th place in the opening race of Arskin. The following 2 were then 7th places as well. So we're still waiting to see the very best of Sebastian Job at the moment. Though I will say, back at Jeddah, he did take a victory in race 2 after a 2nd place finish in race 1. So potentially more to come from young Sebastian Job, who sits in 6th place and has also been having an adventure of his own in real life cars, driving around Red Bull Ring, for example. You can actually check out the documentary series of him looking to just show Red Bull what he's capable of in a real racing car. He was taking to the circuit in F4 machinery as well as F3, and then later on then inside a Formula 1 car as well, around what was formerly known as the A1 Ring at Austria, as we now watch them sprint down through towards turn 1. Sorry?
You got that on a track map as well?
I have. I got them all at the moment, right in front of me. Fitting them all on this tiny A4 paper.
Goodness me. Here comes the move then. Gregor Schill getting passed by Charlie Collins. I'll never not find a way to try and throw you under a bus, George Morgan. Sebastian Job is about to get freight trained. Nikodem Wisniewski to the inside. Ferris Stanley to the inside. Kaiki Oliveira to the inside. You've got 1 BMW that's getting hung out to dry by 3 of them on the inside. Sebastian Job's going to do all he can to try and fend one of them off. Gets his elbows out, squeezes off Ferris Stanley. Kaiki Oliveira goes up and under and squeezes his way through, and it's going to go from bad to worse to even worse for Sebastian Job. Welcome to the rear end of the field. Who doesn't really know what that feels like?
It's a calamity there for Sebastian Job. It just simply was the case that BS Plus competition were almost fed up of waiting. They openly escalated, coming through towards the Retifilo chicane. The exit was so good. And Nikodem Wisniewski, Kaiki Oliveira, Ferris Stanley, a flourish of them, a stampede of BS Plus competition cars. Then, well, certainly very quickly went on through, coming out of the Rogers chicane. Charlie Collins and Jordan Caruso taking full advantage. And now Gregor Schill sits in front of Sebastian Job as well. A tricky moment for Job, as now he needs to try and recover and recuperate. There he is in the bottom left of screen, probably feeling somewhat despondent of what has occurred there indeed here on lap 5 of 9, but very soon we're going to be set to begin lap 6. Now once again, Just take a little look at that gap at the top. It's down to 1.3 now, 0.2 off that 1.5 second lap time. Has Dane Warren found something where he can then at least try in this closing stage of the race to bring something to Luke Bennett in this very late stage here at Monza? As now we're seeing Charlie Collins a look up the inside, this time on Ferry Stanley and Kaiki Oliveira. A double move in prospect here for the Porsche Coanda driver. Charlie Collins already through past Ferry Stanley, but getting past Oliveira is going to be another matter altogether, as Oliveira looks to try and just show him the door, and now towing along Ferry Stanley to come straight back through as the two BS Plus cars work in tandem.
Final points paying position then. Obviously 11th position is 1 point to its name. 12th is the old goose egg, and no one wants that. You can see how tight the live stands are. A bit of contact between the pair of them as Gregor Schill muscles Sebastian Job around the circuit. Job then spins him round after contact on the exit of the Rogier chicane. Race control, I'm sure, will be taking a look at that one. Just a little bit of awkward driving between the pair of them as they were both getting elbows out, to be fair. I can see that one going as a race. I can see it going as a penalty. Who knows? Obviously, I'm sure we'll take another look back at it. But Gregor Schill dumped then off the rear end of the train. Red line, though, they are not that clear of Porsche Coanda. It was looking so comfortable for them earlier on. And obviously, with Sebastian Job dropping down the order, it certainly isn't so. He's not going to score more than a single point anyway.
Well, the game has somewhat changed now with Charlie Collins and Jordan Caruso moving up from the very rear of the field to then moving essentially 2 steps up a piece. Well, a bit more than that for Charlie Collins, who's now ahead of his teammate Caruso into 9th as we now watch a replay here. This is the moment between Gregor Schill and Sebastian Job coming down into Rogier, and just see there's some argy-bargy coming in through the first part of the chicane, then coming through the other. Oh dear, I think the stewards might be looking at that. I get the feeling Sebastian Job might be in trouble after that one.
Yeah, I can see that one being a pretty quick slam dunk penalty there. We'll have to wait and see. That is under investigation already by race control. It's been passed on, as is his instant between the 93, which is Charlie Collins, and the number 19 of Gregor Schill. So there's another thing under investigation. Quite a few things are under investigation in this race. Kaiki Oliveira also now being put under investigation for this between him and Charlie Collins. Well, trust me, race control, they always have a lot to look at in these races. We only talk about the penalties that come out, which is, yeah, fair enough, obviously. The amount they have to look at through a race is unreal.
And arguably it's more so at Monza as well, Lewis, given the track limit excursions that we generally see, etc. But I appreciate a lot of it is already controlled by virtue of the platform that we are on here on RENNSPORT. But Kevin Siggy making his way out of the double right-hander. I mean, obviously Monza does open the door on various instances, especially considering the tight chicanes that we have on offer at, obviously Rettifilio and the Rogier. We've seen plenty of Ascari as well. We saw a bit of side-by-side in our previous race, as we now watch them once again come nose to tail. Luke Bennett still at the very top. It's still 1.3. Dane Warren working so hard as we see a little bit of argy-bargy here from Ferry Stanley, Charlie Collins, Jordan Caruso as well. Caruso moving past Collins. Looks like there was some side-by-side, as I said, not too long ago. We've seen a little bit happen at Ascari from time to time, and indeed, again, Ferry Stanley and Charlie Collins giving us a display of that coming through the very fast chicane out of Serralio, and then again, a little bit of contact coming through towards Alboreto, and this time it's Caruso who is sent wide, and Collins moves on through into 9th place, and Job might yet get another place and inherit it after that little bit of contact between Caruso and Stanley coming in towards that final corner.
Yeah, they're on the penultimate lap of the race here, so there comes the defensive line coming in from Jordan Caruso. There comes the attacking line coming in from Charlie Collins as they head their way 2 by 2 down into the opening corner of the penultimate lap. A lot of curb being taken by both Porsche Coandas, bit of contact coming in, and Ferry Stanley has to relinquish the position. Charlie Collins has worked his way through, then up into 8th. Sebastian Job has got through though on Jordan Caruso and now runs inside the top 10.
Yeah. Again, Dane Warren knocking yet another 10th off. It's 1.1 now this time around. In fact, make that 2 tenths here at this point as Warren continues to try and bring the gap closer between Luke Bennett and himself. Let's take a look at the replay. This is the moment here as we watch them. Oh, wow. Whoa. Okay, wow. I do wonder whether Ferry Stanley might be in trouble for that one. It got very close, not giving too much room to the Porsche Coanda heading down in towards Ascari. So Ferry Stanley might have a steward knocking on his door very shortly.
I think a few of these people at the back of the field might have a little bit of a convo post-race on what they're doing. So hopefully we get those results post-race, depending on how broadcast director George Morgan feels about it, but that's okay. Once again, into the Ascari. Honestly, mate, every single time I'm going to keep bringing this up. It's fine. It is a comfortable lead, though, in the points, relatively speaking, for Redline. They are looking stronger and stronger. Results are slightly going their way, despite where Porsche Commander are up, but that gap nearly under a second now. I don't feel that Warren's going to have enough time, though. It's close, and the thing is, I will say, for Porsche Commander, race pace is really good for them, because Warren and Rogers have pulled a little bit clearer Siggy. They've been closing their way up to Bennett. I just think it might be a little bit too late.
In many cases, it can be qualifying for show and actually races for dough here in this particular kind of championship, well, in any championship really, and Dane Warren doing a great job of bringing the time gap down to just under a second as they exit out of turn 2, which just quickly jump back up again, but only by fine margins. It wouldn't take a lot for Warren to now bring that time gap even further downwards. It only takes one mistake, and if Luke Bennett starts feeling the pressure, that is when the threshold of, you know, a clean run through a corner, or at least a tricky moment, it can very much become very blurred as we now watch the replay coming through towards the Rettifilio. Now this is a Porsche Commander BS competition affair, and also a red line further back as well. A Porsche Commander car just getting onto the gravel with the right-hand side of the tyres. Then we got this moment as well, onto the curbs again for a Porsche Commander. But we've seen plenty of that this race, Lewis.
Yeah, we've seen a little bit elbows out, maybe a little bit too much. There's the gap for the race lead as Luke Bennett looks to fend off the duo Porsche Commanders of Dane Warren and Joshua Rogers. It's been a tough race, to be perfectly honest. It's been an exciting one for him, but yeah, he's been running out of the front. He'll have enjoyed it, but that gap closing down bit by bit will have concerned the red line camp. It'll be red line first, then Porsche Commander second and third, then red line fourth and fifth, and then we get our first BS competition once again being slightly outclassed by this group here. Luke Bennett out towards the line to take victory here at Monza. A superb drive for him, 1.1 seconds. Pole position is converted to race victory for Luke Bennett once again. He just defeats the two Porsche Commanders who were closing in late on in the race. It's not going to be enough, as frustration may be building for some of those Porsche Commanders a bit further down the order. This is Jordan Caruso here across the line.
Yeah, so Luke Bennett, that's the second time we've had a lights to flag victory in the last two races, of course, to kick off tonight's festivities here at Monza. First of all, it was Jakub Mandaszewski in Group D. This time, Group A's Luke Bennett has gone from lights to flag here in this Group A exchange. A fantastic result for Team Redline. Obviously, looking ahead, they will be taking those early points, I'm sure, but Porsche Commander in those dying moments, bringing that gap closer and closer, not just in terms of the points, but also in what we saw on track with Dane Warren's spirited pace in the last minute. It was an encouraging show from Porsche Commander, I think, particularly from Dane Warren in his efforts to close that gap. That was approximately 5 to 6 tenths of a second that he managed to rein back in there, Lewis.
Yeah, which doesn't sound like much over basically 10-15 minutes, but it is enough. It is quite impressive to have done so. I think where we've seen in previous evenings, Redline be the strong team or Porsche Commander be the strong team, I think this evening it looks as though we are going to get a pretty solid battle between the top two for the victory, effectively, of the round and those 12 important points. Again, between the two teams, they're effectively moving through to the Esports World Cup anyway. For BS competition, they're just trying to fight for survival here.
Yeah, well, we can now move across and have a little chat with the one, the only Luke Bennett from Team Redline. We welcome him back to the RENNSPORT broadcast. Welcome, Luke. Great having you here. Another sensational performance on your part here, this time at the Temple of Speed, in what was a difficult round back at Daytona. Such an important lights to flag victory this time at Monza.
Yeah, it's quite the contrast to Daytona, eh? I managed to qualify last in every race, so yeah, this is nice. It's a bit of a confidence boost, I guess. I mean, I've been pretty horrific in practice all week. I'm incredibly low on confidence, but you know, that brings it back a bit, and yeah, it should give me a bit of a boost into race 2 and 3.
You've had a bit of an on-off season, yeah, even looking at just purely at the dynamic group phase. Obviously starting back in Fuji wasn't your greatest round, then moving on to Jeddah, you were very, very strong up there with Kevin. Again, you said about the struggles there at Daytona, and now you're strong once again here at Monza. Is there any reason for that? Is that part of the format? Is that part of just sometimes how it goes, or is it just clicking with certain circuits more so than others?
I haven't got a clue, to be honest. I'm so on and off on this game I can't even. I don't think anyone would be able to even comprehend how much my pace varies. It is so weird. I'm really struggling. This is probably the most inconsistent I've been in a long time. But I'm still getting the odd good result here and there. I've had 3 wins now, so I suppose it's not all bad.
No, it definitely doesn't seem like it's only your team, though, or certainly yourself, that are feeling the same pinch either, Luke. But we wish you all the very best. Still 2 more races to come to close off the night here at Monza this time around. Wish you the very best of luck heading into race 2.
Cheers, thank you.
Nice one, Luke Bennett, everybody, after winning back at Monza in our Group A affair. Lewis, take us through the highlights. Obviously, it was a close one, really, wasn't it?
Yep, certainly so. Dane Warren getting dropped through the middle of the field as Redline were going one way round him and then the other. Nikodem Wisniewski giving him a little bit of assistance on the outside as they'd head their way 3 wide in the middle of the field. Sebastian Job would skip over at the first chicane and then would drop back to being side by side basically with Joshua Rogers before more struggles would come in. They'd go through the Roger chicane and there was out wide Sebastian Job, and then was basically being swallowed up. Had Ferris Stanley down the inside of him as he would try and fend off and hang on for Redline, but then eventually would get swallowed up by Wisniewski. Off the road, Sebastian Job would be pushed before he was dropped all the way down to the final position on the field after Gregor Schill was also able to pass him. Meanwhile, there was this battling as Jordan Caruso and Charlie Collins were trying to work their way through the field after starting from the final row. They were trying to get past Kaiki Oliveira. That was Charlie Collins trying to work his way through. There was this spin as Sebastian Job and Gregor Schill made contact. This moment as Ferris Stanley made contact there with Charlie Collins, allowing Jordan Caruso to work his way through before Caruso would then go wide and allow Collins to go through. This moment as well, Sebastian Job and Jordan Caruso battling it out over the final couple of positions before Sebastian Job was able to work his way through. Charlie Collins getting this move and a little bit of contact and a bit of a spin as well from Ferris Stanley. We didn't see that on the broadcast, but Stanley dropping right the way down to the rear of the field, and a victory for Luke Bennett in superb fashion here. Take the first victory in Group 8 at Monza. We'll take a look at the provisional race results. Of course, things still being looked at by race control. It is Luke Bennett after being closed down on slightly by Dane Warren. Joshua Rogers rounding out the podium for Porsche Commander. Kevin Seege then in 4th position with Jeff Rietbeld in 5th. Then the first of the BS competitions, Nikodem Wisniewski in 6th position with Kaiki Oliveira behind in 7th. Charlie Collins in 8th position ahead of Sebastian Job. Jordan Caruso with Gregor Schill and Ferris Stanley rounding out the field.
So there we have it. The provisional race results now concluded. Luke Bennett taking the upper hand for Team Redline, but still, it is very much an open book as to who's going to top the group come the end of this evening's affair. Still many questions to ask. BS Plus competition, you'd argue, aren't out of it either, depending on how the final 2 races go. But now we'll very quickly move back into Group D contention this time around, Lewis McGlade, and obviously witnessing Team Falcons, yet another stellar display. Still a very much an open book here as well. Here's a look at the live standings based after our first race. Team Falcon still leading the charge here. TC Racing showed some snapshots of brilliance as well in that first race. Guild Esports with Bono House, despite him grinding out for the big points, the big results, they need all 4 cars to be up there, Lewis.
Yeah, look, this is really interesting. Obviously, in the last qualifying session, we saw 5 drivers in this group get a slowdown penalty in qualifying. So, kind of, as we heard from Maciejewski after the race, he said he basically drove a pretty slow and safe qualifying lap just to make sure he actually got one of the ball because he knew it was going to be towards the front anyway. Falcons need to do that again because they've been in this position before where they've been comfortably ahead in Group D and it still fell apart from them. That cannot happen again. One major thing though is this with Group D, all 3 teams have already received a penalty because Kamil Pawlowski for Falcons received a 5-second time penalty. We also had Augustin Torlashi for TC. He also got a 5-second time penalty. And then of course Matt Emery got a 30-second time penalty for ignoring a qualifying ban. So, fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, Kamil Pawlowski was that one missing link, really, for Team Falcons in that last race because we saw Thomas Tatler trying to jostle for the top placings as well. It could have easily been a 4-car Falcons affair right at the very top, just based on pure pace that we had witnessed. Jakub Matuszewski showing that he has not missed a beat. But again, we expect perhaps more from Falcons than this, though, at this point in time, Lewis. But, certainly based on what we saw from last season, I mean, you'd expect a team that came in as a newbie into the Esports World Cup last year obviously came in, were contesting with the very best of them in that final round and, really showing that they were, for a new team, to come in given themselves the momentum that they certainly asserted for themselves in that last season effect. We have not seen any of that this time around. And now this is the reason why they're in Group D at this moment in time. They really need a major play here. I mean, we're talking on one level, we're talking about levels here. Guild really need 4 drivers to top, ideally, the Group D group. Ideally finish with some respectable points in order to gain, at least qualification to the EWC. For Falcons, they should be performing at levels higher than this.
Yeah, and for the Falcons team, if you look at a lot of their jerseys, a lot of their shirts, you'll see a star above the team crest that's on the chest. That star signifies their victory in the Esports World Cup back in 2024 over the entire competition, all of the games, CSGO, Rocket League, and of course here on RENNSPORT as well. And this year, RENNSPORT, I believe that we are the first competition in the Esports World Cup in 2025. Now, with that, we could have the reigning champions not even in the Esports World Cup in that first event if Falcons are unable to piece things together here and actually get themselves out of Group D. They need a consistent run. They're looking good for it at the moment, but we'll have to wait and see how things unfold. Let's see Matt Emery across the line with a 46.712 for the first qualifying lap of this session. Can tell you for sure that ain't going to be pole. Needed to be about 3 or 4 tenths faster than that.
No, we see early 146s generally the top times, especially here in Group D. But you never know. Of course, we did see that track limits was the major issue for race 1. But this time, Jack Keithley, who did prior have 2 purple sectors, he's had the first sector actually taken away from him this time, but still holds the purple middle sector. And Keithley, who was so impressive, representing a locker room leader for TC Esports, now goes first fastest, and that's more like it, a 146.483. But we can get better than that, Lewis.
Yeah, we're expecting really in this session a mid to maybe a high 3 maybe for the pole time, and that would come probably from a Falcons driver at the moment. Kamil Pawlowski is the one who's setting that. A really good first sector. Nicholas Matteo then across the line. Let's see what he could do. Again, he was the leader for the TC team back at Daytona on the high banks with a couple of podiums to his name. He goes into second in the session behind his teammate. Oh, no, he goes rather to first. He goes slightly ahead with the fastest final sector of the session so far over Jack Keithley. That might just about have to be beaten, though, by this driver here.
Yeah, we spoke about how Pawlowski was the missing link, really, for Falcons in that first race earlier this evening. Well, this could thrust him what was from the rear of the order to the very top. 35.3 in the first sector, met with a 35.5 in the middle. 2 purple sectors in tandem. Will it be a perfect trio for Pawlowski? Not quite, but it's still enough for first fastest. And a more respectable 146.3 to go ahead of Nicholas Matteo. Falcons flying once again.
Yeah, that's the kind of time we were expecting for a pole time in this group. Jakub Maciejewski, fresh off of a pole position and a victory indeed. Can he get a purple in that final sector and maybe get ahead of his teammate, Kamil Pawlowski, or is he just going to settle for a regular old 1 minute 46.3? By the sector times we're looking at here, it should be a 0.3, but Marko Pejic going fast in the middle sector. This session is not done yet. That first sector, though, for him a little bit slow. Across the line, Maciejewski goes by 3,000 of a second, denied pole position by his teammate.
Of course, pole last time out in our previous race that led to the victory for Falcons, but they've still got 2 cars on the front row, just as they did ahead of our first race of the evening as well. Marko Pejic, though, has taken purple in the middle, had a tricky first race of the evening. The first sector, though, isn't brilliant. He needs a huge recovery here in the final sector to cause ruptions, cause a disturbance to the Falcons that are flying right now. But Pejic with a killer final sector to go purple, and now moves into the 146.2s.
That is an unreal final sector then coming in from Marko Pejic. The pole time in Group A was a 146.200. That 289 would have been good enough to beat Joshua Rogers. That's how impressive that was in Group A. Across the line then, Bonahauser's going to come. Where is he going to go? Is he going to be able to get somewhere around his teammate at the moment? No, he's going to be 4th place behind the 2 Falcons. Could things be falling apart for that Falcons team again? Surely not.
Hold the phone at the moment, Lewis. Thomas Tatler purple in that first sector now. 35.2 to kick things off. Henry Moore, though, is going to be the first to come across the line, and then yet another middle sector failure with a 5.4 second gap off the pace of his own teammate Marko Pejic. A slowdown certainly inflicted, maybe even something more sinister like a spin for Henry Moore, who has certainly had his troubles here at Monza, but now making his way up towards the line. Guild, who have had you know, they've been blowing hot and cold in many cases over the course of certainly in the last race, but they have to now try and keep Thomas Tattler at bay. That's going to be tough though, Lewis.
Yeah, indeed. Purple first sector. The middle sector, though, it is not great from Thomas Tattler. I'm not sure this will actually end up being the pole time. He might go around his teammates. He might even behind Bonnerhouse with that middle sector. We'll have to wait and see. It's going to be the fastest final sector. It is good enough, though, for pole by 0.004 of a second. Tattler nails that final sector, and straight up the pole he goes.
He started on the second row in the first race, and now he gets a taste of the front row for the first time here tonight. Augustin Torlashi currently sat 10th, still yet to register his lap just yet, of course. We've got 2 more to go after him, including his teammate Danny Moreno. But Torlashi, a little bit off the pace coming out of that middle sector as well. 35.7 is not necessarily going to be representative of a fast lap, but he should dislodge maybe Matt, well, he certainly does dislodge Matt Emery. Pops into 8th fastest, a trio of TCs from 6th to 8th.
Yeah, and Danny Moreno not looking ridiculously fast in the session, but maybe faster than his teammates. This could be a 0.3, although with that middle sector again, it's looking that it will be around his teammates, Matteo, Keithley and Torlashi. I wouldn't even say, I don't think it was a slowdown. I think it was just a spin from Henry Moore with that 52.171 in the across the lap. So I think we've still not had any slowdown penalties really from this group. It's a 6-3, and indeed Moreno does go around his teammates. One final lap to deal with, and no slowdowns. There we go.
Oh, nice clean run for Zemislav Laminek. TC currently occupying 6th to 9th at the moment, and a full quartet of them, but they could yet be disrupted, maybe more so here by Zemislav Laminek, who'll be looking to join his teammates Kamil Pawlowski and Jakub Matuszewski towards the top end of the order. Needs a mighty final sector. A little wave there from Leminem as now we watch him as he makes his way and does indeed split the TC Esports cars, just slots in behind Jack Keithley. So there we have it. It's Thomas Tattler back to the top, and has certainly been the locker room leader for Team Falcons as of late. Wings afly as they sprint to the front once more, and they have got also 2 other drivers waiting in the wings behind the scenes as well. I'm sure they'll be looking for big points yet again to follow suit from the first race that we did, of course, witness. They're going to be looking to take Group D by storm. Let's see if they certainly do that. This is the onboard lap here with Thomas Tattler. More akin to what we've come to expect from Tattler as well, Lewis McGlade.
Yeah, indeed. Thomas Tattler, of course, in the dynamic group phase here in 2025, has been able to take 3 victories thus far. 2 of those were back in Fuji, and of course one of those being the second race at Daytona, which he did get from pole position. It's the second week in a row where race 2 has gone the way of Thomas Tattler. He had pole position then, and again he has pole position now. The thing is that Tattler, you watch he's okay with backing the car into the corner again. He's okay with getting that rotation done basically in the braking zone and flicking it in and getting up and over the curbs. But sometimes he makes it look buttery smooth. It's almost like into the Roger. Again, no real sliding. No, okay.
Rear end stepped out there.
That's okay. It's only because he absolutely walloped the curb.
He did, yeah, and obviously it carried. He was a bit fortunate there, really. I think as well on another level, it could have easily gone. I say sideways. It did pretty much go sideways, almost sideways again, and dipping the rear left tyre into the gravel as well. But Tattler comes here after prior success here at Monza, of course, opening up the first race back during the knockout seeding phase with a victory. Did not quite follow suit, though, for the rest of the round as he finished 4th and 11th after that. But even after that has taken 2 sequential wins. You mentioned Daytona, of course, that second race where he went on to take victory. But, of course, back at Fuji when we got the dynamic group stage underway, race 2 opened up opportunities for Thomas Tattler, who, whilst obviously he may not be the talkative type, he does the talking out on track, and this is exactly why he pulls off big results like this. And Team Falcons have definitely benefited off his tutelage and his lengthy experience in this series, and making his way up towards the line, registering the fastest time on show here in qualifying here in Group D. Great start for Falcons heading into racing later on, and now free practice in full swing prior to us getting under race trim once again. But I must say they must take a lot of encouragement encouragement for the likes of Kamil Pawlowski as well, though, Lewis. I mean, those first 2 sectors, a real strong indicator. He's bounced back after that, prior mishap in our previous race 1. Things did not go to plan. And equally, I'll say the same about Marko Pejic. We're with a Guild team that are obviously low on confidence at the moment. And for Pejic to bring a qualifying lap like that to the foray, I mean, that was scintillating.
Yeah, again, we just need to see those flashes from Guild, but unfortunately for them, it does seem as though time is indeed running out here, and they'll be potentially heading into next week's season finale and the online championship, basically knowing that they're only here for show. Because if they don't, this is how it is for Guild. If they do not progress from Group D today, it is over. It is completely over. There is a small potential, if they do go through today, that it might not be over. But realistically, it still even most likely could be. And so, like I say, they need to get through now. It is now or never for them, which is a shame considering how impressive they were. They were, especially on the opening day of the Teams Championship, they were the stars. Like they came out absolutely nowhere, and they progressed straight through and skipped the second day of the Teams Championship we were maybe expecting to be in.
And you've got to remember as well, I mean, this is a team that, has essentially existed, prior, obviously, the Mercedes Works team, even going back as far as 2023 when James Baldwin was, of course, racing for them as well, and then since rebranding to Guild as it was after that. But needless to say, let's run through the starting grid ahead of Group D's second race. And on the back row, row 6, it's Henry Moore, joined by teammate Matt Emery from the rear of the field for Guild Esports. Then comes Augustin Torlashi in 10th, alongside teammate Danny Moreno on row 5. Row 4, Zemislav Lamanek for Team Falcons alongside action man Jack Keithley in 7th place. Nicholas Mateo in 6th place on the 3rd row alongside Bono House in 5th. 4th place on the 2nd row, Jakub Matuszewski and Kamil Pawlowski, a much improved performance from Pawlowski. And then we move to the front row, Marko Pejic in 2nd place after a scintillating lap. It just wasn't quite enough for pole because in flew Thomas Tatler in for that top position, and will be leading the field through towards the final corner. This time, as opposed to 2 Falcons cars with 3 in the top 4, Lewis, they've got 2 on the 2nd row, and that could be a difference maker.
This feels a little bit more open again. It's very similar to what we had back in Daytona, where race 1 was absolutely everything dominated. It was the only talk that you could have was the Falcons. Race 2, and suddenly things are starting to look a little bit more open. Not quite as open as it was back in Daytona, but still, there is pressure looming on Pawlowski, on Matuszewski, on Lamanek, and even to some degree on Tatler as well.
Yeah, well, needless to say, that's 2 Falcons cars with pole positions already in the first 2 races of this evening. 1 more to go after this, but first of all, they race, and they'll put pedal to the metal, and it's go, 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 go. Great start for Thomas Tatler, poor start for Marko Pejic, and now he's being hoovered up by the likes of Jakub Matuszewski, his own teammate Bono House. A little bit of movement further up as 2 of the TC Esports cars cover either side of the order. They go 4 wide coming through turn 1 of the Rettifilia, and there is a Falcons car round, and that's Kamil Pawlowski. We were just picking up what a sensational qualifying lap it was to recover after the first race, but now it's all been undone yet again as Jack Keithley now rounds Curva Grande, trying to close down after Bono House. Further back, Marko Pejic, Jakub Matuszewski, then a small gap to Zemislav Lamanek, Danny Moreno, Matt Emery as well. They're going to go 3 wide again, this time coming into the Rogier. Matt Emery is going to gamble. Guild know they have to, and bashing side by side. Lamanek going off track, and he might be handed a slowdown to at least give the place back, or maybe he won't be. It was a bit of argy-bargy, a slight bit of racing incident there, I think, creeping in. Matt Emery braved it up the inside, maybe a little bit overzealous there, Lewis McGlade.
Yes, a tricky one to figure out there for the race control there on Lamanek, but they certainly will look at it. I mean, look, if you're a Falcons fan, you'll be looking at this thinking, oh my God, not again. This is literally what happened to them a week ago, or a couple of weeks ago, where they were dominant in the first race of the evening. They came into the second one and cracks started to form. They went into the third one and everything unraveled in the most bizarre and almost unacceptable way for the team, could be happening again here for the Falcons. And for Thomas Tattler, he just needs to focus on his job, check away into the distance. You've got Bonnehaus, you've got Jack Keithley in behind, you've got Jakub Maciejewski trying to get a move done on Nicholas Mateo. That one might not work, and Maciejewski could be freight trained here.
Well, Tattler is in the Luke Bennett spot at the moment. We now rejoin the battle further back. Jakub Maciejewski now chasing after Nicholas Mateo with 2 kill cars of Marco Pejic and Matt Emery in behind. In comes Zemislav Lamenek also for Falcons as well. Mateo now with a nose in front of the Mercedes AMG GT3, but Maciejewski meeting him around turn 2 as well. But the better line was on offer there for Nicholas Mateo, cultivating that P4 visit as they now swoop around Curva Grande further back. Zemislav Lamenek waiting behind his teammate Marco Pejic, just ahead of Danny Moreno as well. They're all going to go in tandem on the run down through towards the Roger chicane here on lap 2 of 9, and it's now 1.6 between Tattler and Keithley, opening the door this time around. Argy Bargy again, this time between Marco Pejic and Zemislav Lamenek, and off the track goes as well Marco Pejic. His teammate Matt Emery will move on past him, and now it's wheel to wheel between Danny Moreno and Zemislav Lamenek through the first Lesmo, and Moreno tips the scale in his favour. P6 in the hands of the TC Esports man, and now he's a second, just under a second, behind Jakub Maciejewski.
Yeah, it's important for TC here to get as many points over Falcons as they possibly can. Even Augustin Torlashi hanging on to 11th position will be crucial for them if there is any chance of TC progressing their way through. Defensive line in the background coming in from Torlashi to keep Kamil Pavlovsky at bay. You've got the trio of guilds here in Matt Emery, Marco Pejic and Henry Moore. They'll get aggressive because they just want to score points as best they can. They want to still end this season on as much of a high as possible, regardless of whether they're going through to Saudi Arabia or not. Let's take a look at the start of the race then. 4 wide through the middle of this. Yeah, that is crazy. And that's how Pavlovsky got sent round.
Almost lunacy, Lewis McGlade. I mean, honestly, on what point did they think they were all going to get round turn 1 and turn 2 like that? Honestly, we'll take a look at this replay as well. Heading down into the Rogers chicane, you've got a couple of guild cars that are being met side by side with the TC Esports. There was a further mistake there as well. I think a Team Falcons car making its way around, a TC Esports making its way onto the grass. Obviously, you don't want to be caught there too often because it can end in tears for you, as we watch Matt Emery making his way out of turn 2. Now looking to try and get the run on Danny Moreno coming in towards Curva Grande. Further up, Zemislav Lamenek, 1.7 away from his own teammate Jakub Maciejewski over 5th, and he in turn 3/10 away from Nicholas Mateo. So the groups are now starting to split off as now Emery comes under fire from Danny Moreno, heading down out in towards the Rogers chicane. Moreno looking to hold firm around the outside. Emery taking a very aggressive line, cutting some of the course, now making their way over the Roger and in towards Lesmo 1, and Emery forced to back out as now Moreno holds on to that 7th place. So Guild need to make a play. You get the sense that the chains have been removed here, Lewis. They're now all about the points. They've got to stack their chips to the centre of the table starting now.
Yeah, indeed. What they're scoring right now is not good enough. Look, with the gap between them and Falcons, there would almost be no way for them to move through into Group D, into Group C rather, which then would mean they'd be going into the final race of the evening, actually knowing that that's it. There is no way for them to get into the Esports World Cup final. So effectively, things could be over even earlier than expected for the Guild team, and all hope could be lost. But yeah, as a driver, to be fair, they're all pretty realistic in that camp. They'll probably be quite aware that that ship sailed a fair while ago.
Approximately 60 points off the lead at the moment. Here comes the replay. Oh my goodness me, and that I think has set the tone really for the, oh goodness, yeah, major contact and around. And unfortunately for Guild, they're going to be quite a ways behind. Henry Moore once again disconnected from the back of the field with Kamil Pavlovsky in 11th. There's 3.3 between them, side by side now between Matt Emery and Danny Moreno as they come through out of turn 1 through towards turn 2. This time Moreno's going to come under pressure, and the rear end sticks out and moves its way into the side of Marco Pejic, who somehow somewhat recovers but loses a fleet of places and a load of delta to match as well. He's now routed down in 11th and over 8.5 tenths to 9 to now over a second away from Augustin Torlashi in 10th.
Yeah, I will say, by the way, just a note from race control, we've not had any penalties dished out yet, but the incident between the 23 and the 5 for T1, that's Kamil Pavlovsky and Nicholas Mateo, is under investigation presently. So hopefully we'll get an answer on that one in a moment to see whether there is going to be a penalty going the way of Nicholas Mateo. If there is, obviously he'll lose the positions to Maciejewski, he'll lose position to Lamenek post-race, and things will look even better for Falcons. which would be even worse for Guild because it will 100% confirm them as not being able to win this round and move their way through. Again, it is very unlikely anyway. At the moment, if things finish as they stand, it would be completely over for Guild.
Yeah, it's certainly not looking good at the moment, and especially after the 2 incidents they've sustained now. 2 cars routed to the rear, 63 points away now. It keeps drifting outwards between them down in 3rd and Falcons at the very top. It looks like it's over before it really even began here tonight. So now Bono House, whilst he's in a podium place, it may all be in vain as of now. All the hard work that he has now pulled together for this team. He's now on the tail of Jack Keithley, who he himself are trying to lead TC Esports to a potential EWC visit here. Of course, Pryor with Williams as well, and Bono House might get mugged here by Nicholas Mateo as well, who's going to get a tow here this time around off his own teammate, and indeed side by side. And TC Esports in the Mercedes AMG GT3 with a chance to now lift 2 cars in front of Bono House for now. Jakub Matuszewski looking to profit after all the madness coming out of the first chicane, and that looks like a Bono House that's resigned to defeat here. Lewis McGlade, they're now swooping on by Keithley, Mateo, Matuszewski also looking to fight his way through the field. Bono House now on the tail of this trio in front of him here, entering the Rogier.
Things might not look good though for TC at the moment. Under investigation for turn 1 and turn 2. That was for skipping over at the opening chicane. That was Jack Keithley on the outside there for the TC team. He is under investigation for it as to whether he exceeded track limits and gained an advantage. I think potentially he might have done. We'll have to wait and see. Also, whilst that's been going on, a 5-second time penalty has gone the way of Nicholas Mateo. So 3rd place in the race at the moment has a 5-second time penalty.
Yeah, so that will drop him down well and truly through the order. Actually, at this moment in time, could find himself down in 10th place, I think. Maybe, well, probably more than that, actually. Might just finish ahead of Henry Moore. We'll have to wait and see. But obviously still a long way to go. We're on lap 5 of 9. A lot can happen in these very quick-fire races that we have here in the R1 Championship. Here on RENNSPORT, as we run on board with Bono House coming through towards Kerber Alberetta, once again on the tail of Jakub Matuszewski. Though this does throw, certainly an olive branch his way in terms of gaining another place, given Mateo's penalty. At the moment, should it stay like this, he will move up into 4th, with Matuszewski moving up into 3rd place. Thomas Tatler is now, just look at the gap, 5 seconds now. Tatler clear of Jack Keithley. They've been so concerned about, I think, fighting over 2nd place that it has really allowed Tatler to just focus on his own drive right now. As it looks like Matuszewski's having a look down the inside of Nicholas Mateo here at this point, and by extension, Keithley getting away as well. 1.4 to 1.5 to now 1.6 as Matuszewski looks for the run around the outside this time around on Nicholas Mateo. 3rd place up for grabs, and Bono House, I think, probably having his eyes firmly transfixed on that, but it's still Mateo who holds on to it on track at the moment, but he will forfeit it when the penalty comes through.
Sadly, I think there's been a technical problem for Henry Moore, and he has retired from the race. So, unfortunately, out. So we'll be scoring absolutely nothing for the team. Marco Pajic, they're down 11th position, we're scoring at least a single point. Bono House, who are riding on board with, not scoring so much. I wonder if there's going to be some change for the Guild Racing team. I do know they're doing a little try and find a new driver for Guild. I think they're doing like a competition at Drive Lounge or in partnership with Drive Lounge to try and find some new drivers for the Guild Racing team. I think it's like a public, generally open public, which I actually rate, by the way. I do like open competition to find seats and stuff for teams because you find talent that you never would have seen before.
We do a great job with events like those. I mean, the Guild obviously have championed also the female side of sim racing, and we've of course witnessed many. It's a late move there from Jakub Matuszewski. A look at the inside of Nicholas Mateo. It was only a look in the end, but could have led to an opportunity. But Guild definitely championing that side of the industry in terms of finding new talent and undiscovered talent. And through the Women's Racers E-Series Championship that they have indeed ran in the past, and with many more to come in hopes of finding the next great sim racing superstar. As now in comes Jakub Matuszewski looking to try and test Nicholas Mateo coming through turn 1 and turn 2. Bono House also with a fleet of cars in behind him, and they're going to go wheel to wheel now over 3rd place. Mateo yet find himself on the wrong end of this because Matuszewski's got the better line coming through Curva Grande at turn 3, but Bono House may also enter his name into the fray. Why not make it 3 wide as they look to hustle down in towards the Roger, looking to take the line, the slipstream that has been provided by Jakub Matuszewski now as they in-swing in towards the next left and right through the Roger. Very aggressive over the curbs, and I must say a wonderful exit for Matteo, but maybe this could yet fall into the hands of Bono House. Very wide line taken here from Jakub Matuszewski, who was half committed coming through Lesmo 1 because he was a little bit worried, I think, if Matteo's nose cone or the nose on that Mercedes-AMG GT3 was perhaps trailing in behind his rear spoiler. But at the moment, it's Matuszewski, Falcons 1 and 3.
Yeah, certainly so. Things are looking good for Falcons. Then there was probably the start of this race thinking, oh no, it's happening again. Now it's, oh no, we are going up to Group C. It's happening this round.
In style.
Yeah, exactly. It's not obviously not confirmed, but 40-point lead. If they were to hold that going into the final race of the evening, then yes, things would indeed be looking good for them. But not done yet. Matteo getting a little bit too boisterous in this fight. That could, if that were to spin round Jakub Matuszewski, and suddenly, boom, it's wide open again.
It certainly is, and it can very much change the game. We've, of course, have seen how penalties can change the game. We allude to the mass changes off the back of Daytona last week, as we now watch them once again, this time on lap 8 of 9, penultimate lap in full swing. 6.2 now the gap between Tatler and Keithley at the moment, but Keithley equally 3.7 is now Bono House has a look up the inside, waiting for the right moment to strike. Here comes, though, Nicholas Matteo around the outside, coming through turn 1, looking to try and challenge in return against Jakub Matuszewski, who took the place away from him, and this time it falls into the hands of Nicholas Matteo, who now exits heading in towards turn 3 with the P3 advantage in his hands. But here comes now the recruitment from Team Falcons to come back in on the attack, and it's not just Matuszewski, it's Zemislav Lamenek as well, and it certainly looks like Leminem is going to try and make a hard charge up the inside. He's gone too aggressive there from Zemislav Lamenek, and rear-ending and catching the rear left on what looked to be Bono House's car, sending him into a spin at the Roger chicane, and that is a slam dunk from me, Lewis McGlade.
That was not pretty to see at all. By the way, I was going to say one thing whilst you were all chatting about that. Jack Keithley's been given a 5-second time penalty for exceeding track limits at the start of the race and gaining a lasting advantage. That seems to matter not as to how his result will go in this race. Despite getting that 5-second time penalty, he's still going to hang on to second spot because Matteo's already got a 5-second time penalty. So it's only if Lamenek's able to get through and able to somehow close some of that gap down to Jack Keithley. I think Keithley will be hanging on to second place. Nicholas Matteo, however, he will be dropping right the way down the order behind even Augustin Torlaschi at the moment.
Yeah, it will be P10, it looks like, for Nicholas Matteo as they come around the final corner for the final time, and it's getting a little messy now. Falcons looking to get more points than they will do. Jakub Matuszewski in third, Zemislav Lamenek in fourth at the moment, but Thomas Tatler will be victorious, it will seem here. Well, of course, he is clear, 6.7 seconds ahead of Jack Keithley. Matuszewski in third, Lamenek now moves up into fourth, so it's now a 3-car Falcons affair inside the top 4 now, but it's got oh so messy as the TC Sports cars all come a cropper with Danny Moreno, Nicholas Matteo. Of course, Keithley well and truly up the road at the moment, but now it's Moreno who comes in off the back of all that in third. I genuinely don't know how you can diagnose what happened there, Lewis McGlade.
Even our broadcast director had enough of seeing that. It's just. Let's be real. I know we're battling here in Group D, but it is poor. Yeah, the driving stands here. There's a slight overlap, and that will send Danny Moreno off and over as Matt Emery wasn't really alongside. There was a bit of contact. Emery then will still hang on to fourth position, side by side behind all this between Marko Pejic and Jakub Matuszewski. I mean, hey, it might be terrible racing, but it's great banter, that's for sure. Straight around the outside at the second. Let's suppose there's going to be more contact here? No. We're surprised with no.
Well, I can tell you this, it has thrown the points more in TC's favour, and we'll give you that with Keithley sat where he is. Danny Moreno, of course, not inhibited by the same penalty that Nicholas Matteo's been handed. Of course, Matteo now rooted down into 9th place, so the things have changed somewhat here now in this timing tower. So now it's only minus 24 for TC at this stage. Of course, Thomas Tattler will go to a very easy confirmed victory with Jack Keithley down in second. Here he comes now. Tattler returns to the winning spot once again. It hasn't been too long. The second race at Daytona went his way. He wins race 2 again, this time at Monza. And it's Jack Keithley who will move into take second place for TC, with Danny Moreno coming across the line, making it a double podium for TC Esports ahead of Matt Emery, who finishes strong in 4th for Guild. And then comes Kamil Pawlowski 5th. Marco Pejic across the line 6th, with Jakub Matuszewski, TC Esports then 8th and 9th after Mateo's penalty. And Zemislav Lamet, well, I'd imagine he'll move probably further down from that. But our winner is, of course, Thomas Tattler, back on top, but a shake of the head. Certainly, I think, probably feels a little bit dejected as to what happened to the rest of his team here at this point, Lewis McGlade. But a great performance nonetheless from Team Falcons. Another victory, back-to-back poles. They have Group D in the palm of their hand.
Yeah, now things are looking much more comfortable for them. It can still unfold, especially if that 20-point gap holds. I don't know what's going to happen with penalties post-race. That, you know, if it remains sort of like that 20-25 points, then TC have got an opportunity there. That race was really poor, though. But Thomas Tattler, I will say, when it comes to race 2s on the evenings, of the 4 that we've had in the dynamic group phase that he's taken part in, he's won race 2 3 times. So he's pretty good in race 2s. He really peaks in the middle of the night. He's hoping, obviously, that he'll peak again in race 3, take the victory, and then it's all sorted for the team.
He'll have every chance. I think Falcons, the one thing we can say about them is they have been extremely consistent. We can go have a chat with Thomas Tattler as well in the process and talk a little bit about that. Thomas, welcome. Great to see you back in the winner's circle again. Lewis mentioned you've got a stunning race 2 record, and it continues once more. 3 out of the last 4. And after winning at Daytona in race 2 last week, this will continue. It's looking good for you and for Falcons tonight.
Yeah. I'm not super happy with my pace this week, but looks like it's good enough. I'm just hoping we can get some clean races, the rest of the teammates as well.
What do you think that you can do that you have control over to avoid a repeat of last week? Of course, last week, yes, a couple of weeks ago, rather. Yes, there was a lot of incidents that were completely out of your team's control. But what do you have control over that you can take advantage of around here to avoid a repeat of last round?
Well, outside of just qualifying up high, we have practiced a lot of strategies what to do when we are together on track, and to make sure we can maybe pass someone or make sure no one can pass us. And obviously, just when we are getting into side-by-side situations, just knowing when to back off and just play it safe. I had to do it in the first race, and I think that's how we can win this group.
Well, it's been Leicester flag qualifying on pole on sequential visits, then taking race victories for Falcons, and that could be a trend that continues. Congratulations, Thomas. We'll wish you all the very best for race 3. We'll let you go and prepare.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Thomas Tattler, everyone. Of course, our race winner from race 2 after taking pole position. We'll run through some of the highlights because there was plenty of action to certainly peel through already. It kind of kicked off, didn't it? Kamil Pawlowski, unfortunately, being unseated right at the very beginning after a much improved qualifying display. It has to be said, a grand performance from him in that. And again, some more off-track excursions making their way through the Roger chicane as well. Unfortunately for Guild, try as they might, they were trying to usher in the points more in their favour. They've had a really tricky campaign through the course of this year, but we can definitely say that I would suggest they will succumb to this and will not be featuring in the EWC. Of course, we still do have one more race to bring you later on as we do make our way through tonight's Monza round. But TC Esports are also looking to try and move their way up. Nicholas Mateo, unfortunately, though, getting handed a penalty late on. Danny Moreno was also on the attack to try and leverage some more points, further points in the hands of TC Esports. Thibaut Courtois, of course, sim racing team. But Falcons Falcons were the story. They moved their way forward. Obviously, at the very top, Thomas Tattler managed to dish out a really healthy advantage to really grant Falcons a really comfortable position at top spot to follow suit from Jakub Matuszewski's first race display. A spin there for a guild car that eventually made its way off, coming through the Roger chicane as well. And a massive cluster coming through turn one as Danny Moreno got caught napping coming through towards the first corner at the Rettifilia. Would not harm, though, Thomas Tattler, who would make his way around the final corner at Kerber Alboreto to victory to make it 3 successive lights to flag situations here in every race this evening. Phenomenal stuff. Thomas Tattler, your winner for Team Falcons, ahead of Jack Keithley in second place. Danny Moreno makes it a 2-part TC affair inside the top 3. Matt Emery finishing 4th, highest of the guild cars too. Kamil Pawlowski managing to fight back up through the field after the initial spin. 5th place ahead of teammate Jakub Matuszewski in P6. Augustin Torlashi for TC Esports in 7th. Then Zemislav Lamenek rounds things off for Falcons in 8th. Bono House in 9th. Then came Marco Pejic. Nicholas Mateo after the penalty down in 11th. And Henry Moore, who effectively retired after a tricky race. Unfortunately, things have not gone to plan for young Henry Moore here this evening, but I'm sure he'll be back in the not too distant future. Thomas Tattler, though, the story here after race 3 here in Group D. Falcons as a whole have been the story here this evening, and Redline will be hoping that the same heads their way after getting a win with Luke Bennett earlier on this evening after starting on pole position. They'll be hoping their race 2 fares very much the same as well, Lewis.
Yeah, certainly so. But, of course, the most important thing that we've seen so far this evening is qualifying. Pole position has been translated into race victory, as you rightly said. That has happened 3 times so far this evening. Why wouldn't it happen a 4th? And I think these drivers will be acutely aware of that. It is kind of one of those things, is that qualifying around here, it is really important. You think the circuit's really wide and open and ready for racing. Sometimes it just doesn't quite click. As we can see, the live points standings, BS competition being a comfortable way behind Porsche Commander and Redline. But again, 9 points separates those top 2.
Yeah, very fine margins. We always know it's going to be tight between Redline and Porsche Commander. BS Plus competition with a little bit of work to do, but naturally we did expect that they would be in for a really hard time here this evening, but don't count them out. 2 races to go here in Group A, and you just simply never know. There could be an upset. It can happen. Porsche Commander, remember, starting with 2 cars on the back row in our last race, with the fact that of course, Jordan Caruso and Charlie Collins obviously not fielding a lap time last time out. They started from the rear of the field. Obviously, that can change through the course of a race. We've seen it time in, time out, especially here at Monza, where the chicanes can be oh so tricky. But it's 51 points in the hands of Team Redline at the moment, and 9 ahead of Porsche Commander Esports Racing Team, who'll be looking for another big result this time. They'll be looking to surpass Redline here this evening after Luke Bennett went on to take victory for Redline in race 1. But qualifying now in full swing. Well, certainly will be very shortly. We're currently watching the cars make their way out. First and foremost, it will be Jordan Caruso who will take to the circuit to take us away. Through Curva Grande, he will go. Coanda will be looking for an instant reply here, Lewis.
Yeah, certainly so. It's got to be for them if they want to be victorious here. And look, there's certainly a strong possibility of them bouncing back and coming on strong. But I do get the feeling this is as close as we've seen Redline and Porsche Commander so far this season. And as much as they have been the top 2 teams this dynamic group phase, we've seen some of the battles come down quite close to the wire. I think even back in Daytona, it was relatively close until the final race when Porsche Commander absolutely smashed it out of the park. We'll have to wait and see what happens here. It's a good first sector though for Jordan Caruso.
Yeah, very sensible 35.3. I have to say, generally, the 35.2s have been the fastest, but a really decent, sharp 35.3 certainly won't go amiss. And he's still faster ahead of Kevin Siggy at the moment. Middle sector's not too bad either. 35.4. That's exactly where you need to be. I mean, Caruso could be fielding a pole time here. We'll have to wait and see. Obviously, a lot can happen through the course of a qualifying lap. We'll need to tie up Sector 3 well and truly in order to keep Siggy from taking it away. But the first 2 sectors have certainly shown something very special. With 7 minutes to go left in the session, Siggy will be looking for an instant response coming out of the Ascari chicane. Now the purple first sector has been taken away from Jordan Caruso, who now makes his way up towards the line. And indeed, Siggy has gone purple in the middle. Here comes Caruso up towards the line. 35.4 in the final sector grants a 1:46.273. That could be so easily the pole time.
Yeah, of course, he did get a slowdown in the previous session when he set a 49.361. I will say that 46.2 36.273. It would have put him just ahead of Sebastian Job in 5th position in the previous qualifying. Let's see what Kevin Siggy can do. Looking to go faster. At the moment, that middle sector is slightly faster. Kevin Siggy in the previous session set a 2.55. As he comes up towards the line, it's a 2.09. Not quite fastest lap of the day so far, but still a 46.209 would have been good enough for the front row earlier on in the day.
Enough to evict Jordan Caruso off the very top, unfortunately for Ferry Stanley, after managing to nail a really nice first sector. The middle sector, unfortunately, due to a slowdown, 2.8 off from where he would like to be. And has already had that purple first sector time taken away from him as well. So it's going to be an unfortunate visit for Ferry Stanley, who had a difficult first race of the day as well. So BS Plus are going to be reliant elsewhere to getting decent qualifying times this time. But here comes Dane Warren.
Certainly so. Dane Warren, though, his first sector has already been beaten by Charlie Collins behind. Well, that second sector get beaten before he even gets up towards the line. Dane Warren on the front row earlier on in the day with a 1 minute 46.237. He heads up towards the line, aiming to beat the 2.09 set by Kevin Siggy. But those are quite quick in the final sector. I'm not sure it's going to be good enough. Good final sector from Dane Warren. He sets a 2.45, but not quite good enough to go to pole. Can this driver do it? Charlie Collins.
Well, from one Coanda to another, Collins could be the man. Purple in the first sector with a 35.307, a very nice 307 in the first sector, and now a 35.520 in the middle is a little bit off, but he can easily recoup that with a decent final sector to surpass Kevin Siggy. Can he prevail where Siggy couldn't? Sebastian Job has gone faster than his teammate in the middle sector this time, as now Collins crosses the line. Only enough for 4th fastest, but still a trio of Coandas in the top 4.
Yeah, indeed. But of course, we've seen 3 of the Porsche Coandas across the line. We've only seen 1 red line. That's about to change, though. Sebastian Job is into that middle sector. He's gone purple in the middle sector. He's gone all right in the first sector, but not crazily good. Even you can see Luke Bennett there on the right-hand side. His first sector is already a 10th faster, and Luke Bennett's gone faster in that middle sector. Bit of frustration for Sebastian Job. I think this might be good enough only for 5th. Let's see what he does across the line. Oh, he had a slowdown.
A tricky moment in Sector 3, granting him only a 149.016, which happens to be only 300ths better than Ferris Stanley. Joshua Rogers has gone purple, but immediately we take a look at Luke Bennett. Middle sector, 35.3 at the moment, and only 44 thousandths off in Sector 1. So Luke Bennett looking to move on from Race 1, where he was granted a pole, and then consequently a victory. Could he yet do the same again with a stellar lap to close the door? Yes, he will. He'll go into the 46 ones and ahead of teammate Kevin Siggy. Red line locking at the front row for now.
It's the first 46.1 of the evening then from Luke Bennett. So solid lap time. The middle sector here from Joshua Rogers is comparatively a little bit average, but we know he can piece together a good final sector when he needs to. Earlier on in the evening, he set a 46.310. I'm sure this is going to be a 2 of some description as he comes up towards the line. Only good enough for a 2.89. He goes just ahead of his teammate Charlie Collins, but still behind Caruso and Warren.
Yeah, all 4 Coandas inside the top 6 from 3rd to 6th itself. Nikodem Wisniewski, currently green in the first 2 sectors, but certainly not enough to taste, should we say, top-end glory. But this could be in a battle for P6, maybe getting ahead of Sebastian Job if he's fortunate. The first sector is actually not bad. Needs a decent final sector to perhaps turn the scale in his favour. Will jump ahead of Sebastian Job, you would expect, given the fact he had the slowdown in the final sector, and he will. 7th fastest for Nikodem Wisniewski. And next up is teammate Gregor Schill.
Yeah, certainly so. Again, for BS competition, they'll probably know that the task of staying in Group A is maybe a little bit beyond them, as we've seen from Virtus Pro and we've seen from Mouse in the past, and as we've seen even in the race earlier on the day, that maybe it is just that stretch a little bit too far to take on Porsche Coanda and Redline. But you know, it's about coming out here and giving it everything you've got. And you can see there Gregor Schill up into 8th position, 46.373. It's still a good lap time.
Things can certainly unravel in race trim as well when we head into the actual race itself later on. Of course, after qualifying is concluded, Jeffrey Rietveld will be hoping for a sharp finale here to his lap. And looking actually fairly decent out of Sector 1, just under a 10th off. Middle sector, also not too far away, but certainly not too happy with it. Immediately shrugs it off and crosses the line. Only enough for the second fastest, though. I wouldn't be too disappointed, Jeffrey Rietveld. That is a trio of red lines inside the top 3. Looks like Oliveira's had a slowdown as well.
Certainly has. He's had a slowdown penalty going through Ascari. Yeah, Jeff Rietveld, not good enough. I'd be disgusted with that. Only 5,000th faster than Kevin Siggy. Oh, my God. How do you live with yourself? That's terrible. I remember looking back at Orchard Road when I was commentating with Ewan O'Leary. There was a theme of people coming through the final corner, shaking their head as if they were devastated with a laptop. They all at the same time, basically. It was hilarious. Koki Oliveira then, the final driver to cross the line, will cross it and go into last place behind his teammate Ferry Stanley and Sebastian Jobe. There was maybe potential he could get ahead of Jobe, but slow down penalty a little bit too much for him. So, it's Luke Bennett again. Can he do it again?
Well, back-to-back pole positions. I get the feeling Darren McCormack did that once as well. I think shrug his head on occasion, went on to produce one of the fastest times I think we've ever seen. But Luke Bennett managing to pull together a really stellar run once again around Monza and rolling on that confidence and that truly dynamic performance in that previous race to take it from lights to flag and clear the rest of the runners in behind. Well, it looks like he's going to try and follow suit again this time around, and Redline on this occasion will have 3 cars in that top 3, which will give them a huge amount of leverage against the Porsche commanders that are basically making a C in behind, with then the rest of them being BS Plus competition cars. But yeah, it truly dominant fashion from Luke Bennett here at the end of the day, Lewis. And this is what we've come to expect. And this is a Redline team bouncing back after a difficult Daytona round. And we tend to see this. It tends to be a trend. They'll have a difficult round, reassess, probably approach the next one with anger, and also with a point to prove.
Yeah, certainly so. And like I say, it's a really, really impressive lap time. However, I will say this will not matter at all to Luke Bennett, but you say about the man himself shaking his head and still setting a good lap time. That 0.1, very impressive lap time there from Luke Bennett. There is absolutely no doubt of that at all. Darren McCormack, though, on his way to victory here earlier on in the season, of course, did set a 1:33. I think it was in the semi-finals, indeed. And the quarters, I'm pretty sure, was a 0.1. In the final set, a 0.0. So there's more pace out there, is what I'm saying.
Goodness me. Well, running aboard here with Bennett on his final stretch down through towards Alvareto. Once again, taking that very wide line before cutting straight back in and getting very close to the curb on the inside, but certainly not licking it. But now back on the power, heading down through towards the start-finish line. As you can see, very tight to the inside wall where the pit lane is. Of course, taking the start-finish line and certainly a lap that has granted him a wonderful pole position in what could yet be another Redline show. But obviously, a lot can happen in race trim. We know what can happen at the chicanes, at the Rettifilio and the Rogier by extension. I mean, we're seeing an improved Jeffrey Rietveld as well, because generally over prior races, Lewis, and indeed prior seasons, you know, he hasn't necessarily been the strongest Redline driver. If anything, he's been probably one of the weakest, and he'd be the first to admit that. Since after that, taking some time as an engineer in F1 sim racing, now moving back into the rig itself for the RENNSPORT side of things, it's kind of lit a fire under himself. We've seen some better performances from Rietveld this season.
Yeah, but do remember, we have seen him in contention to win championships, if you remember, all the way back to 2023 to Gamers 8, as it was then. Of course, the Esports World Cup effectively back in 2023. He was in contention for the Drivers' Championship before a bit of an incident which between himself and Joshua Rogers, which opened the door for Max Benneker to come through. Benneker taking victory in the title, of course, there in Gamers 8, of course, back in 2023. So, yeah, he's had potential. And, of course, he has one claim to fame that beats all. He did win the first ever competitive race in R1.
That's
no
true.
one can take that away from him.
That is very true. The first ever winner in R1 competition on RENNSPORT as well.
Does help he was one of the 12 in that race, but you know, he still won.
Yeah, well, hey, listen, you got to be in it to win it, as they say. And already we're getting the crashes in already in free practice. A laugh from Luke Bennett in the bottom left-hand corner. I tell you what, if that was in race trim, I don't think he'd be laughing so much, Lewis McLeod. I think we actually been in an official race situation, but they're just getting in those final few seconds in practice. Of course, just over 12 to take us through to the end, and then it's all going to be seriousness from that point onwards. But in all seriousness, it looks like Redline are going to be the team to catch. They're looking like a very tricky team to catch at the moment, certainly from the way this starting grid lines up.
Yeah, indeed. Let's take a look then from the start of the second race of the evening. Oliveira then alongside Ferris Stanley at the back end of the field for BS competition. Sebastian Jobe from 10th alongside Gregor Schill. Then it's Nikodem Wisniewski and Charlie Collins with a whole Porsche Coanda contingent here from 7th to 4th. It's Collins, it's Rogers, it's Caruso, it's Warren. Before we get to Siggy, Rietveld, and of course Luke Bennett for the second time this evening on pole position. Look, it's going to be exciting. It's going to be intense. Do you reckon Bennett wins from pole position? Do we think we're going to keep this streak alive of pole position converting into race victory? It's been pretty hard to beat the pole sitter around here.
Well, it certainly has. Generally, they've built a gap, and if it's anything like Thomas Tattler, he built a serious gap, really at the very head of the order. But if you're Luke Bennett, you've done it before. So you know exactly what you're doing. So, I mean, this is almost like taking the tracing paper out and taking that to another sheet of A4. The question is, though, will things remain the same coming out of turn one? The one bit of bliss he will have is the fact that he has got cover in behind. 2 redline cars going along with him for the ride inside the top 3. So that does provide him somewhat of an advantage.
Yeah, certainly so. Well, the top 3 will try and keep those Porsche Coanders, those pesky Porsche Coanders at bay on the race down into the first corner. And of course, Porsche Coander there will try and work together as a team to try and get their way past BMW M Team Redline Racing Bulls. Here we go then for the second time this evening, racing down to the first corner. Going to the right-hand side is Jordan Caruso, dragging himself is Charlie Collins as well into the mix. They're going to go deep here at the first corner to try and get straight around the outside. It's Jordan Caruso moving up in a second position. Bit of contact and a bit of 3 wide there between the teammates as there's a big slide coming in, and dropping down the order goes Sebastian Jobe, Jeff Rietveld as well. But look at that for Luke Bennett. He is comfortably clear. And that said, he's got Jordan Caruso all over the rear end.
Yeah, is he comfortably clear here this time around, because now he's being swarmed up upon by Jordan Caruso on the run down through towards Roger, and Caruso would love nothing more than to stop his charge moving up through the field. We've got plenty of side-by-sides, also almost a 3-wide scenario as well. Dane Warren in the mix, Gregor Schill as well further back. Jeffrey Rietveld has moved down a flurry of places, 4 places down from where he started, and in comes Dane Warren. A look up the inside, coming through the Lesmo, and round goes Rietveld, round goes Warren. They all go round. A BS Plus competition card make that 2, with Nikodem Wisniewski and Gregor Schill getting caught up in the chaos, and they are now round at the Lesmo, and all of a sudden the game has changed. 3 Porsche Coanda cars inside the top 5, with only 2 redline cars being Kevin Siggy and Bennett, our race leader.
Yeah, that was a bit messy there at the rear end of the field. Like I said, Wisniewski and Schill paying the bill for Rietveld and Warren's mistakes. And like I say, they've dropped right the way off. Look at the points gap, though, between the top 2 teams. Just 7 points between Redline and Porsche Coanda. There comes a look to the inside then, and a big move coming in from Joshua Rogers. A little bit of contact, a little bit of a brush, and then a little bit one on the exit of the corner as well, as Kevin Siggy gets muscled out wide. Joshua Rogers working his way through to bring the deficit down to a single point.
Pretty massive stuff. That is the difference that one place can make. Ultimately, in that mass melee we just witnessed, the only team that did not benefit was BS Plus competition. They just have had no luck fall into the palm of their hands at all. Kevin Siggy, another look up the inside of Joshua Rogers. It is now 3 Porsche Coanders in tandem from 2nd down to 4th place. They're literally waiting for Dane Warren to now lift himself through the order, but of course he is 3.9 disconnected away from Ferris Stanley, and Kaiki Oliveira up in 7th as well. So BS Plus have inherited some decent points paying positions. Coanda now sat with 2 points behind Team Redline as it stands. They now sweep through the next left and right. Coming through the Roger is still Luke Bennett, just over 3.5 tenths of a second up, and he's trying to create a gap in behind to Jordan Caruso as they now look to form up coming through the Lesmo once again. Siggy with Sebastian Jobe for company, but the gap between those 2 is 1.1 to nearly 1.2, with Kaiki Oliveira down in 7th. Rietveld, there he is after starting on the front row. Things have slightly turned sour. Lewis McGlade, and he's got Gregor Schill and Nikodem Wisniewski for company as well, as we now witness the replay. This is what happened.
Yeah, so obviously to the inside, bit of a squeeze off the circuit, but, you know, fair enough. All's fair in love and war. And there's the send to the inside. Just an awkward brush between them. I mean, you could say Rietveld there gave enough room, and that maybe, you know, the Porsche Coanda wasn't really quite alongside enough, but...
Oh, I don't know.
That is actually a tough one.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you could argue that the red line car probably didn't realise how much room was there, I think, at that point in time. But then again, I would say that the Porsche Commander had enough of a Porsche alongside the BMW, if I'm honest.
But he does give a car width to the curb.
True. There is that. So
whether you can say it's enough, but I would say, realistically speaking, looking at it, there was a car width.
Could boil down to a racing incident, I think, after all that concern. We'll obviously wait for race control to decide what to do with that one. As we now watch as Kevin Siggy makes his way out of turn 2. Joshua Rogers next on his list, so a chance for Redline to at least reply in one degree. And Kevin Siggy will be looking to advance that 2-point gap, at least out a little wider, because, of course, remember, we still have one more race coming up after this one. And the last thing they want to do is leave anything open on the silver platter for Coanda to reply and potentially take the group victory away from them come the close of the week. And obviously, with there only being one more round available after this before the EWC really cooks up, it's going to be very, very tight. And we've seen many great fights between these two teams already in the past. Of course, the full season champion being Joshua Rogers, who we're currently seeing in P4 at the moment, being pursued after by the EWC winner of the Drivers' Championship, Kevin Siggy from last year. Looking to take the fight, looking to take the sword, this time to Joshua Rogers on the run down through towards the Ascari chicane. Next on his list, you'll have Charlie Collins and Jordan Caruso. But it's going to be easier said than done to really move your way through this trio of Porsches that currently hold position and station in 2nd, 3rd and 4th place. But Caruso still remaining on the tail of Luke Bennett. I wonder if this is going to be a cold, calculated sort of procedure here for Jordan Caruso here, Lewis. Happily staying behind until the final last chance of asking, almost like what we saw from Daytona.
Yeah, which actually I'm not sure would be potentially even the wisest call here. If I'm Jordan Caruso, to be fair, if I'm Charlie Collins and I'm Josh Rogers, I'm saying, no, attack him, slow him down. Well, we can be back in this here. We can maybe get a 1, 2, 3. Who knows? And so right now, we'll just have to wait and see as to whether there is going to be the opportunity for Jordan Caruso to even get on through. It could just be some really solid driving hit from Luke Bennett. We were kind of mentioning this a little bit earlier on. This is more in Group D. That the Falcons that are obviously they also drive Porsches. That the straight line speed, they weren't really able to go on the attack in the opening race of the evening. I wonder if that might be the same case if Porsche. I kind of doubt it, but still, it's just one of those things to maybe point out.
Yeah, of course, Caruso's first and only victory this season was back at Spa in race 2. In round 1, of course, did not get a victory or a podium back at Monza. The first time that we went racing around here, of course, 6th and 5th, and then later 9th. And whilst, of course, there were big points on offer for Porsche Coanda, would very much like to taste victory here for the first time this time around as they run down the Seraglio Straight and head down through towards the Ascari chicane. Luke Bennett, though, however, very much a contrast. Was a victor already here this evening. And looking to add to it as well, could yet allow it to go back to back. It's still a 2 points gap between Redline and Porsche Coanda. And that's exactly what we like to see from these two iconic sim racing teams that have come nose to tail so often in the past. We're here on lap 4 of 9 at the moment. Kevin Siggy getting close to the back of Rogers again. As I said before, 2 icons and 2 winners in R1 competition. As they now sprint down through towards turn 1. Once more, Luke Bennett, as you can see from the front end of things, still being met by Jordan Caruso. Here comes Kevin Siggy, who will obviously have no qualms in terms of making manoeuvres. He's going to look to go side by side here, this time around with Joshua Rogers on the way down through towards turn 1, wheel to wheel. Siggy with half a portion of his car further up in the M4 GT3, now firing out of turn 2, and it looks like straight away Rogers replying, but enough room on the inside for Kevin Siggy just about till he gets onto the grassy curb, but unfortunately losing that momentum, and Rogers takes it back.
Yep, certainly so. Obviously, we've seen these two battle quite a bit throughout this race. Here comes Kevin Siggy looking to the outside, but obviously really not enough room being given there as Joshua Rogers was like, you're not trying it, mate. Don't worry about it. And so Kevin Siggy is going to remain behind, 2 seconds behind our race leader, which now sees Jordan Caruso and Charlie Collins a part of that fight. I think Luke Bennett, unlike in the previous race where he had a relative chilled drive in a sense, as long as he drove perfectly, which he can do. He had a relatively chilled drive up towards the checkered flag. Not going to be the case in this one. A lot of pressure on his shoulders to keep back Caruso and Collins, both of whom have their fair share of victories here in R1.
If this goes to the bitter end, I mean, Kevin Siggy's already won this battle with Joshua Rogers because Rogers has been handed a 1 second time penalty. So at this moment in time, it will fall the way of Kevin Siggy in terms of what happens with that 4th place. And maybe subsequently, we could see Sebastian Job move up a spot as well off the back of all this. So there we have it. Car 92 forcing another driver off the track, which has led to Rogers being penalised, already 2 seconds away from his own teammate, as they now burst down the long straight once again, heading down in towards the Rettifilio here in Group A. Race 2. Of course, one more still to come after this. Back comes Kevin Siggy, looking to desperately weave himself past Joshua Rogers, who I think is more concerned about just defending the place away from his 2 teammates, Jordan Caruso and Charlie Collins. Coming out of the second corner now, the Rettifilio. Once again, Collins denying Kevin Siggy, and this is only going to frustrate the Sixter, who is now forced to remain in behind, but is now swapping lines to come through Curva Grande. But the Porsche doing enough to frustrate the BMW as they now troop down through towards the Rogers chicane.
This is going to drag back in Sebastian Job and Kaiki Oliveira as well. There comes look to the outside once more, but not a car width being given. As once again, Josh Rogers fends him off. We've got 3 of the highest winning drivers here in the battle between 4th, 5th and 6th. Kaiki Oliveira also trying to give a little bit of a cameo appearance in that as well. Joshua Rogers, number 1 of the all-time winners. And Sebastian Job, number 2 on the all-time winners. I think Kevin Siggy's I think he might even be 3rd, actually. He's certainly up there when it comes to race victories in R1. They're all battling, not even for a podium at the moment.
No, not at all. I mean, certainly not if you're Joshua Rogers, given the fact that you have got that 1 second time penalty and the 3 second point gap between, or 3 second gap between yourself and Charlie Collins at the moment here in race 2 on lap 6 of 9. Still more to come. Once again, Kevin Siggy's going to, I'm sure, look to try and weave his way past because he'll be more concerned about perhaps even trying to catch Charlie Collins. That's going to be very tricky to do, though. As soon as you're outside by a second, generally it's very tricky to try and close that gap. Despite Dane Warren's efforts, of course, he didn't succeed in bringing that gap, though it did stand at 1.5 seconds to Luke Bennett down any further. Eventually only finishing 5/10 the better, as we now watch as now we see an exchange over the race lead here on lap 7 of 9. Here comes Jordan Caruso, who will move through into the race lead now. Luke Bennett displaced off the top at least here this time around, and now Kevin Siggy looking to try and force the issue this time around on Joshua Rogers. No contact between these two just yet, and once again Rogers denying Siggy again. That is 3 times in succession that Rogers has kept him at bay, and surely that frustration must be boiling inside Kevin Siggy at the moment.
Yeah, certainly so. It's going to be building and building and building. Sebastian Job now into the mix for this fight. With that move for the race lead, though, Jordan Caruso will give Porsche Commander a lead heading into the final race of the evening in this group. I don't think we've actually ever seen at least in Group A, the lead team change from race 1 to race 2. I genuinely don't think we've seen that. It's always been whoever's won that first round has then come on to win. Whoever won the first race of the evening has then gone on to go and win the round. So this will be the first time for that. If it is the case, it's going to be a tough one though for Josh Rogers to keep Kevin Siggy and Sebastian Job at bay. But then again, I guess to a degree, if he just copies and pastes what he's been doing all the way through the opening phase of this race, then surely he'll keep them at bay for the final couple of laps as well, unless Kevin Siggy maybe bites off a little bit more in that opening chicane.
Well, I mean, the other consideration as well is that Joshua Rogers has got that penalty. Obviously, that is going to slip a few extra points through the fingers of, I mean, granted, it's only 1 second. It's not going to cost him too much, but, obviously you're going to be forfeiting 2 places, essentially, should it stay like this, to Kevin Siggy and Sebastian Job. And indeed, they're going to be duking it out once again at the very front, though, however. Jordan Caruso, Luke Bennett, also Charlie Collins, now looking to successfully move his way through, and this time it will be a Porsche Commander once again for the second lap in succession, but this time Charlie Collins moves into the race lead. Luke Bennett will remain exactly where he is in second, with Jordan Caruso down in third. Joshua Rogers now 3.1 behind and has still got Kevin Siggy for company. If Siggy and Job go through, of course that will take points off Commander and add further on for Team Redline.
Yeah, indeed. Siggy still unable to pass Joshua Rogers. This has got to be getting very frustrating. I think by Rogers taking that defensive line at the first corner, he's giving himself the outside line coming out of that first chicane, and that is what is giving him the race lead running down through Curva Grande. He's so good with his right foot at the moment, is Josh Rogers, to not push it a little bit too far, and, you know, just with when he's doing it, how much steering input he's putting whilst he's doing it. There's no sliding in the rear end going through that opening chicane. It's just perfect driving from him, and he's able to keep Kevin Siggy and Sebastian Job at bay. Can Charlie Collins do the same thing, though, and bring victory home for the team? Will Jordan Caruso sneak his way through? Or will Luke Bennett translate pole position to another victory? And not quite as simple a way as was done earlier on in the evening. Only time will tell. We've got one final lap to deal with here around Monza. There comes a look from Jordan Caruso.
Yeah, lap 8 of 9 soon to become lap 9 of 9. Luke Bennett be hoping for a decent run to continue the phase of pole to victories that we have had already this evening. He, of course, the catalyst for one of them in our very first race in Group A earlier on tonight. And, of course, we've seen it the same as well in Group D with the likes of Team Falcons, with Jakub Matuszewski, and then after that in Race 2, Thomas Tatler. And again, the door shut this time, though, by Charlie Collins, able to renege Luke Bennett. Here at this point is Kevin Siggy now finally gets a nose in front and might get the whole car in front of Joshua Rogers, but now the run favouring the Porsche on the escape coming through Curva Grande. Surely he's not going to frustrate Kevin Siggy again, and Siggy has had just about enough of it. They're going to go wheel to wheel coming through Curva Grande here this time around. Next up comes a run down into the Rogier. Who is going to be successful in this exchange? Charlie Collins, though, this time still forcing back Luke Bennett coming out of the Rogier chicane. Time is nearly up for Bennett to maintain this truly phenomenal run he has had at Monza thus far, from pole to victory last time to taking pole for this particular race. It could all come to an end on that front, yet he could even lose out on second place because Caruso is hot on his heels, and still Kevin Siggy behind Joshua Rogers on the run down the Serralio Straight here, Lewis.
Well, say, by the way, there's been a 1 second time penalty dished out to Joshua Rogers for forcing another driver off the track and maintaining an advantage, so Rogers will almost certainly then finish behind Kevin Siggy. Would it be behind Sebastian Job as well, as there goes straight over the road for Kevin Siggy? He's going to skip over an Ascari. He's going to join just alongside Joshua Rogers before he skips off the road, and we'll have to wait and see whether there's going to be anything with that. I doubt it. I think he is going to still get the position over him. Here comes move then into the final corner. Luke Bennett was trying to go for it. Charlie Collins says absolutely not, and just for the second time in the dynamic group phase, it's going to be Charlie Collins to cross the line as the victor in the drag race, though, for second position. Will it be a Porsche Commander 1-2 as they race their way up towards the line? Is Collins from Bennett from Caruso. Very close indeed. Excellent racing. That is what we were missing in the previous race there in Group D.
Yeah, no, truly phenomenal work there from Charlie Collins, breaking the red line streak, at least for now. Obviously, after the sensational pole from Luke Bennett to victory in race 1. From the pole ahead of race 2 for Luke Bennett. He will not take victory. This time it will go the way of Porsche Commander as they look to once again try and beat back against the red line train, and indeed it has certainly done so, and that has done overwhelming damage to Redline's lead at the top of this Group A championship, and now means that we've got a very feisty contest heading through to race 3 later on. It was just a cool, calm, collective performance. Jordan Caruso also part of that genius in terms of the way they sort of managed the lead, Lewis, sort of allowing Collins to get the stream or the slipstream in order to get past Luke Bennett at that point, and then just interchanging that position at the very front of the order, just managing their race, and that's what made the difference.
Yeah, so again, it was a really good battle and a really well-timed move from Charlie Collins to have got through. Obviously, he had to make it 3 wide to do so, to work his way past and then into the race lead, and then just didn't make a mistake. Kind of was doing what we were seeing from Josh Rogers a little bit earlier on in the race, where, you know, kind of basically playing his cards right at the first corner. That was the main overtaking opportunity, and then was able to hold on to it to take the victory. There's a bit of a look there from Luke Bennett in the final corner, but nothing major. I'm really excited, though, for this final race of this group a little bit later on in the evening, because it is incredibly close.
Well, the chains will certainly be coming off. It looks like BS Plus competition are going to be resigned to relegation, I think, from Group A here at this point with the trip to Group B. But I don't think it's going to be necessarily anything that we've not necessarily expected. But, obviously, you always got to give them a chance. They have been so good on the run-up to this. But we're going to have a fascinating final race coming up very shortly with them so bunched together in terms of the top 2 places. Who's going to come out the round winner here this time around at Monza? We will very soon find out, that's for sure. But well done, Charlie Collins, and a young man who has certainly been finding his feet here at Porsche Coanda as well. Lewis McGlade has pulled off some wonderful performances in the past. You can take us through some of the highlights as well, just some of the best moments. It looked all red line at the start. Porsche turned it around.
Yeah, it was Jordan Caruso here doing what I kind of thought was right, going to the outside and really forcing the issue there at the first corner. And also Charlie Collins as well, basically going with him, dropping Dane Warren and Joshua Rogers basically into the mid-pack. Dane Warren getting a little bit sandwiched, getting a little bit disconnected away from his teammates with the opening portion of this race. Then having this incident with Jeffrey Rietveld as they'd worked their way into the right-hander at Lesmo 1. A little bit of contact between the two, and unfortunately it wasn't just them paying the price, also BS Competitions, Nikodem Wisniewski and Gregor Schill paying the price for it. Once again from up above, the contact between the pair of them would see the spin round, and then of course, like I said, BS Competition right into it as well. Obviously, the race lead, also this is Kevin Siggy versus Joshua Rogers earlier on in the race. They were trying to catch up to the race lead, but the pair of them focused too much on their own battles. This was the first switch for the race lead, as Luke Bennett would be passed with about 3 laps left to go by Jordan Caruso. And then when they'd battle again, Charlie Collins was ready to pass his way through and take over the race lead with that brilliant move down into the first corner. And Collins would hang on to that all the way to the checkered flag. Course, still the battle coming in between Kevin Siggy and Joshua Rogers, allowing Sebastian Job to close and allowing Kaiki Oliveira also to close in last lap of the race. There was a good attempt for it, bit of contact between the pair of them, and that would send Kevin Siggy straight over at Ascari. The 1 second post-race time penalty, I think Joshua Rogers would have the position cost to him. Across the line though, it was this driver once again. It was Charlie Collins on top once more in 2025, of course, with a fantastic drive. It was Collins ahead of Bennett, ahead of Caruso, with then Siggy and Joe both finishing ahead of Joshua Rogers, only by 9,000 of a second, courtesy of that post-race time penalty. 1 second for Joshua Rogers for forcing another driver off the circuit. Kaiki Oliveira then in 7th position, with Ferris Stanley in 8th, Dane Warren in 9th, Jeff Rietveld in 10th, and then Schill and Wisniewski. I think the points in this group are incredibly close, George.
They are going to be very close, Lewis. We will, of course, get confirmation on how they look later on, but it does mean we're going to be teeing up a truly remarkable race 3 later on tonight, so you will not miss a thing. But now we swiftly move through into race 3 action. We've surpassed the halfway point now, and for Guild tonight, race 3 is for pride, essentially, here at this point. It's going to be very tough for them to lift themselves off the bottom. There is Bono House, effectively the locker room leader at Guild at the moment. It's been a tough night for them. It's been a tough championship for them thus far, and far apart from where we would expect them to be. Here's a little reminder as to how the standings look in Group D thus far. It is Team Falcons who will be moving up into Group C as it stands. They've got quite the lead over TC Racing. If things go their way, one decent qualifying session could make the difference here to successfully position themselves with a promotion leading through to the next phase. 76 points as well for TC Racing. They have battled hard. They are ahead of Guild, at least for now. Of course, again, one good race for Guild, and that could yet throw a bone in their favour. Bear in mind, we've got one more round to come up next week, so be sure to stay tuned in to everything that's going to occur. Still 2 more races to come through here this evening to take us through to the end of the broadcast here at Monza. But the Templar Speed certainly is not disappointed, that's for sure. It's going to be a fascinating fight, isn't it, in Group D, Lewis, given the fact that TC Esports are not, whilst obviously there's quite a ladder to climb, Falcons will obviously be looking to try and get at least all 4, maybe just 3 of their cars inside the top 6. TC, though, with all 4 of their cars inside the top 6, they could do some real damage to their lead in this group at the moment.
Yeah, of course, it was a 1-2-3-4 for ERA a couple of weeks ago, which is what gifted them the position to move through into Group C, was what was denying Falcons. That is what Falcons need to do. Hearing there from Thomas Tatler after race 2, the team have worked on various tactics that's going to hopefully get them through this, how they're going to control things. I think the important thing for them then, based on that, is that they all qualify in roughly the same place. Obviously, ideally, that is first through fourth. But as long as they're all in the top six, they'll be pretty, or at least three of them are in the top six, they'll be pretty happy. Most important thing for them, avoid getting those slowdowns. You get a slowdown penalty in this, I get a couple of them having a slowdown penalty in this, and yeah, it'd be a disaster. That's kind of what happened to them last time at Daytona.
Yeah, and obviously I'd imagine, despite obviously the wins going their way so far tonight, they've taken 2 out of the 2 that we've had already after back-to-back poles, and sequentially moving on to taking victory after pole as well, likes to flag. It's those moments, it's not necessarily about the leader, that's where their concern lies, it's the rest of the team as such, isn't it, Lewis? I mean, we look at the likes of Kamil Pawlowski, who has qualified exceptionally well, for example, in the last race, and then one moment can occur at Rettofilio that turns your race around, and you sink to the bottom of the order. What they really need is a decent qualifying session and a decent race. Get all 4 cars inside that top 6, or at least 3, just to really hammer it home that you are going through to Group C.
Indeed. Well, Henry Moore's camera's fallen over and it's dropped down. I've never seen Henry Moore with a different camera angle. I've been commentating on him for nearly 2 years. And to make things worse, so down penalty as well.
Yeah. Not a great visit for Henry Moore, unfortunately. 35.4 in that first sector. Obviously, generally, even then, we'd probably want to be around about the 35.3s or 35.2s. But in terms of the grand scale of things, obviously, getting it right in that middle sector, that has been his kryptonite here tonight, hasn't it, really? That middle sector, it's been the cross that many drivers had to bear. Obviously, the Lesmo is in there. You can get, sort of pushed wide. 35.5 is where you'd want to be really in that middle sector. He's done a 38.2. It's just been a difficult night, I think, for poor Henry Moore. And I think for Guild at the moment, their confidence at the moment is literally at the bottom of a barrel right now.
Yeah, indeed. It is a big shame for a driver who competed for the British Formula 4 Esports Championship, finishing runner-up in that to Graham Carroll. I'm sure he'll be eyeing up maybe taking the title in 2025, a little bit later on in the year. But for right now, we'll be waving goodbye to Guild. Not necessarily the end of the night. We've still got to deal with them in next week's round 8 of the championship, but they will not be progressing through to the Esports World Cup.
No. And Jakub Matuszewski is going to rubber stamp that as well with his very own purple first 2 sectors. 35.3 in that first sector is pretty good to kick things off. 35.6 in the middle, perhaps a 10th off where he would like to be, but still not horrendous. He's just had the purple middle sector ripped away from him, though, by Marko Pejic in the middle, as now he pops himself into first fastest. An early 0.3, probably fancied a 0.2 by the looks of his reaction, Lewis.
Yeah, indeed. Look. No one's ever happy. No one's happy. Not when you're looking at Group A and you're seeing, 0.1's being set down. So maybe there's a little bit of that to be dealt with. Here comes Marko Pejic then, out through the final corner with a purple middle sector. That first sector a little bit away from the band. It's going to be around the 46.3. Don't think it's quite going to be a 2, though. Let's see if I'm wrong on that one. It's not even a 3. It's a 4. Yeesh, that first sector, a little bit too much damage done for Marko Pejic.
Yeah, unfortunately, the middle sector, despite being purple, the rest did not correspond. Bono House, just over a 10th and a quarter off in the first sector. The middle sector, approximately 16 thousandths away. So not a bad middle. Needs a massive final sector. Thomas Tatler, though, in the meantime, has gone purple with a 35.3 smack in the first sector. 24 thousandths off in the middle, though, but that won't deter him. Bono House, though, coming up towards the line and will pop himself second fastest ahead of Marko Pejic by 26 thousandths of a second.
So, Thomas Tatler up next, try and take pole position away from his teammate Jakub Matuszewski, fresh off the pole position and victory of earlier on in the evening. He's navigated the important parts of the circuit that he needed to, as well as he possibly could, by not getting those slowdown penalties. As he works his way then through the final corner, is he going to be able to get ahead of Matuszewski? The real goal for them and the real fear for them will be what TC do. But for Tatler, a 0.217, that'll be pretty much good enough for pole, I reckon.
Yeah, and it's the 2 pole sitters from prior races tonight that are now sitting on the front row together. So it's Tatler and Matuszewski. Of course, Matuszewski pole for race 1, Tatler pole for race 2. And they're locking out the front row, at least for now, but we've still got plenty more cars to now make their way up towards the line. Jack Heathley, not a bad first 2 sectors for him either, almost matching Bono House in that first sector with a 10th and a quarter off the top time. As now we're watching him make his way up towards the line. Can he surpass No, can't surpass Marco Pejic. Only enough for 5th fastest, just ahead of Henry Moore. Well, a bit more than ahead of Henry Moore. Obviously, he had the slowdown. But next up, Kamil Pawlowski, who had that spin, but he's had a slowdown in the middle sector, Lewis.
Yeah, which is what they have to avoid. So at least they've got 2 of them on that front couple of rows. Kamil Pawlowski has had a slowdown earlier on in the evening. So it'll come down to Lemon M to make sure that there is no second slowdown penalty. There is going to be 3 of them up there. Pawlowski across the line, no shock, 7th place. Yeesh.
Could be rooted to the rear of the field as a whole. He's behind Henry Moore at the moment. Augustin Torlashi coming up next. 48 thousandths off in the first sector. Just under 2/10 off, though, in the middle. TC really need a major play here. They need another driver to aid Jack Keithley into providing bigger results here for the Mercedes-AMG GT3 team. A little bit of a grimace on his face as he now makes his way up towards the line. Don't think he's overly happy with it. Only enough for 6th fastest, and the frustration on show, and pops himself behind teammate Jack Keithley.
Yeah, indeed. Matt Emery then, next one to come through. Those sectors are actually looking pretty decent, relatively speaking. Might go ahead of his guild teammate Bonnerhaus. Of course, those sector times there at the bottom of your screen, that is comparative to your pole sitter, Thomas Tadler. We'll see if Matt Emery's got something decent in the final sector. Can he maybe set a 3? Can he set a low 3? Or will it end up being a 4? And will he be around where Marco Pejic is up towards the line? It's 0.5, really disappointing final sector there for Matt Emery, and sets a 0.5 across the line to go behind Keithley.
Yeah, that's a tricky visit there for Matt Emery, who looked like he had plenty of promise coming through the middle sector. The first sector wasn't overly brilliant either, but certainly more in line with what we saw from Marco Pejic. Nicholas Matteo, now representing the TC Esports team, was very much their shining light back at Daytona as well, right in the thick of the action. Now looking to be in the thick of the action here at Monza this time, and will pop himself the second of the TC Esports cars in 6th place, just behind Jack Keithley and ahead of teammate Augustin Torlashi and Matt Emery. But now we have, Zemislav Lamenek, Lemon M, returning back.
Yeah, indeed. Can Lemon M work his way up the order? And the answer to that is no. There has been 2 slowdown penalties then for the Falcons team. And the only question mark then for them is, how are TC going to get on in the race? And also, can they make sure they keep Tathler and Masiewski at the front end of the field? It's a light question mark for them, but it's a question mark nonetheless.
Yep, Danny Moreno will be the last one to set a lap on toe, but no issues of a slowdown coming out of Sector 2 for him. But looking to lock out a decent final sector in order to bring some of the time down indeed. Perhaps we'll find himself just behind Nicholas Matteo here at this point in time. We'll wait and see whether he does dodge ahead of Matt Emery. Drops ahead of Matteo, in fact, at 46.518. And ahead by narrow margins, approximately 11 thousandths. But once again, it's Thomas Tadler, your pole sitter, back-to-back here this evening. And once again, Falcons in a very good place to take this round by storm. Let's ride on board with this pole lap. Once again, Lewis, a very calm and confident display. Both Matuszewski and Tadler on the front row. Both of them prior pole sitters as well. Falcons just too good here at this moment in time.
Yeah, indeed. Now, will qualifying reign supreme in this final race for Group D? It will be very important for them to move their way back up into Group C for the season finale in round 8. The circuit we don't know yet. That will be dealt with next week. It's just tidy laps. That's what they needed. Now, for the team, obviously it's good that 2 of them have put together tidy laps. The other 2, though, marred in the midfield, or really towards straight up towards the back.
And that is where, obviously, the race start comes into play, doesn't it, Lewis? I mean, obviously, they're going to need a really big, bold start, I think, to get Monza underway for race 3 anyway. But, I mean, this is the difference. I mean, you know, Tadler's lap, he's so much more dialed in, so much more aggressive, has no fear in hitting the curbs, and you can just see that he almost wince when he does, but he doesn't come off, you know, in an ugly position. Once again, almost similar to what we saw from our prior lap. I mean, you look at moments like that and you think that has no right to be on pole position, but you look at the end result and he's there.
Yeah, but I think, you know, a lot of times when they're sliding a little bit off the corner, that's because they're getting on the power early. That's what's causing the slide. They're clobbering the curbs. They're being a little bit aggressive. There's another snap of oversteer. As much as it might not be the butteriest, smoothest lap that we've ever seen, it is importantly tidy enough. It is clean enough. It is smooth enough. And as always, more importantly, it is fast enough for another pole position. And an important one for Thomas Tattler here, an important one for his team Falcons as well. Could it be another victory, though? That's the important bit. He's got to translate to a victory. I'm pretty sure he's not taken a race 3 victory in the dynamic group phase yet.
No, I don't believe he has, but one thing he will be able to do is make it 5 victories since the start of the run through this season. Obviously, coming out of the knockout seeding phase, he was a victor back at Monza in race 1. And, of course, after that, then a victor at Fuji, race 2. And a victor at Daytona in race 2. And a victor here in Monza in race 2 as well. And now looking to make it race win number 5 here with a victory in race 3. And as you so rightly say, a victor for the first time in race 3 this season. But pole sitter once again. And that will be a feeling that I'm sure he'll quite confirmly get used to as the glowing green lights on the front end of that Porsche makes its way through the Curva Grande. And we'll be hoping that he can at least retain that race lead. But we'll have a partner in crime alongside him by the name of Jakub Matuszewski. I mean, it could be Matuszewski who goes on to take a second win here this evening, Lewis. They could perhaps even share the spoils here this evening.
Yeah, certainly so. Look, it's maybe like I say, maybe it is going to be Matuszewski down in the first corner. I don't know. The thing is, we've always said this before, like, yes, you're starting first and second, but trying to orchestrate it too aggressively down in the first corner, that's where things will go wrong. You kind of it has to just be a normal race. That's the important bit. Right now, if you are in the Falcons boots, it has to be a normal race down into the first corner. Once you're out of turn 1, or at least let's say out of the Rogier, right? Once things have started settling down, then you can start controlling it. Then you can start playing the team games. But until that point, you kind of need to treat it like a normal race and do what comes naturally. That lack of doing things naturally is sometimes what has cost teams in this dynamic group phase.
Well, one thing's for sure is that Guild will be looking to close out their final race here at Monza on a high. And obviously remember, one more round to come, which will be announced very, very soon. Thomas Tattler currently at the top of our timing sheets for free practice at the moment, as we now look ahead to the final race of the evening in Group D. And start from the back to the front is Kamil Pawlowski for Falcons on row 6, joined at the hip by teammate Zemislav Lamanek in 11th. Henry Moore after the slowdown as well, 10th place on the 5th row, coupled with Augustin Torlashi, the first of the TC cars we've approached in this starting grid. P8 for Matt Emery on the 4th row alongside Nicolas Mateo in 7th. Then comes Daniel Moreno in 6th place, the Spaniard alongside Jack Keithley. Action Man starts P5 on the 3rd row of the grid. Next up, 2nd row, and it's all Guild with Marco Pejic in 4th and teammate Bono House in 3rd. But once again, a front row lockout this time for Team Falcons, and it's the 2 prior pole sitters. Jakub Matuszewski, pole sitter in race 1. He'll be on the front row here for race 3, and Thomas Tattler, pole sitter for race 2, will be looking to take a second successive victory here this evening. Any predictions, Lewis McGlade?
Well, I hope it will be cleaner than race 2. I predict
it will not be. I was waiting for that. I was waiting for that response. Let us know in the live chats as well, folks at home, if you agree with Lewis McGlade. Where are your predictions lying here, with 9 laps of action to take us through to the checkered flag to bring an end to the festivities in Group D here at Monza here tonight? But Tattler and Matuszewski on the front row. Tattler on the left of screen, as you can see, Matuszewski on the right. They'll be trying to keep back Bono House and Marco Pejic as they put pedal to the metal, and it's go, 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 and it's a great start, incidentally, for Bono House, who leaps away off the line. But the 3 TC Esports cars towing each other on the run down through towards turn 1. Now House has managed to get past Matuszewski. Equally coming through as well is Marco Pejic up the inside. TC Esports gets knocked in behind as well. Now I think, looking on screen, that was Danny Moreno who got caught napping there, coming down through towards turn 1, and they're going 5 wide, coming in towards Curva Grande, and a huge impact, and the Jakub Matuszewski, race winner from race 1, who sat on the front row for the start of this race. Lo and behold, Lewis McGlade was right. Chaos has ensued, and Jakub Matuszewski is now routed to the rear of the field, and Tattler is on his own with Mateo now at the front, as now we see yet another spinner, and it's Jack Keithley who's gone.
Yeah, which is going to be a big one for them. I've got to say, I can't wait to see the live points at the moment, because look at this. Matteo, Torlashi, Moreno in second, fourth and sixth. Thomas Tatler up there as well. Those points, that is not a comfortable gap. Not when you've got three of those Falcons back towards the rear end of the field. Although I will say right now, unless Torlashi and Danny Moreno have an unreal race, the likelihood of them gaining much more than where they are, probably quite unlikely. It would have to be a mistake from Thomas Tatler. That said, Matteo is right on the rear end of him. This is not done yet, and we could see a repeat of 2 weeks ago.
We could do. Bear in mind, there's 3 TC Esports cars inside that top 6. That could open up many doors for the Spanish team as they fly down through towards the final corner here this time around. Let's take a look at the replay of what happened. Try and digest this one, folks. A very, very busy start at the back as well. Kamil Pawlowski looking to make his way through the field. Obviously, they had 2 cars at either end of the spectrum, did Team Falcons. Obviously, with Kamil Pawlowski, Zemislav Lamenek routed towards the rear. It's a big start for the TC Esports team. They had cars concertinaing up coming through turn 1. Danny Moreno getting caught napping as well later on as well. But they went 5 wide, didn't they, coming through Curva Grande. And unfortunately, it was a tricky run for a couple of the Guild cars. There goes Matuszewski onto the grass, and he dipped off as well. And then the chaos ensued heading down towards Rogier. So this is where we need to try and disclose what happened. Of course, Jack Keithley was part of this. He was one of the cars that went off as well as they flew through. Yeah, just knocked by his teammate, unfortunately. I think that must have been Augustin Torlashi, I think, or maybe it was Danny Moreno, in fact, who knocked into the back, because he's currently 1.5 seconds disconnected from his own teammate.
Yeah, indeed. That's like I say, that's very calamitous to be hit by your own team. But like I say, Bonnehouse working its way through then to second place, past Nicolas Matteo, whilst we were looking at all that. But most importantly, one positive sign above all else for Falcons. Whilst Pawlowski, Lamenek and Matuszewski are scoring really not very well here at the moment, courtesy of the opening drama, Thomas Tatler has nearly a 1 second lead. If he's able to take victory here, then things, relatively speaking, though, 25 points, they're so critical, maybe it'll be enough.
It could well be. Pawlowski's still on the tail of Matt Emery and Marco Pejic, though, and he's towing along Zemislav Lamenek. So the 2 drivers that started from the rear have every chance of gaining perhaps a couple of places. We'll wait and see. At the moment, Tatler still in charge at the head of the order. Bono House looking to try and scale back the damage. And we'll look to try and take what could be a truly astonishing result, maybe even a victory here, just to help themselves along at a very fragile point in this championship. Obviously, we're coming in out of the penultimate round. Very soon, the final round will be upon us. But now Bono House has got Nicolas Matteo for company on the run down through towards turn 1. A little look in the mirror there from Bono House. Not too disconcerted with what's going on. Obviously, Matteo happily to be patient. Of course, was lighting things up at Daytona was Nicolas Matteo for TC Esports. Some of his results have been, through the course of the dynamic group phase, have been quite remarkable, really. I mean, successive second places after a trip round Jeddah. Of course, finishing third. He finished on the podium in every race back at Jeddah as well, and very nearly did the same at Daytona, coming third and then second in sequential races too. So definitely more to come from this young Spaniard, who has certainly proven himself in GT3 machinery on the tail of Bono House as they come through Lesmo 1.
Yeah, certainly so. Again, it's just fascinating how this ebbs and flows, how things chop and change. And at the moment, things are okay for Falcons, but it's just close enough that there is that potential that Bonnehouse can close his way back in, that he can maybe challenge for the victory, that he can drag Nicolas Matteo with him, and that maybe there's still a little bit more to answer for here in the final 6 laps of Group D here before our season finale in a week's time. Absolutely clobbers the curb there, does Nicolas Matteo, and the gap for the race lead finally grows to over a second. Could be a big moment for Falcons. They might not, to be fair, Thomas Tatler might not even need his teammates right now.
He might not. He's doing all the donkey work by himself, which is very similar to what he was showing back in race 2. As well as we ride on board continuously with Nicolas Matteo still trying to stay on tow with Bono House. 4.5 tenths away from the man in second, as Bono House manages to drift that gap back to underneath the second now. As they race down through towards turn 1, Augustin Torlashi still remaining within 2.5 tenths to 2 tenths of a second of his teammate Matteo now, as we ride on board with him, coming through turns 1 and turns 2, getting a decent exit here, looking to at least stay on the tail of Bono House to open up a potential door. Of course, TC Esports did forfeit a few points after, of course, House's move on Matteo to move up into second, with Tatler now still occupying that 1 second gap. And now here comes Matteo. Got very close, just no avenue for an overtake as they come through the Rozier. And Pajic currently sat down in 5th, 2 seconds away from Torlashi now. And Moreno could be a problem here for Guild as well, because he is only 3/10 away and could add more points in the favour of TC, but they're going to need a lot more than that in order to get ahead of Falcons this time. The gap still stands at 22.
Yeah, the big drama for TC was the fact of one of their strongest drivers, Jack Keithley, was sent down the order by his own teammate in the opening stage of this race, finishing down there in 12th. I mean, look, he can gain a couple of points. I mean, look, if he gets ahead of Maciejewski, he'll take 1 point off of Falcons and gain 1 point for them, so the gap would only be 20. It's not enough. Keithley's not going to be able to score enough points to make a meaningful difference here, but as a certain supermarket has once said, every little helps. Not sponsored.
No, not at all. Others are available, of course, everybody. As we now watch as Nicholas Matteo comes out of Cobra Alvaretto, 6/10 away from Bono House. A little reminder for you at home as well. The RENNSPORT app is, of course, available for you to download on Google Play and the Apple App Store as well. Whip your phones out, scan that QR code and interact with your account. Live timing and much more included in this R1 Championship as we look ahead to the Esports World Cup. And now this time on lap 5 of 9, it's Tatler who leads the way. You can follow his sensational run so far in this race as soon as now as we watch Danny Moreno, who is currently a cork in a bottle here because he's got Pajic, Matt Emery, Kamil Pawlowski, Zemislav Lamenek, Henry Moore, all of them for company as he rounds Curva Grande.
Yes, indeed. Like you say, it's this is going to be a tough one for Danny Moreno to keep Marco Pajic and Matt Emery at bay. As, to be fair, not only those, but also Pawlowski, also Lamenek, also Moore as well. It's going to be a tough end to the race, a tough final half of the race, really, for Danny Moreno. But when you've got this far, I'm sure everything. Yeah, like I say, you got the potential. You can piece it together. It's just limiting those mistakes. Don't run wide like we've seen. That was what gave the victory to Charlie Collins and what kept Kevin Siggy at bay of Joshua Rogers in the previous race in Group A. Was the lack of mistakes being made. That's the difference maker.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. As Moreno flies through the Ascari chicane with Marco Pajic down in 6th, just under 4/10 away from our 5th place runner at the moment. Points could still yet swing. So now Moreno troops down through towards Alboreto. Quite the train here with Pawlowski and Lamenek. 3/10 between Pawlowski and Emery at the moment, as they look to begin their next lap very soon. 1.2 now the gap between Bono House and Thomas Tatler, who keeps on hammering home the advantage. Matteo still leading the TC contingent down through towards turn 1 once again. 3 or so laps left here in this race. At the moment, this is how the points look. 135 for Team Falcons, 20 points back for TC with 61 back for Guild, as now they look to go on the attack here this time and now, as we now watch as Danny Moreno comes under close quarter. Marco Pajic getting caught on the curb, and now through goes Matt Emery into 5th place, and Kamil Pawlowski, I think, getting caught. Was it Pawlowski? Yes, it was again. For the second race in succession, Pawlowski getting caught unawares around the Rettifilio chicane. Nicholas Matteo on the tail once again of Bono House as they come through that middle sector, but that could yet cause more damage for TC, as now we see 30 points now the gap between TC Esports and Team Falcons in that live standing.
Yeah, indeed. That is not great. Now, again, once again, that's kind of what we were expecting at the start of the race, to be honest, was stuff like that. But look, it's unfolded the way it has. Pawlowski's dropped the way to the rear end of the field. I think he'll be frustrated with how this evening's gone, will Kamil Pawlowski, and then he'll get to the end of it and realise, oh, we're going through anyway. No, don't worry about it. I'm all right with it, actually. And so that's the big thing for him at present, is just getting through it. I think Henry Moore might have had a game crash because he's dropped his way down the order, and what was looking like an all right race for him has unfolded poorly once more.
Yeah, so a similar visit actually to what we saw in the prior race, and so it's a continuous issue for Henry Moore, who is now recorded as a DNF here in lap 6 of 9. So that's more points to come here for Guild, or more possible points. They have now lost, and yet again rubber stamping the fact that they will not be going to the EWC this season. And Nicholas Matteo, 3/10 now of the realm, and maybe even a little bit more back, but it's starting to encroach back again as Bono House now 1.3 away from Thomas Tackler. Comes under close quarter here from Nicholas Matteo. Torlashi down in 4th as well. TC will have a chance at least to raise the stakes for themselves here by gaining potentially 2 places in one seldom moment. They're coming around Curva Grande, and here comes Matteo on the back of Bono House now this time around. Maybe looking to unlock the door coming through towards the Rogier. What is Bono House going to do? Will he retain the place? It looks like Matteo is going to stay at least well measured here this time, but a longer route taken by Torlashi. He went very late on the brakes. I think he was a little bit worried about catching his own teammate coming through the Rogier, so succumbed a little bit of delta in order to prevent colliding with his own teammate.
Yeah, certainly so. We've already seen quite a bit of, teammate on teammate action. I don't mean that in a good way. This was the attempt of pass, and then the attempt of whatever this was as they were coming back on. It's just so messy.
Yeah, pretty poor there indeed, and unfortunately for Pavlovsky, he came off second best in that one. He wasn't even part of that fight. He was very much an innocent bystander down in 11th. Well, now he's in 11th as a result of that moment, and obviously Moreno was the one who was kind of caught up in that too. I think it was Marko Pejic, I think initially, who had the contact, but he's currently sat in 7th place, 2.5 tenths from Zemislav Lamenek, as we now watch as Nicholas Matteo now comes around the final corner at Alboreto on the tail of Bono House once more. Now as the laps start to reduce, so do the opportunities of an overtake. So now or never, you'd think, for Nicholas Matteo, who might well and truly look to open the door this time around. Of course, he's been chasing the tail of Bono House for quite some time. We're on the penultimate lap of the race, as we now sprint down through towards turn 1. This is how the points currently stack. 140 still in the pocket of Team Falcons now, as we see Zemislav Lamenek on the back of Marko Pejic, and Pejic has managed to lift himself ahead of Lamenek now for 6th place. More points going Guild's way.
Yeah, certainly so. Just, I mean, look, they're having their best race of the season from a realistic perspective thus far. To a certain degree. 2nd, 5th and 6th, of course, they have had the odd flash, but still, as they work their way through up here in the battle for 2nd position, Thomas Tattler's checked out, hasn't he? 1.8 seconds, needs 2 seconds clear. Augustin Torlashi, not really there to close his way in, but then again, if these two fight, then maybe there will be the chance of getting 2 TCs onto the podium. It won't matter though, because Falcons are scoring enough right now to keep themselves clear and to move up, finally, back in a Group C.
It's the reality of where Falcons really should be, though, shouldn't it? I suppose at this stage, especially given how good they can be. Obviously, we haven't seen the best of the likes of Zemislav Lamenek or Kamil Pavlovsky. I think Pavlovsky showed shades of it in qualifying in our previous race. But unfortunately, due to mishaps that have occurred that haven't necessarily been his fault, it has meant that he is toppled down through the order and has been unable to really show what he is truly capable of. Nicholas Matteo now with the lap 8 of 9 now soon to come to an end, and the commencement of the final lap to bring us around Monza for the final time here in Group D. Matteo might look to finally unchain the Mercedes-AMG GT3 and perhaps challenge heading down through towards turn 1. Not this time. Stays behind Bono House as they come through turns 1 and turns 2. Thomas Tattler, a distant memory. He is up the order now by nearly 2 seconds ahead of Bono House at the moment, but Curva Grande could offer something, especially with Rogier beckoning as they now send it on the final lap.
Yeah, certainly so. Is there going to be the opportunity here for Nicholas Matteo to work his way through on Bono House? Let's see, coming up into the Rogier, no opportunity here. Maybe he's going to leave it to the final corner. That's kind of like the next... I mean, you can do a Ascari. We've seen a couple of tenths up down there, fair enough. But realistically, that final corner at the Parabolica, that's the chance to make that move. But it's just maybe a little bit too aggressive. Maybe Bono House has this. Thomas Tattler certainly has the race victory in his hands, though. He's only got a few more corners to tick off before he's going to be taking his race victory. I have checked, George. It is the first time he will win a race 3 on the night as well, which will be a very important one for him.
There will be, and he'll make it 2 tonight as well, which is obviously very important too, and 5 overall in the run through this run into the EWC. But as Nicholas Matteo runs a little bit wide on the escape of Ascari there, very nearly caught unawares. But right in the wheel tracks here now with Bono House. It may not matter, though, as they head through the final corner. Here at this stage, Thomas Tatler is going to look to bring this home to an excellent victory once again to make it a trio of Falcons wins, and back-to-back for Tatler. A win for the first time in race 3. A shake of the fist. Thomas Tatler wins here in the R1 Championship, once again on the road to the World Cup here at Monza. Falcons are going up. That is confirmed, that's for sure, surely. Obviously, still later decisions and results to be scrutinised, that's for sure. But Thomas Tatler wins here at Monza at the Temple of Speed. A true lights-to-flag victory once again for the 3rd time in succession in Group D. And it's all mean and green. It's Falcons swooping to victory. No stopping Tatler, Lewis McGlade.
Yeah, certainly so. Obviously, he'll be jumping into the interview room, I'm sure, in a second, but maybe a little bit more giddy or monotone than normal. We'll have to wait and see. Look, again, it's been a super performance from Thomas Tatler tonight. And importantly, finally, Falcons are progressed and they've had a terrible season in the dynamic group phase so far. This is finally a positive step for the team.
Yeah, retribution. And whilst obviously they have done, very well to do what they've done tonight, a trio of victories in one group venture around Monza is obviously spectacular. They would have obviously wanted more and more of their cars featuring probably inside the top 6 than they did have, but nonetheless, a truly brilliant performance. Let's run through the highlights of what just occurred, obviously through the course of that last race, and it was an integral race here for the Falcons team. They had 2 cars at the front, 2 cars at the back. It was the job, obviously, of Zemislav Lamenek, and also in many ways, of course, it was Kamil Pawlowski towards the rear as well, trying to make their way forward. It was quite a jumbled start coming through turn 1. We eventually went 5 wide coming in towards Curva Grande that ended in tears for a few cars, that's for sure, including Kamil Pawlowski, who got unseated and ran into the grass. We would see lots of this through the course of this race, especially at this very sensitive stage, very early stage of the race. Yet another Falcons car getting, I think must have been a slowdown, having to give way to the cars behind as they made their way through the next portion of circuit. Again, another up and under as the 2 TC Esports cars made contact coming through the Rogier chicane, but there was plenty of jostling and fighting further up through the field. Bono House was certainly a statement competitor here for Guild. He was fighting further up the order, but his teammates were doing exactly the same. Matt Emery, of course, further back, looking to challenge. Marco Pejic was also in the thick of the action. There's plenty of side-by-sides as well between TC Esports cars and Guild. Obviously, Marco Pejic coming off second best in this exchange. Danny Moreno also in this thoroughfare. And then we saw, of course, it was Jakub Matuszewski who got eventually spun round there as well and routed to the rear of the field. But side by side, it's continued. More action continued into the Rettifilio as it had already done so. But it was Thomas Tatler in yet another venture around the Monza circuit. The Temple of Speed lit up for Falcons in mean and green as Tatler roared to the front. And let's run through the results here to bring a close to Group D at the end of play today. Thomas Tatler is your winner ahead of Bono House for Guild in second. Matt Emery taking third ahead of Zemislav Lamenek in fourth, and Jakub Matuszewski making it Falcons fourth and fifth, with Jack Heathy, Augustin Torlashi, Danny Moreno, Nicholas Matteo making it TC Esports 6th, 7th, 8th and 9th, and then Marco Pejic down in 10th. Kamil Pawlowski down in 11th with Henry Moore after his difficulties, his technical issues. He was a DNF and featuring down in 12th. We're going to move across now and have a chat with our race winner back again, Thomas Tatler. Always happy to see you, Thomas. Yet again, a victor 5 times through the course of this EWC campaign, and your first race 3 victory, as Lewis McGlade rightly points out.
Yeah, this one was important. I heard the points gap all the time during the race, and I knew I had to just safely win the race. And luckily the pace was enough that I was able to push away from draft, and then it was just maintaining the pace. I was a bit nervous. It was not easy to trust myself at the car when I knew if I do half a second mistake, then it can get really difficult suddenly.
How do you rate this evening for the team? Obviously, there has been a couple of struggles with race 2. As much as it went well for you, the team have had their bits of ups and downs. Do you still classify this as a success, even though the points margin, you were going up, the points margin was maybe a little bit close than what you would have hoped for?
It's a success. I mean, we need to win, but Of course, it's not the kind of domination I would maybe hope, but it's okay. We learn from it, and we did what we needed to do. So that's it.
Well, it tastes like promotion by the looks of it, Thomas Sattler. We'll see you, of course, next time when we move into the final round before heading into the EWC. But congratulations on your victories, and to Team Falcons. You're going up yet another group, so well done you. We'll wish you all the very best.
Thank you.
That's Thomas Sattler, everyone. Victor in race 3 for Group D as now free practice gets underway ahead of race 3, this time in Group A as well, Lewis. Obviously, big opportunities here on the table as we witness a vastly different complexion in terms of championship this time, though, between Porsche Coanda and Redline.
Yeah, this is going to be close. It was really, really tight coming into this race. The points are really close. It is open. It can go either way, and what that means is that I think we're going to be heading into a final race where qualifying is going to really set the tone. But with how things have been racing around here at Monza, it's not the be-all and end-all. Let's take a look at those points. 6 points separates BMW M Team Redline Racing Bulls and the Porsche Coanda Esports Racing Team. Very close. BS competition. Bye-bye. We'll see you next week in round 8. It was expected, unfortunately. They were going to drop their way down. They've not made a fool of themselves, but again, it's that same thing. Going up against these two teams, it has been killer for anyone who's tried it.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to wait and see. Obviously, we just witnessed a bit of a messy scenario in Group D, to say the least, after what occurred in the first sector. But Team Redline obviously looking to try and take this home as well, which will certainly set the tone ahead of the EWC. Of course, both teams chasing automatic promotion, or automatic qualification, I should say, through to the EWC finals that will be occurring in Riyadh. Of course, we watched it all unfold last season, where, of course, it would be Redline who would go on to take the championship last year, along with Kevin Siggy taking the driver's crown. Porsche certainly probably did not enjoy that from the face of it. They'll want to try and reply in the best way possible, and they are proven winners. Teams champions in the Gamers 8 championship as well, and with Joshua Rogers being a full season champion in R1, there certainly is a case to state that Coanda could reply in kind ahead of this final race. But like you so rightly say, Lewis, qualifying is all important, and it could be all important as well for BS Plus competition to go out in style, shall we say.
Yeah, although, here we go. Big news has just come in. Felix van Delft, still mathematically possible. 1st, 2nd, 4th and 5th. Porsche Coanda, 12th, 11th, 10th. You're dreaming. That's fine. All comes down to this qualifying, though. Of course, and an important final qualifying for the evening for Porsche Coanda and for Team Redline for BS competition. It's maximum bants. We'll see what memes we can get from the herd. That first sector, though, not bad from Stanley, but the first sector from Collins is unreal.
35-2. Different gravy, has to be said at the moment. Of course, we witnessed 35-3s mainly. That is the mainstay, I would say, for many driver here tonight. But the 35-2 is certainly alien. Ferris Stanley 35-4, though, in that middle sector is better than the norm of a 35-5. 35-3 middle is also pretty good too on part of Ferris Stanley, and had his own harem-scarum moments and some rough and tumbles with a few other drivers on the grid. Still retains, actually, that purple middle sector ahead of Charlie Collins at the moment, as now Stanley comes across the line, and that's a 146.302, and he's frustrated with that. That's not a bad early 3, I have to say, Lewis.
Yeah, certainly. Not bad indeed. 46.302. Solid lap time will not be good enough for pole position. Well, this driver set a time that's good enough for pole position. Was victorious in the previous race. Was shy of an interview, though. He didn't want to come along and say hi. That's mostly because he's bored of George Morgan, I'm sure. As Charlie Collins will come up towards the line. Sets a 146.324. Did not get ahead of Ferris Stanley.
No, not ahead of Ferris Stanley. Collins now rooted in second. BS Plus competition with the outright advantage so far, but Luke Bennett ushering in a purple middle sector at 35.381 to kick us off as well. Yet more delta found in that first sector as well. Not bad at all, but not enough for purple, at least for now. But this could very easily disrupt Ferris Stanley's time so far. And this is Luke Bennett, who has managed to take pole in successive qualifying sessions from race 1 to race 2 and goes purple again with an illustrious 146.105. That one was special.
Yeah, that was a really good final sector and middle sector from Luke Bennett. The first sector wasn't bad either. Here comes Joshua Rogers. This is not going to be the pole time for the Porsche Commander man. In fact, actually, based on those sectors, might be behind his teammate Charlie Collins. Let's see what he's going to do out towards the line. Will it be a 0.2? Will he nail the final sector? Josh Rogers up to the line. It is going to be a 0.2. Good final sector from him as he crosses the line to 236.
Yeah, Joshua Rogers finishing strongly at the very end and enough for second fastest, but will not trouble Luke Bennett's time right at the top. That's beyond a tenth away. Jordan Caruso, though, middle sector, just over a tenth and 3/4 outside the spectrum of his own teammate. Or not outside his own team, I should say. Instead, outside of Luke Bennett's statement sector 2 time. Middle sector, 25 thousandths away in sector 1 as he now storms up towards the line. Here comes Caruso. He'll pop into 4th fastest ahead of Charlie Collins.
Yeah, indeed. That was a decent final bit from Caruso again. But again, the 0.3, it's a good lap time. But when you see that 0.1 coming in from Luke Bennett, and obviously tomorrow as well, when you see Darren McCormack drive around here, of course, the race winner, or the round winner rather, when we came here in round 2 of the championship, things are going to get very interesting tomorrow. Here we go then, across the line. Kaiki Oliveira will be the next one to come through. Sector's not too bad. And there we go. It's another 0.1 coming in from Kaiki Oliveira. We said they were going to try and end on a high. That's a great lap time.
I'm going to say Ferris Stanley's time is not looking too bad either at the moment. Either he's ahead of the likes of Jordan Caruso, Charlie Collins. Dane Warren will be hoping that he doesn't join his 2 Coanda comrades. Currently sat 7th without setting a lap time. Dane Warren would love to be around where his teammate is currently situated. He's a little bit off in the 1st and 2nd sectors. Let's see if the 3rd is better for him as he crosses the line. It will be enough to drop ahead of Ferris Stanley, just behind Joshua Rogers. So that's 2 Porsche Coandas inside the top 4.
Yep, all Porsche Coandas, though, have crossed the line. We'll get 2 BS competitions, and then Redline know what they need to do if they're going to go on and take victory this evening. They lead in the points, but by a small margin. We'll have to wait and see. First off, though, we'll see Nikodem Wisniewski and Gregor Schill across the line. The sectors for Wisniewski, nay good. That middle sector is pants, unfortunately, and this will be the rear end of the field. After a slowdown penalty, Gregor Schill has avoided such slowdowns.
Yeah, not quite the heroics from Daytona for Nikodem Wisniewski. Gregor Schill down in 9th at the moment, looking for a decent finale to this lap. The first 2 sectors over a tenth away apiece. Obviously not going to trouble the likes of Luke Bennett, at least for now, and this could yet join the likes of Ferris Stanley, Jordan Caruso in that mid part. Might even finish further down around where Charlie Collins is, maybe just above Charlie Collins as he crosses the line. No, just underneath him, 8th fastest, so just ahead of Nikodem Wisniewski. But remember, Wisniewski had that slowdown.
Yes, indeed. So now we get the trio of red lines. All 3 realistically need a good qualifying here. Porsche Commander, they've set all right times, but not world-destroying, not crazy lap times coming in from the Porsche Commander camp. Redline could do with some decent ones. Reveld will be the first one then, across the line. Is a 0.3, fires himself right into the middle of the Porsche Commander bunch.
Yeah, 0.3 smack on, and indeed just place at least under the red line car, but they've got a sequence of them coming through now. And Sebastian Job, who's had a very tricky night tonight, was in the mix of the odd incident or 2 through the course of the first 2 races of our ventures around Monza. Now looking for something a little more to try and perhaps join his teammate Luke Bennett towards the front end of the order, but Kaiki Oliveira also sat on a 0.1, and that could yet disrupt Redline's run so far. Here comes Sebastian Job, only enough for 10th fastest. What on earth is going on with Sebastian Job at the moment? The hands reach the head straight away. He was really disappointed with that one.
One final lap time then to deal with in this qualifying session. It's Kevin Siggy. It's the champion. He's got the number 1 on his cart for a reason. Can he throw himself up and into the mix? At the moment, it's a red line, it's a BS competition, and it's a Porsche Commander, first, second, and third. There's another trio separating the different teams behind that, but it is now going to be a front row lockout for Team Redline. A cracking final lap time for Kevin Siggy, but it's a trio of pole positions for Luke Bennett this evening. He has been phenomenal, and look at him, Birmingham's finest, on pole again.
Unfazed, unchallenged. He is the fastest man at Monza in Group A, and what a stunning lap it was once again. Another 0.1 to add into the fold. Later joined by Kevin Siggy towards the bitter stages of qualifying as we run on board for the pole lap here with Luke Bennett once again here at Monza. And I could just say, I mean, obviously the performances that he has put on show, whilst of course it led to the victory for Charlie Collins in the last race, he certainly won't be perturbed with this. This puts Redline front and centre ahead of this race we have coming up now very shortly, Lewis, and maybe a few signs of fragility on part of Coanda after a tricky qualifying session, I'd say.
Yeah, look, it wasn't great, but again, to be fair, as much as pole position's gone on to take victory a few times this evening, the only one who's not lived up to that in its 100% capacity is, of course, Luke Bennett himself. In the previous race when Charlie Collins was victorious, he still finished second, of course. The thing is, behind the pole position, I get the feeling that we kind of look at that and be like, oh, well, pole position translates to victory, thus qualifying is really, really important and blah, 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 blah. Everything behind pole position has been absolute chaos tonight.
Yeah.
And so that will be no different in this race and that race down to the first corner. We will see drama. We will see that edge of your seat racing, and we will see opportunities for Porsche Commander to work their way back into the mix. This driver here, well, he'll need to repeat 9 of these if he wants to go and take victory in this final race of the night.
Yeah, certainly will. So it's all on Luke Bennett if he wants to take a trio. Obviously, Charlie Collins upset the balance of the order last time out, so it won't be a trio of wins, but it could yet take a double end victory, obviously, to bring an end to the Monza evening. And for Redline, obviously, to bounce back from Daytona in the best way possible. We heard from Luke Bennett earlier on tonight after his interview saying that Daytona for him did not go to plan. Of course, back then did not qualify anywhere outside the bottom end in every single qualifying session. And now it's very much roles reversed this time at Monza. So he has well and truly turned it around. And we'll be hoping that he can continue this phase of development and success. And we'll have some close company with him as well by the name of Kevin Siggy, who I'm sure will be along there with him right through the course of this race. Remember, 9 laps of action to take us through the checkered flag and to bring a close to Monza at the end of play, where we will find out who will be making it through and who will be dropping out. But of course, I'd say we're pretty reserved to the fact that BS Plus are going to be heading out here, Lewis. They are quite a plethora of points behind the front 2 runners in Group A. It was always going to be a challenge, wasn't it?
Yeah, certainly so. But then, look, that's what we've been expecting all season long. The teams that come into this group, they struggle a little bit. They always struggle a little bit, and that's fine. That is what it is. Of course, the round that we'll be dealing with next week, we'll touch on this very briefly here. It will be a slightly different format next week. Similar, but slightly different. Instead of it being 3 races per group, and dealing with only 2 of the groups in the evenings, we will be seeing all 4 groups out in the evenings, and we will be dealing with just 2 races per group. So look, if you're a Virtus Pro, a Mouse, or whoever's going to be able to take them, obviously it won't be Mouse because they're down in Group C. No, they can't do it because they have to go up with 2. They can get to Group B, fair enough. If you're going to be that team to take them on, could be Virtus Pro, could be MSI Site, it's going to require, obviously a good 2 races. 2 races, surely doing 2 races well is easier than 3?
You would have thought so. Equally, though, it's less the threshold of success, though, I suppose, in equal ground. So it can go both ways, I think, in this extent. But it is tough. I think it's going to benefit those drivers that are a little bit more, should we say, clinical. I think drivers that are able to sort of, take the results without thinking. But anyway, run us through the starting grid, Lewis.
Certainly so. The final one of the evening, Nikodem Wisniewski starting from the rear end of the field alongside Sebastian Job. Gregor Schill will start from 10th for BS competition as well. Then we'll get Charlie Collins in 9th, fresh with a victory in race 2 of the night. Can he do so from 9th? That'd be crazy. Jordan Caruso from 8th position, along with Ferris Stanley in 7th. Dane Warren in 6th, with Jeff Rietveld in 5th position. Joshua Rogers in 4th. Kaiki Oliveira in 3rd. And on the front row, it's all Team Redline. It is the Sigster, Kevin Siggy, the champion, alongside the triple pole sitter this evening. It's Luke Bennett starting from pole position again. Can he learn from his mistakes where he was beaten by Charlie Collins in the previous race? Will Kaiki Oliveira have anything to do about it? Will Josh Rogers be able to find his way into the mix? Will Kevin Siggy take one off of his teammate? They have started on the front row quite a few times this season. Of course, you remember back to Jeddah when they were on the front row quite a bit together.
Yep, and I'm sure they'll be exchanging furthermore here at Monza as well. It's going to be so tight. Credit to the BS Post competition boys. Obviously, Ferris Stanley doing so well. Kaiki Oliveira also featuring very strongly up at the higher end places and put in that stellar lap until he was crushed by Kevin Siggy. It's going to be tough, though. They're going to have to try and manage the 2 red lines in front, but the Porsche Commanders are always going to be a danger, especially if you're Joshua Rogers.
Yeah, certainly so. Well, for one final time then this evening, let's get this show on the road as we'll race our way down into the first corner once more. It's Bennett on pole position. It's Kevin Siggy alongside his teammate, and we are racing. It's a better reaction to the start of the race from Kevin Siggy, though, as we race our way down in the first corner. Siggy's going to take over the race lead, and look at this, getting to the outside. Jeff Rietveld there on the left on the second row. He's going to try and fire it into the first corner. You've got Kaiki Oliveira in the middle. You've got the Porsche of Josh Rogers also in there, getting forced onto the sausage curb with Jeff Rietveld, and getting forced off the circuit is Joshua Rogers. Things not going well for Porsche Commander. Things going perfectly for Team Redline. They are first, second and third as Ferris Stanley's trying to force his way past the Porsche Commander as well. They work their way up towards the Rogier, and it would be a monstrous lead for Redline, which, to be fair, I think from this position, they might be unbeatable.
Yeah, I would say so. 3 cars in the top 3, escalating that 2-car in tandem situation that they did have. And of course, the big moment for this was Joshua Rogers getting bent out of shape, coming out of turn 2 onto the gravel, and has now sunk down to P8 in all of this. We've got some more side-by-sides as Jordan Caruso looks around the outside as they make their way out of the Lesmo section, and now in full pursuit of Gregor Schill with Sebastian Job also in tow. If Job can move his way up, he'll take further points away from Coanda, but this is how the point swing is unfurled. It's 46 now. It's extended as now a car goes off. That's Wisniewski. Wisniewski into the gravel trap at the Ascari, and they're making his way back through, but has had to cut right through the course in order to rejoin the others. A bit of a shake of the head there from Caruso. He looks a tad stressed.
Look, I know coaching's a big thing here in sim racing, but George Morgan, why are you coaching Nikodem Wisniewski? That's terrible driving.
That's heinous. That's a heinous accusation, Lewis McGlade.
Yeah,
he would not make it. He would not make it out of Ascari if he was taking coaching from me.
I've seen your driving; it's not good. Either way, no, sorry, just don't want to be too brutal to you, but
there's a reason why I'm behind a microphone at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Yeah, no further comments from me. Here comes the move then to the inside. Jordan Caruso trying to fire his way past Gregor Schill at the moment. Gets a little bit of a boff as well as Sebastian Job tries to push his way into the mix. Job there in 11th spot. Caruso in 10th. Gregor Schill in 9th. This will be the inside line as they work their way around Curva Grande for the Porsche Commander of Jordan Caruso. All fighting over 2 points, 1 point, and correct myself. It'll be 3 points, 2 points, and 1 point in this group as Caruso gets to the outside, fires it in. Will he complete the move? Oh, brilliant driving from Gregor Schill.
Yeah, and he only had a fine margin to stay on the track with as well. He could have very easily found himself into the gravel, but back comes now Caruso up through the inside, now coming out of the first Lesmo, and indeed he's through. He's managed to cultivate that P9 now ahead of Gregor Schill. Is now rooted down in 10th with Sebastian Job for company. My goodness, the rear end getting stuck out there on the Team Redline belonging to Sebastian Job. Very nearly lost the car. Fantastic recovery as they now storm down the Seraglio Straight.
Yeah, certainly so. And whilst all this is going on, the top 3 are looking comfortable. It is Redline first, Redline second, Redline third as well. And when it comes to the points, they'll be leading by 43 at present. They're not trying to play any major games here, but they have the control of the race. Kaiki Oliveira sits there in 4th position with a duo of Porsche Coanda behind Dane Warren and Charlie Collins. Will they find their way back into the fight here? Will they find their way in a chance for a victory? If they want to win this evening, it must be victory, and it must come from Porsche Coanda.
Yeah, has to. Kaiki Oliveira here now, who we're currently seeing on screen just ahead of Dane Warren at the moment, but Warren urging ever closer, and Coanda need to make a play here. They need to get past this BS Plus competition car in order to try and at least tackle the trio of red lines that sit in front. There you have, of course, got Charlie Collins there. Joshua Rogers, though, going up through past Ferris Stanley. That's now being recorded out on track as well, so well done to Joshua Rogers. So now it's a trio of Porsche Coandas now 5th, 6th and 7th. I mean, again, can take a look at a replay. This is what happened to Nikodem Wisniewski earlier on the run down through towards Ascari. Just right about, my goodness me, just came in too hot, I think, Lewis, into Ascari left and right, and now into the gravel as well as a consequence. Yeah, that is in true George Morgan style, I do have to say.
I'm literally going to say, yeah, talk us through your coaching tactics here, Morgan. Off you go. Off you go. Doors open.
Oh, my goodness. I have no idea where this accusation of me coaching Wisniewski's come from, honestly.
I don't know, just see some bad drivers. You're obviously at fault. Either way,
this is not touring cars, my friend.
Certainly not. It's not Spa either, where you were 12 seconds slower than 2-time VCO Silvia Wilbur commentator Lewis McGlade. Like you say, Dane Warren, Charlie Collins, and Joshua Rogers now are into this train. Kaiki Oliveira is sat in the middle of it, being like, "Oh my God, lads, what's going on? Why am I in the middle of this?" It's going to be, it's going to be a bit concerned. He's got 3 Porsches behind, 3 red lines ahead, and they're battling for the round victory. And he sat in the middle being like, "Lads, I just want to win."
Well, I don't want to be as harsh as to say he's whistling Stranger in Paradise, because we really can't say that he is, because Kaiki Oliveira has been a sensational competitor for BS Plus competition, very much that locker room leader, as we so rightly suggest, moving in from Furia into the stampede that is the BS Plus team. Of course, further back, Ferris Stanley, after qualifying so strongly, now rooted down into 8th. It looks like now that Kaiki Oliveira is showing all over the back of Jeffrey Rietveld. Had to take a little bit of evasive action there just to avoid making some severe contact. I think just treading more in caution than anything else. Can't afford to make a single mistake, though, because he's in such a grand position. And just look at this, a trio of red lines met with a trio of Coandas with a BS Plus competition BMW M4 in between. Truly extraordinary stuff. Now, Dane Warren's got to do something, though. At the end of the day, they can't allow this to continue. 42 points the gap at the moment, Lewis, between the top 2 in the live standings.
Yeah, certainly. So, like you say, it's a gap opening up just a touch there. But to be fair, this is kind of one of those, that gap looks massive, right? 42 points seems almost insurmountable at this point. But that's because Redline are taking the 3 most lucrative positions in this race. If Porsche Coanda are able to get past Kaiki Oliveira and start taking some of those points off, obviously they will gain those lucrative points. That's great. They will also strip them off of Team Redline. They'll start to pull themselves back in the mix. So it's still open. There is still the potential. There is still the possibility for Porsche Coanda to win this. And I wouldn't even say it would be too surprising if they were able to do so, but they've got to get those moves done. And in a circuit which has seen the Porsches maybe struggle a little bit to get those moves done. When they're dealing with like larger groups, the one-on-one combat they've been fine with, but when it's like 2 or more, they really actually kind of seem to struggle a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's very true. I mean, obviously, if the positions do swing, though, like you so rightly say, if Redline gets stripped of points at the same time, I mean, that is the integral factor. It's not enough just to simply gain them. You need to take them off your competitor as well, and that's exactly what needs to happen for Porsche Coanda here. Very late on the brakes there for Joshua Rogers, tapping in the rear of Charlie Collins, his teammate there coming through towards turn 1. I think he was a little bit fortunate, just breathing a sigh of relief there perhaps as well. It got very tight between them, as you would expect, given the fact that we do have a 7-car train that are concertinaing coming through the first chicane. Out of Rettafilia, now through Curva Grande. Luke Bennett still with a 0.2 of a second advantage over Kevin Siggy at the moment. Jeffrey Rietveld down in 3rd, nursing a slender gap to Kaiki Oliveira as well, who's done a splendid job for BS Plus competition. 1.4 seconds now detached. It's Ferris Stanley down in 8th as well, looking for something a little bit different. Obviously, BS Plus competition now will be dropping down a group, obviously heading back down to Group B, where they were at Daytona last time around. But like you so rightly said, Lewis, at the end of the day, it's going to come down to a different format where 2 races will be on show, and we we head to our next round for every individual group that will be taking part in that one evening of racing to then decide the final points, and also those final teams that will be either making their way through as automatic contenders as qualifiers through to the EWC, and those that make it through to the qualification phase to at least make it to Riyadh. The rest, of course, getting bunked off altogether. It can go any which way, but I think we've rooted out at least one of those teams, and that is, of course, unfortunately, Guild, who are going to suffer after the disappointing venture in Group D.
And to be fair for them, the disappointing venture of 2025 in RENNSPORT R1, to be perfectly honest, very little to take as positives from it, but they'll still move stronger. They'll move forward. They'll get stronger as the year goes on, I'm sure. They'll keep their eyes focused elsewhere in the world of sim racing. But for right now, we keep our eyes focused here. There's the look to the inside coming in from Dane Warren, trying to get his way past Kaiki Oliveira. Now the outside here at the opening chicane. Now this could be the move. Obviously there, straight away, Jeff Rietveld giving the slipstream, giving the assistance to Kaiki Oliveira. Not going to be enough. Obviously he wants Oliveira to be ahead of the Porsche Commanders right now. And now Dane Warren comes over to cover off Oliveira, allows the door for Charlie Collins to come through, and there we go. In basically the click of a finger, Dane Warren and Charlie Collins have worked their way past Kaiki Oliveira, and now they can focus on trying to do battle with Team Redline. Now we're going to see this round be put right on the edge.
Popcorn at the ready, folks at home. Joshua Rogers is now the sole Porsche Commander car yet to get past Kaiki Oliveira, with Dane Warren and Charlie Collins now licking their lips at the prospect of potentially taking the fight. Now to Team Redline, with 3 of their cars currently sat inside that top 3, with Bennett, Siggy and Rietveld holding on to those positions that they have held since the opening lap as we got underway for the final race of Asking here in Group A. Coming into Ascari, once again riding on board with Joshua Rogers, a twist of the wheel, finding the grip now as he exits out of this soiree of corners before then making his way down this back straight in towards Alboreto. 2/10 away from Oliveira. He will surely look to surpass Oliveira now very soon, and sharpish if he wants to join his teammates and comrades as they now look to jostle over P3. Rietveld and Dane Warren now going side by side. It looks like now Warren has basically a nose in front, but this contest is going to go all the way down towards turn 1, and Rietveld is fighting back, Lewis.
Yeah, but Rietveld's actually kind of doing a good job here by fighting hard. He's allowed the top 2 to clear away. He keeps fighting. He keeps driving into the side. I'm not sure I vibe with that one. This is going to turn into a massive incident if they're not careful. Kaiki Oliveira back into the action as he fires his way down the outside. Is he going to stay on the circuit? No, he's not. Jeff Rietveld's gone for a spin, and this is going to cost Redline a lot of points.
It certainly will, because Warren now is up into 3rd. He has got his nose and his car in front, and Rogers has followed him through. Collins now has basically got Joshua Rogers basically got the Charlie Collins roll. They roll reverse now. Collins behind Kaiki Oliveira, but crucially, they've now disconnected from the rest of the Redline cars that are now sat Ps1 and Ps2. It's 1.8 between Warren and Siggy. That could be all she wrote.
Yeah, look, Jeff Rieveld, as much as maybe it was a little bit too much down there at T1, maybe it was a bit too silly with some of the fighting that we were seeing there. The important bit is that he has done a job. He has broken those 2 Porsche Commanders off of the rear end of the lead fight. Had he not done that, had he gone for a spin whilst Dane Warren and Joshua Rogers were still in slipstream range of the top 2, I would say this round is wide open. However, by slowing them down, by dragging them off of those top 2, by giving Redline the position to take a 1-2 here in the final race of the evening, he has effectively given Redline the victory of the round.
Yeah, just opening that door, opening that window of Delta to allow them yet more comfort. The 2 Redline cars that currently lead the way have got a 1.8 second gap advantage. This is the moment. Rietveld going around, getting spun, coming out of turn 1, but the service has been adhered to. It's 1.9 to 2 seconds now between Dane Warren and Kevin Siggy, with Kaiki Oliveira down in 5th, and the sole BS Plus competition car really in this top 5 equation. Obviously very Stanley though on the tail of Charlie Collins now, with every chance of profiteering in his own rights, as now Joshua Rogers looks to cover off the inside against Kaiki Oliveira, just kind of throws him off to the outside and then back to the inside. Well averted there from Joshua Rogers. Still Dane Warren sat in 3rd, but that gap has gone out again. It's gone out by another 2/10. We're now 2 seconds outside of the mark from Kevin Siggy. It's Warren in 3rd, still at the moment, but Bennett and Kevin Siggy looking to take this home and host, and Luke Bennett looks on course for his second win tonight on top of those 3 pole positions.
Yeah, indeed. It's been a really solid night for Bennett. There comes the outside look. It's Sebastian Job fending off Gregor Schill. It's Jordan Caruso working his way into it. Caruso could gain a few points here. It still wouldn't be enough. Don't worry too much. The only thing is if Sebastian Job gets spun out of this and then Caruso gains, it would close down. Still really wouldn't be enough. But yeah, again, there's just a little bit of drama to throw into the mix. Well, speaking of which, speaking of spins, it's Jordan Caruso who's been sent round. Never mind.
Yeah, no, very close moments indeed. Caruso, unfortunately, though, rooted to the rear as we now watch them head down through towards Ascari. Gregor Schill on the back of Sebastian Job, who's had his own trials and tribulations here this evening. And 2.4 now away from Ferris Stanley. So this is the essentially the third group at the moment that we're currently watching, fighting it out at the moment, with Nikodem Wisniewski then further back by 1.2 after he took his excursion off at Ascari earlier in the race. There's Kaiki Oliveira, just under 4.5 tenths away from Joshua Rogers, who in turn is just under 4 tenths away from Dane Warren. And still that gap is going outwards, 2.2 now, yet another 2 tenths, make that 3 tenths now as they storm down through towards turn 1. They're basically slipstreaming each other here, Bennett and Siggy at the moment. Lewis on the final lap, just protecting that advantage.
Yeah, indeed. Look, they're just looking after it. I'm sure there won't be any major dramas between the pair of them as here comes to the outside Gregor Schill. Sebastian Job still continuing this battle for 8th position. And with the outside run here at the opening chicane, it should be in favour of Sebastian Job by the time they work their way down towards the Roger, courtesy of this long run around Curva Grande. It's been a tricky round for Redline than maybe they were expecting coming into it. I don't know. It's been really close. It's been an enthralling battle between Redline and Coanda.
Oh.
And that spin for Sebastian Job, a little bit of salt in the wound for what has been a tricky night for Sebastian Job. Again, won't matter too much, just closes the gap up a little bit for Porsche Commander on Redline.
Yeah, just remove some of those points gained from Sebastian Job, but nothing that's really going to cause too much of an imposition, I think, to Redline's overall top of the group hopes. But here on the final lap, it is still Luke Bennett out in front as now we have more side-by-sides with Ferris Stanley and Charlie Collins, who's looking to the outside, coming through Ascari. Very brave move, leaving it late on the brakes. Needs as many points as they can muster. Porsche Coanda, it certainly, again, won't do any good in terms of what's happening with Team Redline. The points gap now down to 17. But now, coming through the final corner, Lewis, it looks home and hosed.
Yeah, certainly so. For the second time this evening, then, it is going to be a victory for Luke Bennett. It's a victory for Team Redline, though, on the day. It's an important one indeed. They will now be locked on points at the top of the standings. Redline and Coanda, as we expect so much. Drag race to the line between Ferris Stanley and Charlie Collins. Thousands separating them in advantage to Ferris Stanley. 2 Redlines, 2 Porsche Coanders, and 2 BS competitions in that top 6. Like I said, BS competition have certainly not embarrassed themselves here in Group A, but they will be taking a swift trip back down to Group B.
They certainly will, but there is our winner from our last race in Group A, Luke Bennett, who has done it once before already in Race 1, 3 times a pole sitter, twice a race winner. And Redline, despite missing out on the victory in Race 2, it did not hurt them too much. They have now topped the group in great style. We will, of course, get confirmation of points later on. Obviously, the steward's still going to work on those provisional points, so stay with us, folks. I do remember this time around. You will not miss the tables this time, folks. I feel like doing it tonight, actually, Lewis. I feel like it. But yeah, I do feel like it this time. But yeah, tremendous job from Team Redline. Again, just the perfect way to bounce back from Daytona, really.
Yeah, exactly. From a Daytona, which in Race 1 looks really, really poor. And then Race 2, they suddenly came out of nowhere. Then Race 3, it all kind of fell apart again a little bit. This time, it kind of been the opposite. They started out really strong. There was a little bit of a door open for Porsche Commander, and then they slammed it shut and took control. It's been a really solid night for Redline. They're looking strong. They're looking like the team we expect. And again, locked on points at the top here in R1.
Well, we can go and say hello to our race winner, of course, Luke Bennett. Victor, once again, Luke, welcome back. A brilliant job. Once again, Redline victorious here tonight. A stark contrast to Daytona, it seems, here at Monza, and the perfect way to head into the final round.
Yeah, that is not the result I was expecting in the slightest. I was expecting a repeat of Daytona, to be honest, from my side, but seems to have gone quite the opposite way. I've gone from qualifying last in every race to qualifying first in every race, which is nice. Yeah, my teammates have done a solid job to just bring home the points, make sure we beat Coanda, and I think that puts us equal on points now with Coanda, and yeah, it should be a good fun fight in the last round of the online season.
Look pretty happy setting a third consecutive pole on the evening. We saw your little look towards the camera as well. I mean, look, what were your thoughts in race 2? And obviously you had to battle with both of those Porsche Coandas. Were you thinking that, right, Coanda are right back in this, I've got to nail the qualifying again, I've really got to get after it, because your qualifying speed's been really, really impressive?
If I'm honest, I have no idea why I've put it on pole. If well, obviously I know why I put it on pole. I wanted to put it on pole, but I don't really know how it happened or anything. I didn't ever think about the points or anything like that. I felt like probably coming into the round, because I really struggled in this week of prep. Maybe the pressure was a little bit lower, as I kind of wasn't expected to do very well. And because of that, it's actually made me perform better. So maybe another bad week of prep will put me at the front again next week.
Just practicing, mate.
Perfect way to bounce back, in my view, Luke. Congratulations. A wonderful 2 wins to add to the table, as well as the 3 pole positions that you managed to usher in. We wish you all the very best heading into the final round. That'll be coming up very shortly in your battle between Team Redline and Porsche Coanda. Congratulations, Luke.
Good, guys. Thanks.
There we are, Luke Bennett, of course, your race winner here at Monza in the final race of our scheme. We're going to run through the highlights here. Lewis, take us through that exciting final race.
Yeah, indeed. Obviously, a good start for Redline, being locked out on the front row. A big move coming in, though, from Jeff Rietveld, who would try and get to the outside at the first corner. Kaiki Oliveira stuck right in the middle. Porsche Coanda stuck, dropping backwards. Josh Rogers squeezed off the road by Kaiki Oliveira out of the first corner. There was Rogers dropping backwards. Some moves from Sebastian Jobe, trying to work his way up from the rear end of the field, trying to find his way up the order. But then there was this moment of Nikodem Wisniewski going straight on to Skari. He'd rejoin, but it would be in 12th position for the BS competition, man. Bit of a shame there for the BS competition driver. Meanwhile, Sebastian Jobe was trying to work his way back up and up the order as best he could, trying to fight past Porsche Coanda, was trying to fight with Nikodem Wisniewski, was trying to fight with Gregor Schill as well. Couldn't quite do it. Josh Rogers and the likes were trying to fight their way through. This is Dane Warren trying to find his way past Kaiki Oliveira. Eventually the move would go in favour. Charlie Collins would come through with him. And then there was this drama. Of course, Jeff Rietveld, who dropped off of the top 2, was battling hard with Dane Warren, was opening up the opportunity, and then with this drama, an absolute cluster, Jeff Rietveld would go for a bit of a spin, but the damage had already been done. It was a 2-second lead that the top 2 had pulled out over that grouping. This spin made things from bad to worse for Jordan Caruso as he was spun round coming out of Lesmo 1, courtesy of a bit of contact from the rear end. From, I believe, Nikodem Wisniewski, sent into the barrier at high speed. Very unfortunate. Sebastian Jobe later on would have a bit of a spin on the nose of Gregor Schill as they worked their way through the Roger, but it was already done. It was already Redline taking the victory. Luke Bennett and Kevin Siggy across the line first and second. Porsche Coanda in third and fourth, with Warren ahead of Rogers. Kaiki Oliveira in fifth position, with Ferris Stanley in sixth. And then, of course, Charlie Collins in seventh position, Gregor Schill in eighth, Nikodem Wisniewski in ninth. Then Rietveld, Jobe and Caruso, the 12-car field to end the final race of the evening. And again, a very exciting one. Great to see Redline back on top. Great to see a close battle. The important bit, though, again, very provisional, that if everything finishes, it will most likely finish in the order that we've got. They'll be locked on points at the top of this championship, George. Now, the thing is, the way the points work, whoever wins the round gets 12 points, whoever gets second in the round gets 11, and then 10, and so on. Which means that after round 8, we have to have a winner. They cannot finish tied at the top. So round 8 next week, one of Porsche Coanda or Team Redline are going to win. One of them is going to go into the Esports World Cup as our number 1 seed.
Kind of a championship in itself, just getting the qualification phase really in your corner, really, to gain a spot at the EWC. But it's been an immense tussle, has it not? I mean, between Redline and Porsche Coanda, something we all, always often see. We've seen it ever since the Spring Season Championship, where of course we saw the likes of Max Benneker, Joshua Rogers becoming race winners for the very first time of asking at Katowice. But we can now take you through the groups and the live standings. Fear not, we bring them here this time around, everybody. We have got BMW M Team Redline Racing Bulls on 144 here in P1 as it stands ahead of Porsche Coanda Esports Racing Team in second on 125. BS Plus Competition, they will be moving out of Group A and heading down into Group B ahead of our final round as well. They finish in third. Team Falcons, though, topping their group after some special performances from Thomas Tatler and Jaka Matuszewski. 152, they have marched clear of Mercedes-AMG GT3 team, Team TC Racing. They are in second, 97-point territory with Guild Esports after a really difficult season. Things have not gone to plan. I'm sure they'll be having a rethink in third place as well after finishing on 75. Final thoughts, Lewis McGlade. What were your thoughts after that truly remarkable round at Monza? It always applies the action, and we've got a fascinating final round ahead.
Yeah, indeed. Like I said, it's been a fun one. Of course, racing again tomorrow, so that's for Group B and Group C. A couple of big improvements out there, of course. Falcons, huge improvement there to actually get out of Group D. Redline, big improvement back up from Daytona to really fight the top. And again, of course, a big improvement for George Morgan. He can listen to a broadcast director. Absolutely crazy.
Well, folks, that's not all that we've got covered from Monza. We're going to be back again tomorrow night as well. Do be sure to join us at the same time for when we see Group B and Group C in action as well to end off night 2 at Monza as well. But from me, George Morgan, and Lewis McGlade, we'll see you tomorrow. Well, Lewis won't. Cam Roger will be there instead. But from us, anyway, goodbye.